So hey guys, how are you all? I hope you all are doing great. So here is a new video for you guys. So before starting the video, make sure that you have subscribed to the channel and also like the video. So in this video, what if Naruto reborn with his abilities and godlike powers? So this is part 1. If you want the next part, complete 500 likes on this channel and also comment down, and so yeah, without wasting much more time, let's get into the video. Shikamaru knocked softly on the door, the faint sound reverberating through the quiet hallway. He stepped back and waited, feeling a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. After a brief pause, the door creaked open and the face of his girlfriend greeted him. Her eyes lit up with a warm smile, which caused Shikamaru to return the gesture, his lips curving into a gentle smile. "Hey," he greeted her, his voice carrying a mix of familiarity and affection. "Hi, Shikamaru," she replied, her smile widening as she stepped aside to let him in. He entered the house, carrying a small bag that he placed on the table just inside the door. The scent of familiar home-cooked food and the hum of voices from the living room caught his attention. Shikamaru's curiosity piqued, he walked towards the source of the sounds. As he approached, he saw his closest friends gathered around the couch in a semicircle. Kiba and Lee, already tipsy from their drinking, were attempting to draw something on paper with their eyes closed. Their attempts were comically disastrous, and the room was filled with laughter and encouraging shouts from their friends. Sakura's laughter rang out the loudest, adding to the cheerful chaos. Ino, standing near the table, had been trying to rally everyone to sit down and enjoy the meal. Her initial attempts had gone largely ignored, but now she tried again with a bit more insistence, this time using her telepathic abilities to convey her message. The result was immediate. Kiba and Lee, startled by the sudden mental nudge, dropped their pencils and jumped up from their seats. Alright, we're coming," Kiba exclaimed, rubbing his eyes as if to clear away the drunken haze. Everyone made their way to the table, their earlier laughter transitioning into animated conversation. Shikamaru took a seat, surveying the scene. He noticed with a tinge of nostalgia that the table now had fewer plates and utensils than it had in the past. Memories of gatherings from years ago, like their graduation celebration, came flooding back. Those simpler times seemed distant now. Ino's repeated efforts to get everyone to settle down had succeeded, and the room fell into a more subdued but still warm atmosphere. Shikamaru could sense the underlying sentiment. While the mood was lighter, there was a collective acknowledgement of those who were no longer present. Despite the attempts to keep the evening carefree, the absence of fallen comrades was a weight that lingered over the group. Ino, now visibly frustrated but still compassed, called for attention once more. "Before Kiba and Lee get too drunk to remember anything, we have an announcement to make." There was a collective murmur of curiosity and anticipation. Kiba and Lee, though still a bit out of sorts, managed to focus their attention on Ino. Shikamaru, who had already been aware of the upcoming announcement, cast a glance at Sai, who was standing beside Ino. He remembered discovering Sai's secret trip out of the village to obtain an engagement ring just days earlier. The upcoming news was not entirely unexpected. Ino took a deep breath, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she continued, "Sai and I are getting married at the end of spring." A hush fell over the room as the announcement sank in. The initial silence was quickly followed by a flurry of congratulations and well wishes. Shikamaru watched as his friends expressed their joy, offering heartfelt messages and cheers. Despite the underlying sorrow of their shared losses, the news brought a momentary lift to everyone's spirits. Shikamaru felt a genuine sense of happiness for the couple. Sai and Ino's engagement was a beacon of hope and a reminder that life continued, even amidst the shadow of past hardships. Shikamaru wished that Ino could find solace and joy in the upcoming new chapter of her life, helping her move forward from the shared grief that bound them. As the congratulations subsided, Choji, ever the one to lead the charge for celebration, raised his glass. "A toast," he announced loudly, drawing everyone's attention. The room erupted in agreement as glasses were raised. Choji continued, "To Sai and Ino. May your future together be filled with happiness and love." The clink of glasses and the chorus of cheers filled the room. Shikamaru took a sip from his own glass, feeling the warmth of the moment. Despite the pain and loss that had marked their past, there was a shared determination among his friends to celebrate the present and look forward to the future. As the evening wore on, the group found a semblance of normalcy, reveling in each other's company and the joy of the engagement. For one night, they allowed themselves to forget their sorrows and simply be present, cherishing the bonds they had forged and the moments of happiness they could still share. Shikamaru felt a deep sense of gratitude towards Kimi for volunteering to take over his duties for the evening. It was a generous gesture that allowed Shikamaru to be fully present at the gathering without any worries. As he looked around at the lively scene, he planned to personally congratulate his friend later, but for now, he wanted to savor the moment. The atmosphere was light and jovial, with Choji leading the charge for a toast. "Have a good one, life," he declared with a grin. His straightforwardness, though somewhat blunt, elicited hearty laughter from the group. Hiba, never one to miss an opportunity for a joke, chimed in with playful mockery of Chaoji's toast, which caused Akimichi to look away with mock indignation. However, Chaoji's genuine nature shone through, and after a brief apology, he joined in the applause as everyone celebrated. The room was filled with a sense of camaraderie and shared history. Tenten and Ine, who had been part of their circle for years, were missed in the lively exchange. Chaoji, thinking about them, was momentarily distracted by a thought he had voiced aloud. The sudden knock on the door snapped everyone's attention back to the present. The sound of footsteps and murmured conversations made it clear that the door was being opened, and then Naruto entered. The atmosphere shifted as the door opened to reveal Naruto, who, despite his usual cheerful demeanor, was not smiling. Sasuke followed closely behind, causing everyone to freeze momentarily. The Uchiha's presence was unexpected, and it was evident that he had just returned from a mission. He was swiftly guided to a seat at the table without any formal greetings. The atmosphere grew tense as Sasuke was seated, and a set of instruments was placed in front of him. Shikamaru watched as Sasuke, with his characteristic brevity, commented, "The mission wasn't bad." The simplicity of his response was enough to indicate that there were no major issues, but the conversation quickly shifted away from him. Ino and Sai were still basking in the joy of their engagement, and the group was not eager to delve into the details of Sasuke's mission when there was so much happiness in the air. Naruto, on the other hand, was not present at the table. Ino's annoyance was evident as she shrugged, acknowledging that the blonde boy was away on his own duties. Despite her irritation, there were no hard feelings. The night was still young, and the promise of upcoming contests was enough to keep everyone's spirits high. As the evening progressed, the 2 hours flew by with laughter and fun. The contests, although less organized than they might have been in their younger days, provided ample entertainment. Kiba and Lee, both visibly intoxicated, were the stars of the show. Their attempts to showcase their drunken prowess added a humorous touch to the festivities. Eventually, Kiba passed out, and Lee, struggling with the effects of too much alcohol, staggered around the house, seeking relief from his nausea. Lee's departure was abrupt. He apologized to Ino on his way out, mentioning some urgent matters he had almost forgotten. As he left, Shikamaru watched the scene with a mixture of amusement and sympathy. With Lee gone, Sai, his arm around Ino, returned to the living room where the party was still going strong. Meanwhile, Naruto was far from the revelry. He was at the Konoha cemetery, a place that held deep significance for him. He walked slowly among the graves, each step resonating with the weight of his memories and the loss he had endured. He approached each tombstone with reverence, leaving flowers as a tribute to those he had lost. Naruto stopped at his mother's grave, placing violets, her favorite flowers, on the stone. The quiet of the cemetery provided a solace he rarely found elsewhere. He sat down, letting the tranquility of the surroundings envelop him as he began to speak softly to his mother. He recounted his latest mission, the challenges he had faced, and the victories he had achieved. In the stillness, Naruto found comfort in sharing his thoughts aloud. The cemetery, though somber, was a place where he could pour out his heart without reservation. He spoke to his mother as though she were sitting beside him, reflecting on how her absence had shaped his life. The rosaries on her grave seemed to shine with a light that mirrored her gentle spirit, and Naruto pondered the profound impact she had on his life. The quiet moments allowed him to think deeply about his past, present, and future. The memories of those he had lost, and the strength they had given him, were a source of both sadness and inspiration. As he finished speaking, Naruto felt a renewed sense of resolve. The cemetery, a place of remembrance, also became a wellspring of strength and clarity. But the final glance at his mother's grave, he stood up, ready to face whatever lay ahead, fortified by the memories and the love he carried with him. Naruto Uzumaki sat alone in the quiet of the Konoha cemetery, clutching a cherished photograph of his parents to his chest. The image of his smiling mother and father, which he had discovered in a storage room at the residence, was a beacon of comfort and solace in his final moments. The photograph, though old and worn, had become a symbol of the unwavering support he longed for throughout his life. As the poison slowly took its toll, Naruto reflected on his past with a mixture of nostalgia and melancholy. He had always imagined that having close, supportive parents would have made all the difference during his trials and tribulations. As a child, he had envisioned that if he had parents, they would be there to solve his problems and provide the guidance he desperately needed. But reality had painted a different picture. Instead of having his problems solved for him, he had been pushed to face them head-on, and in doing so, had discovered his own strength and resilience. "This is our last meeting in this world," Naruto whispered to the photograph with a bittersweet smile. He continued speaking as if his mother could hear him, recounting his final mission to protect the Mizukage. It had been a challenging task, one that had ended with him succumbing to a slow-acting poison. Despite the seriousness of his condition, he found solace in sharing the stories of his mission, including humorous anecdotes about the Mizukage's attempts to set him up with a subordinate. He spoke fondly of Churo, the Mizukage's successor, who was set to continue the legacy and help the village of Mist shed its old reputation. Naruto's thoughts wandered back to his friends and the many adventures they had shared. He recalled the early days of his journey. His escapes from the academy, Kakashi's rigorous training, the chase after Daima's cat, and his first significant mission in the Land of Waves. Each memory was vivid and cherished, painting a picture of a life filled with both trials and triumphs. The Chunin exams, his encounter with Orochimaru, the battles, and the meeting with Jiraiya, all these moments replayed in his mind like a movie. "Thanks, guys, for everything," Naruto said with a sincere smile. He was filled with gratitude for his friends who had stood by him through thick and thin. Their unwavering support had been a pillar of strength for him, and he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of appreciation for each one of them. The poison had progressed to the point where he could no longer feel his legs, signaling the nearing end. Naruto knew he was only moments away from reuniting with his parents, and although the process was painful, he found peace in the thought of finally being with them again. The poison's effect was relentless, but he faced it with the same bravery that had characterized his life. In his final moments, Naruto turned to Kurama, the Nine Tails who had been his constant companion. "Thanks to you too, Kurama," Naruto said, his voice filled with warmth. "It has been a pleasure working with you, friend." Kurama, though usually brash and defiant, responded with a low, approving grunt. Despite the circumstances, he chose not to break free from Naruto's body. He had decided to stay, preferring to be reborn in a few years rather than leave his host alone in his final moments. It was a matter of principle for him, and Naruto's pleas did little to change his mind. Kurama had always been a part of Naruto's journey, and he intended to remain so until the very end. Naruto knew that his friends were enjoying their time, free from the burden of his impending departure. He wished he could be there with them, sharing in their laughter and happiness. But he understood that his presence would only cast a shadow over their joy. So, he chose to embrace his final moments in solitude, finding solace in the memories and the knowledge that his friends were well and happy. As the poison reached its final stage, Naruto took a deep breath, his mind drifting to thoughts of the future. He knew that his departure was imminent, but he faced it with a sense of peace and fulfillment. His life had been rich and full, and despite the hardships, he had lived it to the fullest. With a final glance at the photograph of his parents and a heartfelt thank you to his friends and Kurama, Naruto closed his eyes, ready to embark on the next journey. In the quiet of the cemetery, under the watchful gaze of the moon, Naruto's spirit prepared to leave this world behind. His life, marked by both triumph and struggle, had come to a close, but his legacy would live on in the hearts of those he loved and who loved him in return. Naruto lay on the ground, his body immobilized by the poison that had been slowly seeping through him. Despite the pain and the weight of the situation, his heart found a moment of solace as a familiar voice reached his ears. It was Hinata's voice, calm and soothing, though he could barely move to acknowledge her presence. He turned his head slightly, trying to focus on her despite his fading strength. "Hinata," he whispered weakly, his voice barely audible. Hinata knelt beside him, her gentle touch brushing through his hair as she spoke. "We should thank you, Naruto-kun. You were a ray of light for everyone. Your words and behavior made us believe that everything would be fine, that we just had to never get discouraged and fight for our goals. You can't imagine everything you've done for me, Naruto-kun." Her voice was filled with gratitude and admiration, and it pained him to see her so distressed. He wished he could offer her comfort in return, but the poison had taken its toll. He longed to express everything he felt, all the things he had been unable to say before. But now, all he could do was listen as she continued to speak softly, her hand trembling as it stroked his hair. "Thank you, Hinata," he managed to say, his voice breaking with emotion. Hinata's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and despite her best efforts to hold them back, a few escaped and traced down her cheeks. She was visibly struggling, her heart aching at the sight of Naruto's weakened state. He had always seen her as someone who would shy away from showing her emotions, but now she was showing a strength and tenderness that was deeply moving. She was a kunoichi, indeed, and a strong one at that. To Naruto, it was a poignant realization. The girl who had once been too shy to approach him was now his rock in these final moments. Her presence was a testament to how much she had grown, how much she had become an integral part of his life. If he had only realized sooner, things might have been different, but now he could only accept the situation and find comfort in her presence. Hinata's words echoed in his mind as he felt her warmth enveloping him. He rested his head against her, finding solace in the fact that the person he had always dreamed of being close to was here with him in his final moments. Her kindness, modesty, and strength reminded him of his mother. It was a bittersweet comfort, knowing that she was there for him when he needed her the most. "I'm sorry, Hinata," he whispered, his voice barely more than a breath. "Don't be," she replied softly, trying to steady her voice. "Just rest now. We're here for you." As Naruto's consciousness began to wane, he could feel the presence of the Nine Tails, Kurama, within him. The fox's voice was a distant murmur, but there was a note of approval in its tone. "It was interesting being with you," Naruto Kurama said. "Too bad it ends so quickly. I wish there was more time." Naruto's final thoughts were a mix of gratitude and sorrow. He reflected on his life, his friends, and the experiences that had shaped him. He had faced many challenges, and though his life was ending, he found a sense of peace, knowing that he had lived it fully and that he had made a difference in the lives of those around him. The moment came when Naruto's spirit began to rise from his physical body, a process that was both surreal and comforting. He looked down at Hinata, who continued to hold him, and offered a silent thank you to his friends and to Kurama. As his form started to evaporate into the air, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment and readiness for whatever lay beyond. In another part of the world, Satsuko lived a life starkly different from Naruto's. Her childhood had been marked by hardship and survival, as she navigated through the difficult times of clan conflicts and economic downturns. She was one of the lone shinobi, individuals who had no clan affiliations and worked alone. Her skills and survival were honed through necessity, and she had made a name for herself in a country where being a lone shinobi was both a blessing and a curse. In a small, dimly lit room, a boy approached Satsuko, his demeanor smug as he licked his lips. "Who is your master?" he asked, his tone carrying an air of superiority. Satsuko, despite her apprehension, responded with a subdued voice, naming her client. Her experiences had taught her to navigate such situations carefully, always on guard against potential threats and deceit. The world she inhabited was unforgiving, and every interaction was a test of her skills and survival instincts. As the boy moved closer, Satsuko's mind was focused on her task, her determination unyielding despite the uncertainty of her situation. She had learned to adapt and survive, and she would continue to do so, no matter the challenges that lay ahead. The path of a lone shinobi was a solitary one, but it had forged her into a resilient and formidable warrior, ready to face whatever came next. Satsuko's heart raced as she felt the cold steel of the kunai pressed against her throat. The harsh voice that had interrupted her moment of triumph was laced with authority and menace. She turned her head slightly to see the shadowy figure standing behind her, a young man with an intense gaze and a determined expression. The kunai's blade glinted ominously in the fading light. "This belongs to our clan," the voice said, low and commanding. "I will take it from you, and we will separate without a fight. Make one more move, and it will be your last." Satsuko swallowed hard, her mind racing. She could feel the pressure of the kunai against her skin, and every instinct told her to stay still. Her eyes darted to the black-haired boy who had appeared out of nowhere. He was bending down, picking up a single brooch, the most valuable of the stolen items. He moved with a grace and speed that suggested he could eliminate her effortlessly if he chose to. The boy's presence made it clear that he was far beyond her league. He had already proven that once today, and it seemed he was here to enforce the clan's claim on the stolen goods. Satsuko knew she had little chance of escaping him if he decided to act. The best option was to comply and avoid further conflict. "I understand," Satsuko said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "I won't make any trouble." The boy's expression softened slightly, but the kunai remained at her throat. "Good," he said. "Hand over the stolen items, and we'll part ways." Satsuko reached into her bag and retrieved the jewels she had taken, placing them carefully on the ground. The boy's eyes followed her movements with a keen interest, and once she had finished, he picked up the items swiftly. She watched as he pocketed the jewels with a practiced ease, his movements quick and precise. As he finished collecting the stolen goods, he looked back at Satsuko. "You should leave this area immediately. You're lucky that I'm feeling generous today," he said, his voice carrying a note of finality. "Next time, you might not be so fortunate." With that, the boy turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Satsuko alone once more. She let out a sigh of relief, though her heart was still pounding. The confrontation had been brief but intense, and she had narrowly avoided a grim fate. The realization of how close she had come to losing her life was sobering. Satsuko glanced at the remaining items in her bag, the wallet and a few pieces of jewelry. The stolen goods weren't as substantial as they had seemed at first, but they were still valuable. She had managed to keep a portion of the loot, which would be useful for her immediate needs. Without wasting any more time, Satsuko decided to leave the village as quickly as possible. She knew that staying any longer could bring more trouble, and the boy's warning had only reinforced her urgency. She didn't bother going to the market or seeking out any additional supplies. Instead, she set her sights on the upper paths, which would lead her to the nearest village. The upper paths were well traveled by shinobi, but ordinary people rarely used them. For Satsuko, it was the fastest route. She was a skilled chunin with speed that rivaled even some of the more experienced shinobi. As she sprinted along the path, the cool evening air rushed past her, and she pushed herself to cover the distance as quickly as possible. The village was only a few hours away for someone of her abilities. While ordinary travelers would take a day and a half to reach it, Satsuko was determined to make the journey in 2 hours or less. She kept her pace steady and focused, her thoughts occupied with the events of the day and the uncertainty of her future. Despite the chaos and danger she faced, Satsuko's resolve remained unshaken. The life of a lone shinobi was fraught with challenges, and she had learned to adapt and survive in an unforgiving world. Her experiences had forged her into a resilient warrior, and she was prepared to face whatever lay ahead. As the night fell, Satsuko approached the edge of the village. The lights from the houses twinkled in the distance, offering a sense of safety and respite. She entered the village quietly, blending into the shadows as she made her way to a safe place where she could rest and plan her next move. The journey had been perilous, but Satsuko had navigated it with determination and skill. As she settled into her new surroundings, she reflected on the day's events. The encounter with the boy had reminded her of the dangers that lurked in her world, but it had also strengthened her resolve to continue fighting for her survival and her place in the world. Satsuko's mind lingered on the mysterious shinobi who had confronted her earlier. She couldn't shake the image of him and the enigmatic aura he carried. Despite her best efforts to place him within the known clans, she could not identify his origin. The Inyazuka clan was known for their distinctive dogs, while the Nara clan primarily employed their shadow techniques. The shinobi who had confronted her used neither of these traits. His appearance and skills remained a puzzle, leaving her with a gnawing sense of unease. Her journey towards the village was uneventful, but the thought of the unknown shinobi constantly hovered in her mind. The path had been long, and the weight of her thoughts was beginning to wear her down. As she entered the village, she felt a strong urge to find a place to rest and regroup. After some searching, she stumbled upon a small hotel with a cafe on the ground floor, a promising refuge from her troubles. A young waitress greeted her with a friendly smile as she entered the cafe. The establishment seemed simple but welcoming. Satsuko was shown to a free table, and the waitress promptly handed her a menu before leaving to attend to other patrons. The cafe was filled predominantly with middle-aged men, many of whom were deep into their drinks. The atmosphere was relaxed but not entirely pleasant, with boisterous laughter and the clinking of glasses punctuating the air. Satsuko, focused on her goal of nourishment and rest, quickly placed her order. She glanced around the room, noting the rough crowd and the need to be cautious. Her instincts told her that while the village might seem like a safe haven, she needed to remain alert. The money she had left was enough to cover a meal and a night stay, but she planned to conserve her funds as best as she could. Moments later, 5 plates of food were placed before her, a feast that contrasted sharply with the disarray of the cafe. Satsuko appreciated the variety but remained guarded. As she began to eat, her attention was drawn to a man who had taken an interest in her solitude. He approached her table with a presumptive air, sliding into the seat across from her without invitation. "Why is such a pretty girl sitting alone?" he asked with a lecherous grin. Satsuko chose to ignore him, continuing with her meal. The man, undeterred, reached for one of her plates. Reacting swiftly, Satsuko tapped the plate with her foot under the table, infusing it with a subtle amount of chakra. The plate didn't break, but a sudden, sharp pain caused the man to jerk back, cursing loudly. His friends erupted in laughter, and he returned to his group, clearly disgruntled. Satsuko clenched her teeth, feeling a mix of irritation and satisfaction. It was a small victory, but served as a reminder of the dangers that lurked even in seemingly mundane situations. After finishing her meal, she went to the counter to settle her bill and secure a room for the night. The room she received was cheap, reflecting the modest nature of the hotel. Satsuko hoped that the cost would allow her to stay for a week or more if necessary. However, upon entering, she found the room to be in dismal condition. The mattress was tattered, and the walls showed signs of significant wear. The apparent lack of maintenance was disappointing, but Satsuko was too tired to care. Determined to make the best of her situation, she set up a weak explosive seal in front of the door as a precaution against unexpected visitors. Once she was satisfied with her security measures, she lay down on the bed, hoping for a restful night. The bed was less than comfortable, but it was better than sleeping on the ground or a tree branch. Exhausted from her journey and the stress of the day, Satsuko fell asleep almost immediately. Her sleep was interrupted by an unexpected fall when the bed collapsed, sending her to the floor. Groggily, she pushed herself up and surveyed the damage, realizing that her makeshift bed had given way under her. Despite the rough conditions, Satsuko decided to make the best of it. She lay back down on the floor, determined to get some rest before moving on. The discomfort was a minor inconvenience compared to the trial she had faced recently. As she drifted off again, she focused on the task ahead, finding out more about the mysterious shinobi, securing her next steps, and surviving in a world that was often unforgiving. Satsuko's eyes snapped open as she jolted awake, her forehead and nose feeling a dull ache from the rough night's sleep. Groggily, she rubbed her face and quickly got up. The cramped and dilapidated bathroom did little to refresh her, but she made do, dressing swiftly and heading downstairs to the cafe for some breakfast. The cafe was sparsely populated, with only a young man seated at the edge of the room. Satsuko handed over the key to the waitress and ordered a modest meal. The food arrived quickly, and as she began to eat, the waitress, a young woman with striking green eyes, approached her table and introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Aya." "Nice to meet you," Aya said with a warm smile, observing Satsuko with an appraising gaze. Satsuko returned the greeting, introducing herself in turn. When Aya asked what she was doing in the village, Satsuko replied that she was traveling. However, her senses were on high alert and she couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. Trusting her instincts, she decided to cut her meal short, paid for the food, and left the cafe in a hurry. As Satsuko hurriedly exited the cafe and ran towards the nearby forest, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following her. She pushed herself to maintain a swift pace, determined to reach the nearest village and put some distance between herself and any potential pursuers. After running for about an hour, Satsuko found a small clearing where she stopped to catch her breath. Her intuition, now screaming at her, warned of imminent danger. She tensed, scanning her surroundings, when suddenly, a massive fire dragon burst from the forest, flying over her and setting the trees ablaze behind her. The fiery barrier made it clear that retreat was no longer an option. Three dark-haired figures landed gracefully on the scorched ground, their Sharingan eyes glowing ominously with two Tomo. Satsuko recognized them as members of the Uchiha clan, their presence sending a chill down her spine. The Uchiha clan's reputation was well known, and their skills were formidable. The three shinobi did not waste time. Two of them immediately charged at Satsuko, their movements precise and coordinated. The third figure, a head taller and seemingly more imposing, began forming hand seals from a distance, preparing a powerful technique. Satsuko's heart raced as she faced the two attacking Uchiha. Individually, they were slightly weaker than her, but their combined assault and the support of the third Uchiha made her situation dire. She skillfully dodged their attacks, her experience allowing her to avoid their strikes, but the constant pressure and the overwhelming numbers began to wear her down. The third Uchiha, standing back, unleashed a series of high-speed projectile techniques, which Satsuko struggled to evade. Realizing that she could not sustain this level of combat for much longer, she decided to take a risk. She blocked one of the attacker's punches, but the momentary pause was enough for the other Uchiha to close in on her. Desperation setting in, Satsuko decided to try a different approach. "I give up," she shouted, hoping to stall the attackers. Her sudden surrender made the Uchiha pause, their weapons still at the ready, their eyes assessing her. The third Uchiha, who had been overseeing the battle from a distance, leaped down from his perch and approached the others. He carried no visible weapons, indicating his preference for hand-to-hand combat. The lack of visible weaponry confirmed Satsuko's suspicion of his formidable close combat skills. Seizing the opportunity, Satsuko quickly threw a kunai with an explosive seal at the two Uchiha attackers. The explosive seal activated, creating a burst of smoke and fire that forced the Uchiha to scatter, buying her precious moments. Taking advantage of their disarray, Satsuko pulled out another kunai, this one also equipped with an explosive seal. She aimed it at the third Uchiha, who was now approaching her. The kunai flew through the air, its explosive seal primed to detonate. As the kunai neared the third Uchiha, he barely had time to react. The explosion was sharp and blinding, creating a cloud of dust and debris. Satsuko used the chaos to her advantage, quickly moving away from the site of the explosion and finding cover behind a large tree. She listened intently, her senses still on high alert. The smoke began to clear, revealing the disheveled forms of the Uchiha shinobi. Though injured, they were still in the fight. The confrontation had only intensified her need to escape, and as the Uchiha regrouped and began searching for her, Satsuko knew that she needed to act swiftly to secure her survival. Determined and resolute, Satsuko took a deep breath and readied herself for the next phase of her escape. The forest had become a battleground, and she needed to navigate it with both cunning and speed if she was to evade the relentless pursuit of the Uchiha clan. Naruto woke with a start, a dull ache gnawing at his stomach. He groaned and tried to make sense of his surroundings. The ground beneath him was rough and unfamiliar, not the soft bed he remembered from his final moments. Rubbing his eyes, he slowly took in his surroundings, the disorienting haze of his groggy state giving way to a clearer view of the strange environment. His first thought was of his recent death, but as he looked around, it became evident that he was not in the afterlife, but rather in a new, uncharted place. He looked down at himself, noticing he was still in the same clothes he had worn when he died, perfectly intact. His confusion grew as he realized his situation was far from ordinary. "Great," Naruto muttered, "even in death, I can't catch a break." He sighed heavily, cursing the fickleness of fate and the world he had found himself in. Determined to understand his new circumstances, Naruto closed his eyes and focused on his remaining abilities. Without Kurama, his power was diminished, but the strength of the Sage of the Six Paths still lingered within him. Opening his eyes, he saw the world in a new light, with vibrant colors and a heightened sense of clarity. Rising to his feet, Naruto stretched and looked around. The landscape was alien to him, an expansive forest with dense foliage and a foreboding silence that seemed to hum with hidden danger. He noticed a new crater in the forest floor where he had been lying, a gaping hole that marked the spot of his arrival. Naruto's senses were on high alert. He took a deep breath and let the power of the sage guide him, his intuition heightened by the residual energy. As he moved cautiously through the forest, he kept his senses open for any sign of life or danger. Meanwhile, Satsuko, the girl who had narrowly escaped death, found herself in a tense and precarious situation. The Uchiha clan's operatives had pursued her relentlessly, and despite her best efforts to escape, she had been cornered. With her chakra reserves nearly depleted and her strength waning, she faced a seemingly insurmountable challenge. The Uchiha operatives, with their Sharingan blazing, were formidable opponents. Satsuko knew she couldn't fight them all at once and had tried to use her water clones and explosive seals to her advantage. Yet, the Uchiha's superior skills and numbers made her effort seem futile. As the battle seemed to reach its climax, a mysterious figure intervened, stopping the Uchiha's attack. The figure, with piercing blue eyes and a calm demeanor, had appeared out of nowhere and halted the katana's descent just inches from Satsuko's head. The sudden appearance of this stranger shifted the balance of the confrontation. Satsuko, now breathing heavily, looked at her savior with a mix of confusion and relief. The stranger's presence was both unexpected and enigmatic. He seemed unaffected by the chaos around him, and his calm demeanor suggested that he was not easily intimidated. Back in his new surroundings, Naruto focused on locating any signs of civilization or, at the very least, clues about his current location. His sense of direction was aided by his enhanced perception, and he began to make his way through the forest with purpose. As he moved, Naruto encountered various natural obstacles but navigated them with ease, using his sage abilities to sense potential threats before they materialized. The forest, while seemingly tranquil, held an underlying tension that Naruto could feel. Eventually, Naruto came across a small, seemingly abandoned village nestled within the forest. The buildings were old and weathered, but the village seemed to be intact. Naruto approached cautiously, his senses alert for any signs of inhabitants or danger. The village appeared deserted, but Naruto's instincts told him to be wary. As he explored the area, he found signs of recent activity, footprints in the dirt, a smoldering fire pit, and remnants of food. It was clear that someone had been there recently, but where had they gone? Naruto's thoughts returned to Satsuko and the battle he had witnessed in the forest. He wondered if there was a connection between her situation and the events unfolding in the village. The mystery of the Uchiha clan's operatives and their pursuit of Satsuko intrigued him. His desire to help those in need and uncover the truth drove him forward. Satsuko, after her narrow escape, found temporary refuge in a secluded part of the forest. She was exhausted and her chakra was nearly depleted, but she was safe for now. The encounter with the Uchiha operatives had left her shaken, and she needed to regroup and plan her next move. The girl sat quietly in the forest clearing, her mind racing with thoughts of what had happened. She knew she had to be cautious and stay alert, but she also felt a glimmer of hope, knowing that someone had intervened to save her. As she gathered her strength and prepared to move on, she couldn't shake the feeling that her path was intricately connected with Naruto's, a sense that their destinies were intertwined in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. Naruto stood back and observed the crater he had created. The remnants of his imprint were now thoroughly erased, a small but necessary step to cover his tracks. He glanced around, making sure the area was secure. With no immediate threats detected, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. "Alright, Naruto, think," he muttered to himself. "Where the hell am I? And more importantly, what do I do next?" His mind raced with possibilities. The lack of any familiar chakra signatures, except for distant weak traces, was puzzling. There were 3 small villages nearby, each with no more than 30 shinobi, most of whom were at the weak Chunin level. He couldn't sense Konoha or any other major villages, which led him to 2 unsettling conclusions. Either he had traveled far back in time before the villages were founded, or he had been thrown into a distant future where the villages had been destroyed. The first option seemed more plausible, but knowing his own chaotic fate, Naruto couldn't rule out anything. He needed answers and he needed them fast. His stomach growled, reminding him of another pressing need. Food. But before he could address that, his senses picked up on a cluster of chakra signatures fluctuating wildly a few kilometers away. "Looks like a fight," Naruto noted, focusing his attention on the disturbance. 20 shinobi were moving in different directions, but the largest concentration of chakra was in one place. Deciding to investigate, he dismissed the majority of the Gudadama orbs, keeping only one for safety. Propelling himself into the air, Naruto flew at high speed towards the source of the conflict. The landscape blurred beneath him as he covered several kilometers in mere seconds, the power of Sage Mode enhancing his speed and perception. As he neared the clearing, he suppressed his chakra, approaching stealthily to observe the scene. In the clearing, Satsuko was in dire straits. 3 dark-haired shinobi, their chakra eerily similar to Sasuke's, surrounded her. She had fought valiantly, but her strength was waning. The water dragon and water clone techniques she had used were powerful, yet they had drained her chakra reserve significantly. The Uchiha operatives, with their Sharingan eyes blazing, had the upper hand. The leader of the group, wielding a katana, advanced for the final blow. Satsuko, her energy nearly spent, stood no chance against them. She watched in despair as the blade descended, bracing herself for the inevitable. But the killing blow never came. In a blur of motion, Naruto intervened, catching the katana with his bare hand. He had concentrated just enough chakra to stop the blade, though the force of the impact sent a shockwave through his arm. The Uchiha operative stared in disbelief as Naruto's hand bled, yet held firm. "Who the hell are you?" the Uchiha demanded, eyes narrowing in suspicion. Naruto met his gaze, noticing the two-tomo Sharingan. A smirk tugged at his lips, and he couldn't help but chuckle. "You remind me of someone I know. Guess that means you're about to have a really bad day." The Uchiha's confusion turned to anger, and he yanked his katana back, ready to strike again. But Naruto was faster. Channeling chakra into his arm, he unleashed a Rasengan, slamming it into the ground between them. The explosive force sent the Uchiha operatives flying, giving Satsuko a moment to recover. "Get back." Naruto shouted at Satsuko, not taking his eyes off the Uchiha. "I'll handle these guys." Satsuko, still dazed, nodded and staggered back, watching in awe as Naruto faced her attackers with unwavering confidence. The Uchiha leader regained his footing, his eyes blazing with fury. "You're going to regret interfering," he hissed, forming hand seals at lightning speed. "Bring it on," Naruto replied, his tone calm but resolute. He could feel the power of the sage flowing through him, and despite the odds, he knew he could handle whatever came next. The Uchiha's hands completed the seals, and a massive fireball erupted from his mouth, hurtling towards Naruto. With a swift movement, Naruto created a barrier of wind chakra, deflecting the attack effortlessly. The fireball dissipated, leaving the Uchiha operative stunned. "You'll have to do better than that," Naruto taunted, forming a Rasengan in his hand. He launched himself at the leader, who barely had time to react. The ensuing battle was intense. The Uchiha operatives were skilled, but Naruto's experience and raw power gave him the upper hand. He moved with a fluid grace, his attacks precise and devastating. The Uchiha's Sharingan allowed them to predict some of his moves, but Naruto's unpredictability and sheer speed overwhelmed them. In the end, it was Naruto's Rasengan that sealed their fate. One by one, he incapacitated the operatives, leaving them unconscious but alive. He stood amidst the aftermath, breathing heavily, but victorious. Satsuko approached him cautiously, her eyes wide with amazement. Who are you?" Naruto turned to her, a friendly smile replacing his battle-hardened expression. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. And you?" "Satsuko," she replied, still in shock. "Thank you for saving me." "No problem," Naruto said, extending a hand to help her up. "But we need to get out of here. There might be more of them." Satsuko nodded, taking his hand. As they prepared to leave, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. He needed to find out where he was, why he was here, and most importantly, how to get back to his own time. But for now, he had a new ally, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Having two Tomo at that age is embarrassing, Uchiha," Naruto taunted, tightening his grip on the katana. The Uchiha tried to distance himself, forming seals in the air. His companions mirrored his actions, and within moments, two fire dragons and a massive fireball were flying toward Naruto. Naruto quickly placed the blue-haired girl, Satsuko, on a sturdy branch of a tree. "Wait here. If you try to run away, I'll find you and kill you," he said with a mischievous smile. Satsuko swallowed hard, trying to mask her fear. Moments ago, she had been ready to accept death, but now, saved by a mysterious and powerful savior, she faced a new set of uncertainties. "Don't worry so much. I'll finish them off in a jiffy," Naruto reassured her before disappearing into the forest. The Uchiha trio frantically searched for Naruto, unable to locate him. Their Sharingan eyes, though powerful, couldn't penetrate the dense foliage or sense the chakra of someone blending so seamlessly with nature. Naruto emerged from the forest, drawing the attention of the Uchihas. "I suggest you calm down and answer some of my questions. Depending on your answers, I'll decide whether you live or die," he said with a friendly smile that only intensified their unease. "Why do you want that girl?" he asked. Silence followed, irritating Naruto. He spun the katana in his hand before hurling it at the Uchiha to his right. The shinobi dodged just in time, but Naruto was already beside him, gripping his neck tightly. "Do you think it will be difficult for me to kill you all?" Naruto asked, his smile fading. He retrieved the katana and drove it into the shinobi's body, then sent a lightning bolt through the weapon, ending his life instantly. "One is enough to get the answers I need. Now, which one of you should I keep alive?" Naruto mused, turning to the remaining two. One of the Uchihas began forming seals for another fire technique, but Naruto was faster. He appeared beside the shinobi and slammed him into the ground with a Rasengan, leaving only one standing, the one he had mocked for his weak Sharingan. Speak, Naruto demanded. The remaining Uchiha, Rai, clenching his fists in frustration and defeat, finally spoke. We were offered a mission in a neighboring village to capture that girl. There was a huge reward for completing it. She killed a distant relative of one of the local rich guys and blew up his house. Naruto nodded. So, it's just a bounty, then, he concluded, glancing back at Satsuko, who was watching with wide eyes. What's your name? Naruto asked the remaining Uchiha. Rai, he replied, his voice tinged with resentment. Losing to a non-clan shinobi, especially one who seemed to defy every expectation, was a harsh blow to his pride. Alright, Rai. You have a choice. You can either leave and never come after her again, or you can try to fight me and end up like your friends. What's it going to be? Rai's gaze flickered between Naruto and the bodies of his fallen comrades. Realizing he had no chance of winning, he reluctantly nodded. I'll leave. I won't come after her again. Good decision, Naruto said, stepping back to let him go. But if I ever see you again, I won't be so merciful. With a final glare, Rai disappeared into the forest, leaving Naruto and Satsuko alone. Naruto turned to Satsuko, who was still perched on the tree branch. You okay? He asked, his demeanor shifting back to his usual friendly self. Satsuko nodded, though she was clearly shaken. I think so. Thank you. No problem. Let's get you somewhere safe, Naruto said, offering her a hand to help her down. As they left the clearing, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that his arrival in this strange time or place was just the beginning of a much larger adventure. He glanced at Satsuko, who was walking beside him, her expression a mix of gratitude and wariness. So, Satsuko, why did you blow up that guy's house? She hesitated before answering. He was a corrupt official who had my family killed. I wanted revenge. Naruto nodded, understanding her motive. Well, you're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together. Satsuko looked at him, surprised by his words. For the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. With Naruto by her side, she believed they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they walked through the forest, Naruto kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. He was determined to keep Satsuko safe and find answers about his own strange predicament. The journey ahead was uncertain, but with his unwavering resolve and newfound ally, Naruto was ready to face whatever came their way. He preferred to keep his life for the sake of his family than to die because of his own pride. Frowning, Naruto approached the Uchiha boy and began to form seals. Placing a hand on his neck, Naruto activated the Seal of Silence, a technique he had refined from Danzo's control methods. An exact replica of the girl Naruto had just rescued appeared from the ground. Naruto swiftly cut off the head of the replica, sealed it in a scroll, and tossed it to the Uchiha. You'll need this. If they're chasing her, it'll be useless otherwise. Go back and give this head to your boss. If you try to say anything about me or that girl, you will die, Naruto said with a wry smile. He folded another set of seals and placed a second seal, the Seal of Mission, around the Uchiha's neck. This seal, now invisible, ensured that no shinobi could reveal anything about it. Your comrades died fighting against me, and you burned the bodies. You should have chosen death, Uchiha. Now, you must live with your decision, Naruto said, his tone a mix of disappointment and finality. Realizing the weight of his actions, the Uchiha boy understood the impossible position he was now in. If he returned with the head of the girl and the story Naruto had concocted, his clan would be accused of deception. The head of the clan would punish him, possibly even kill him, as the Uchiha clan never tolerated those who defamed their reputation. Fighting back tears of frustration, he knew he had no choice but to comply. Naruto moved to each of the fallen Uchiha shinobi, removing their Sharingan eyes before destroying their bodies. The sight of this filled the remaining Uchiha with a mix of dread and hopelessness. Clenching his fists, he looked at the scroll containing the fake head. The realization that his clan's reputation was at stake weighed heavily on him. Preferring death over dishonor, he made a desperate decision. With a swift motion, he pulled out 2 kunai and plunged them into his own eyes, rendering his Sharingan useless. Ignoring the searing pain, he grabbed another kunai and stabbed his own throat, whispering a final apology to his family. Naruto turned, surprised, as he watched the boy's final act of defiance. Walking over to the lifeless body, Naruto retrieved the small bag the boy carried and then destroyed the body. Despite the tragic end, Naruto couldn't help but respect the Uchiha's final decision. The boy had acted like a true patriot, choosing to protect his clan's honor over his own life. However, Naruto knew it was too late for such sentiments. The Uchiha's fear of death had clouded his judgment, preventing him from making logical decisions. He should have ordered his comrades to destroy their eyes and then commit suicide to protect their clan secrets. Naruto sighed, reflecting on the harsh realities of the shinobi world. Pride, honor, and duty often led to tragic outcomes. He turned back to Satsuko, who had been watching the entire scene with a mix of horror and awe. Let's go, Naruto said gently, offering his hand. Satsuko hesitated before taking it, realizing that she was now under the protection of someone who embodied the true complexities of a shinobi's life. As they walked away from the clearing, Naruto couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret. He had been forced to act ruthlessly to protect the girl and gather information. Yet, he knew that in the world of shinobi, sometimes there were no right choices, only necessary ones. They continued their journey through the forest, both lost in their thoughts. Naruto's mind was already planning their next move. He needed to find out more about the time and place they were in, and more importantly, how to survive in this strange new world. Satsuko, on the other hand, was grappling with the reality of her situation, knowing that her life had been irrevocably changed by the events of the day. Together, they faced an uncertain future, bound by a tenuous alliance forged in the crucible of battle. As they ventured deeper into the unknown, both knew that their survival depended on their ability to trust each other and adapt to whatever challenges lay ahead. Naruto slowly made his way towards the girl who hadn't moved from her seat yet. As he considered the loot he had in his hand, he felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. Luckily, he had all the items in his space pockets with him, so finding containers for the Sharingan wasn't a problem. They were only down to 2 tomo, but even so, they could fetch quite a bit of money. The Uchiha shinobi hadn't had protectors, only embroidered with the clan emblem. So, I'm in the past before Konoha even existed, Naruto thought to himself, the realization weighing heavily on his mind. What is your name? Naruto turned to the girl, but when he noticed that she had fallen asleep, he just hummed. She had expended too much chakra, and the fear of an enemy far superior to her had taken its toll. He didn't want to wake her, but staying here wasn't an option either. Creating a clone, Naruto ordered it to carry her and then disappeared, heading toward the nearest village. The money the Uchiha had should provide them with a room for one night and enough for food. When the girl woke up, then Naruto would talk to her and get some answers. Chapter 3 The tension in the room was starting to frankly annoy Naruto. The girl had woken up a few minutes ago and now just sat there in silence, taking incredible delight in studying her own knees. Naruto twirled the kunai in his hand, waiting for her to look up at him. By the way, in Naruto's opinion, she was quite pretty. She had blue hair that reached her shoulder blades and brown eyes that she hid from the boy, not wanting to meet his gaze. She was dressed in a simple turtleneck sweater with a white t-shirt underneath and tight black pants. She looked to be about 17 years old, maybe a little older. Of course, her clothes were not designed for long walks or battles, they had too little protective equipment and were torn in several places as a reminder of the recent battle. Perhaps the girl simply had no money for clothes. Given the times he believed he was in, it was not surprising. Only the clans had normal equipment like the Uchiha, and each clan had their own individual gear that nobody wanted to share. It was very difficult to find normal equipment on the market at an affordable price, the clans did not make money selling clothes. Why do you need me? The girl spoke, daring to raise her eyes and look at Naruto. He mentally patted himself on the back. Not even 20 minutes had passed since she woke up and she had already decided to say something, even starting the dialogue. What is your name? Naruto asked, trying to put on the friendliest face possible to hide his irritation. He didn't really need this girl, he could get rid of her or let her go freely by putting a seal of silence. But there was a good chance of getting information that Naruto didn't want to miss. So he sat patiently, waiting for the girl to reveal something informative. Matsumoto Satsuko, the girl introduced herself, nervously rubbing the sheet next to her. And you are? Naruto Uzumaki, he answered calmly. He was about to ask the next question when the girl's reaction made him stop. Your hair. The color of your hair, she pointed her finger at him, eyes wide with recognition. Yeah, it's blonde. So what? Naruto replied, slightly confused by her reaction. You're not from around here, are you? Satsuko asked, her voice trembling slightly. Naruto paused, considering his response. No, I'm not. I'm from a place far away, a place that probably doesn't even exist yet. Yet? Satsuko repeated, clearly bewildered. Naruto sighed, deciding it was best to give her a simplified version of the truth. I've traveled through time. I come from a future where villages like Konoha exist. Do you know anything about time travel or anything that might help me understand where I am and what year it is? Satsuko's eyes widened even further. Time travel. I've heard of ancient legends, but I never thought it could be real. We're in the era before the founding of the great shinobi villages. The clans are still scattered and constantly at war with each other. That makes sense, Naruto muttered, rubbing his chin. Do you know anything about a clan called the Uzumaki? Satsuko shook her head. No, I've never heard of them. But I do know that the Uchiha are one of the most powerful clans around here and they're always involved in conflicts. Naruto nodded, absorbing the information. Alright, we need to lay low for a while. Do you have any place we can go, somewhere safe? Satsuko hesitated, then nodded. There's a small village nearby. My family used to live there before everything went wrong. It should be safe for a night or two. Good, Naruto said, standing up. Let's get moving. We don't want to attract any more attention. As they prepared to leave, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He scanned the area with his sage mode, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Shaking off the unease, he followed Satsuko out of the room, both of them ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead in this unfamiliar time. Stretching out, Naruto stood up from his chair and headed over to a neighboring table where three men were sitting, discussing something very loudly and heatedly. None of them looked dangerous, there wasn't even any tension between them. Good evening, gentlemen, smiled Naruto, taking a seat at the table with the men whose stories he had been listening to all this time. The trio smiled amicably, extending their hands to greet their new interlocutor. Naruto just hummed as he shook each of their hands before placing a small bag of money on the table. This will be yours if you help me with one thing. And what do you want, friend? Replied the oldest of the three. The man looked about 45 years old, maybe a little older. Several battle scars on his face and a stern look showed that this was not just anyone but a man who had been through many fights and had seen much of life. The scars were likely left by a cat, Naruto thought, snorting mentally, observing with interest every action of the man. Despite his facade, his interlocutor was nothing of the sort, but he managed to perfectly create the image of a seasoned warrior. All that was missing was the Uchiha eyes to complete the image. I only need to find at least one representative of a not-so-gone clan, famous for their skill in Fuinjutsu, Naruto said, taking some coins out of the bag and pushing them so that they rolled exactly to the hand of his interlocutor. The man took the coin and looked at it for a few seconds before smiling with satisfaction, putting it back in his pocket. I want to know the place and time they will appear. But I warn you now, I will kill you if you try to deceive me and provide false information. I hate betrayal. Do you understand? Naruto smiled as he watched a man who a few seconds ago was behaving like a pathetic first-class shinobi, clearly imitating the red eyes. But they did it better and had some power. This was nothing more than a chunin who had had the misfortune of being in contact with Uzumaki. In the port city of Mizuno-kuni, there is an annual fencing competition that brings together people from all over the world. For 2 consecutive years, a red-haired boy has taken first place. Personally, he did not recognize his affiliation with the clan, but absolutely all factors indicate that this is the case, the man began to relate, spinning a coin in his hand. I do not doubt the validity of the information because I myself have participated in the tournament and have fought with that guy. The tournament begins in a month, so you can go if you leave today or tomorrow. There is a port city not too far away where ships go directly to your destination. The city where the tournament is held is called Asakusa. Thank you, smiled Naruto, leaving the bag on the table. Getting up from the chair after patting the man on the shoulder, the blonde placed a teleportation tag on him. Leaving the establishment, he meandered towards the inn where Satsuko was staying. To be honest, he didn't know what to do with her. It was useless to take her with him, she would only be a burden and wouldn't allow him to move quickly. There was no more information to obtain from her, so her usefulness was now null. He didn't want to kill the girl. When he reached the inn, he found Satsuko sitting quietly in the room, staring at the floor. She looked up as Naruto entered, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. Naruto sighed, leaning against the doorframe. Satsuko, he began, his voice soft but firm, I have found a lead on the Uzumaki clan. I need to leave for a place called Asakusa. You cannot come with me. It will be too dangerous, and I need to move quickly. Satsuko's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. I understand, she whispered. Thank you for saving me. Naruto walked over to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. You're strong, Satsuko. You will find your way. Stay here for a few more days and then go back to your village. You will be safe. She nodded again, wiping her tears. Naruto gave her a small smile before turning to leave. As he reached the door, he paused and looked back at her. Take care of yourself, Satsuko. With that, Naruto left the inn and headed towards the port city. The journey to Asakusa would be long, but he was determined to find the Uzumaki clan. As he walked through the quiet streets, his mind was filled with thoughts of his clan and the possibilities that awaited him in the past. He had a chance to change things, to learn about his heritage, and maybe even prevent the destruction of his clan. The port city was bustling with activity when Naruto arrived. Ships of various sizes lined the docks, and the air was filled with the sounds of sailors and merchants. Naruto quickly found a ship that was heading to Asakusa and booked passage. During the voyage, Naruto spent his time training and thinking about his next steps. The fencing tournament would be his best chance to find the Uzumaki representative. He needed to be prepared for anything. When the ship finally docked in Asakusa, Naruto felt a surge of excitement. This was it. He was one step closer to finding his clan. As he disembarked, he took in the sights and sounds of the city. It was lively and colorful, with people from all over the world. He made his way to the inn where he would be staying and then set out to gather information about the tournament. Over the next few days, Naruto learned that the fencing competition was a major event in Asakusa. Warriors from different lands came to compete and the winner was highly respected. He also heard more about the red-haired boy who had won the past 2 tournaments. The descriptions matched what he knew about his clan. On the day of the tournament, Naruto arrived at the arena early. The place was packed with spectators and the excitement was palpable. He watched as the competitors fought with skill and determination. Finally, the red-haired boy entered the arena. Naruto's heart raced. This was it. The boy moved with grace and precision, easily defeating his opponents. As Naruto watched, he felt a connection to the boy. This was his clan, his heritage. When the boy was declared the winner, Naruto knew he had to talk to him. After the tournament, Naruto approached the boy. "Congratulations," he said, extending a hand. "Your skills are impressive." The boy looked at him warily but shook his hand. "Thank you. Who are you?" "Naruto Uzumaki," he replied. "I think we might be related." The boy's eyes widened in surprise. "Uzumaki. But our clan, how do you know about us?" "It's a long story," Naruto said. "But I need your help. I'm looking for the Uzumaki clan. Can you take me to them?" The boy hesitated but then nodded. "All right. Follow me." Naruto felt a surge of hope as he followed the boy. He was finally on his way to finding his clan. The journey was far from over, but he was determined to see it through. As they walked, Naruto couldn't help but smile. He was one step closer to uncovering his heritage and protecting his future. Naruto didn't need another senseless death on his conscience. The death of a woman without a clan would be of no use to him, it would only dirty his hands. Since when did I start killing people for nothing? He asked himself, stopping in front of the mirror in the hotel hallway. He contemplated his own reflection, searching for answers. He didn't want to become a soulless puppet, willing to kill a person without reason, even if they hadn't done anything to him. After facing that trio of red eyes, killing 2 of them, and forcing the third to commit suicide, Naruto had started to lose touch with his true self. The image of the Anbu fighter was beginning to take over him, stripping him of his essence. Killing people for no reason, just because they displeased him, was not who he wanted to be. He had always believed that dialogue could resolve conflicts, that agreements could be reached without bloodshed. He had almost achieved this in the last world he inhabited, and he didn't want to lose that part of himself now. "I'll just let it go. There's no reason for me to do anything to her," Naruto decided, forcing a smile. The smile worked, but it wasn't what he wanted. It was very similar to his usual smile, but it wasn't the same. There was too much falsehood in it. "If my mother saw me now, she would surely hit me in the head. I don't think she would like a smile like that," he thought. Maybe it wasn't too late to fix things and try to be the same as before. Naruto really hoped he could do it. He didn't understand what had suddenly happened to him. He had served in the Anbu for so long, accepting reality as the norm, and now, suddenly, he decided that he should go back to the way things were. "Logic, according to Sakura, is my weakest point." Naruto smiled at his thoughts as he continued to look at his reflection. This time, he liked the smile more, but it was still not quite right. "I'll get there," he muttered to himself. He turned back to Satsuko, who had been silently observing the entire scene. She had no idea what was happening or why Naruto was behaving like this. It had only been an hour since they had been having dinner quietly, and now he was acting so differently. "So, give me the money and leave without any trouble," Naruto said, placing the bag of money and a few bills on the table. The image of the ruthless killer that Satsuko had initially associated with him was beginning to crack. She honestly did not understand what was happening now or why Naruto was behaving like that. Maybe he had been drinking, she thought, or he's under the effects of a genjutsu. "Exactly," Naruto nodded calmly, interpreting her confused expression. He had become quite rich thanks to the 3 Uchiha, something that pleased him. He hadn't left much money, just enough for a trip to a port city in the land of water. They didn't tell him the name, but they assured him that if he said the name of the tournament, they would understand immediately. That was what he would have to test. As he turned to leave the inn, he glanced back at Satsuko one last time. She was still sitting there, looking bewildered and lost. "Take care of yourself," he said softly before walking out the door. Naruto made his way to the port city, his mind racing with thoughts of the upcoming tournament. He had to find the Uzumaki representative. The journey was long, but Naruto was determined. When he finally arrived at the port, he quickly found a ship heading to Asakusa. During the voyage, Naruto spent his time training and contemplating his next steps. The fencing tournament would be his best chance to find the Uzumaki representative. He needed to be prepared for anything. Upon arrival in Asakusa, Naruto was struck by the city's liveliness. It was a bustling hub of activity, with people from all over the world. He quickly found an inn to stay at and began gathering information about the tournament. In the days leading up to the tournament, Naruto learned that the fencing competition was a significant event in Asakusa. Warriors from different lands came to compete, and the winner was highly respected. He also heard more about the red-haired boy who had won the past 2 tournaments. The descriptions matched what he knew about his clan. On the day of the tournament, Naruto arrived at the arena early. The place was packed with spectators and the excitement was palpable. He watched as the competitors fought with skill and determination. Finally, the red-haired boy entered the arena. Naruto's heart raced. This was it. The boy moved with grace and precision, easily defeating his opponents. As Naruto watched, he felt a connection to the boy. This was his clan, his heritage. When the boy was declared the winner, Naruto knew he had to talk to him. After the tournament, Naruto approached the boy. "Congratulations," he said, extending a hand. "Your skills are impressive." The boy looked at him warily but shook his hand. "Thank you. Who are you?" "Naruto Uzumaki," he replied. "I think we might be related." The boy's eyes widened in surprise. "Uzumaki. But our clan, how do you know about us?" "It's a long story," Naruto said. "But I need your help. I'm looking for the Uzumaki clan. Can you take me to them?" The boy hesitated but then nodded. "All right. Follow me." Naruto felt a surge of hope as he followed the boy. He was finally on his way to finding his clan. The journey was far from over, but he was determined to see it through. As they walked, Naruto couldn't help but smile. He was one step closer to uncovering his heritage and protecting his future. Naruto looked at Satsuko for a moment, sensing her growing frustration. A smile on his face, meant to reassure her, only seemed to irritate her further. She was frowning, clearly trying to understand the situation. "Is this a joke or something?" Satsuko's voice was tinged with suspicion, her frown deepening as she sensed some kind of trap. "You're free to go," Naruto shrugged, clearly amused by her mistrust. His smile remained, which only heightened her irritation. Satsuko couldn't help but feel there had to be a trap somewhere, but there wasn't. Searching for a non-existent trap only amused Naruto, who just moments ago had been unsure of what to do with her and confused about himself. "Okay, I'm leaving." "It's already dark," she said seriously, despite the cruelty she had sensed in him earlier. He hadn't hurt her or forced her to do anything against her will. He had simply kept her close, and that hadn't lasted long. Now, when the man who had saved her life decided to let her go, she realized how much she owed him. If it weren't for him, she would be dead. "Here's some hair dye," Naruto said, pulling out a small bottle from his space pocket. "It's made from special plants and drugs to help change the natural color of your hair. They'll be looking for you, so at least dye your hair and cut it." He ignored her words, continuing to take out some scrolls and printing them out. "And here are a few techniques of your element. I learned them a long time ago, so I don't need them anymore, but you might." He sealed all the extra material, then looked at Satsuko, who was sitting on the bed, cradling her knees. She had screamed a moment ago but now sat quietly, shuddering and deep in thought. Naruto approached, placing a hand on her head and lifting her gaze to meet his. "What's wrong with you?" he asked, sensing some fear in her eyes. She muttered something under her breath, too low for him to hear, then removed his hand and stepped back. "Thank you for everything. It was a pleasure meeting you," Satsuko said with a tense smile. She walked towards him and hugged him. Naruto froze in surprise, unable to respond. The gesture was harmless, but it stunned him. "We'll see each other again," he managed to say, returning the hug after a few more seconds. He released her, turning towards the window. "Shinobi don't need doors," he muttered with a final glance at Satsuko before jumping out of the window and disappearing into the night. "You just want to look cool," Satsuko said to the empty room, lying down on the bed and preparing to sleep. No matter what happened, she needed to survive and face him again. Next time, it would be her turn to save the day. She knew she needed a lot of training and improvement, but she was determined. She was lucky that he had chosen the weak side and protected her without any selfish purpose. He had needed information, but that information had been so superficial that he could have gotten it from anyone, like he had done today in the bar. As she drifted off to sleep, her mind was filled with thoughts of the strange boy who had saved her. She needed to become stronger, not just for herself, but to be able to stand by his side. The image of Naruto, with his unwavering smile and mysterious aura, remained in her mind. The next day, Satsuko woke early, determined to follow Naruto's advice. She dyed her hair and cut it short, transforming her appearance. She practiced the techniques he had given her, honing her skills with a newfound determination. She knew she had a long way to go, but she was ready to face the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, Naruto traveled swiftly towards the port city, his mind focused on the tournament and the Uzumaki representative. The journey was long, but he used the time to train and prepare himself mentally. He needed to be ready for anything. Upon reaching the port, he boarded a ship bound for Asakusa. During the voyage, he continued to train, pushing his limits and refining his skills. He knew that finding his clan was crucial, and he couldn't afford to be unprepared. Arriving in Asakusa, Naruto was struck by the city's vibrancy. He quickly found an inn and began gathering information about the tournament. He learned that the fencing competition was a significant event, attracting warriors from across the lands. The red-haired boy who had won the past 2 tournaments was a focal point of interest. On the day of the tournament, Naruto arrived at the arena early. The energy was electric, with spectators eagerly anticipating the battles. He watched intently as the competitors fought, each displaying remarkable skill. Finally, the red-haired boy entered the arena. Naruto's heart raced with anticipation. The boy's movements were fluid and precise, his skills unparalleled. As Naruto observed, he felt a deep connection. This boy was undoubtedly part of his clan. When the boy was declared the winner, Naruto knew he had to speak with him. After the tournament, Naruto approached the boy. "Congratulations," he said, extending his hand. "Your skills are impressive." "Thank you," the boy replied warily, shaking his hand. "Who are you?" "Naruto Uzumaki," Naruto said. "I think we might be related." The boy's eyes widened in surprise. "Uzumaki? How do you know about us?" "It's a long story," Naruto replied. "But I need your help. I'm looking for the Uzumaki clan. Can you take me to them?" The boy hesitated before nodding. "All right. Follow me." Naruto felt a surge of hope as he followed the boy. He was finally on the path to discovering his heritage. The journey was far from over, but he was determined to see it through. As they walked, Naruto couldn't help but smile. He was one step closer to uncovering his roots and protecting his future. Back at the inn, Satsuko continued to train, her resolve strengthening with each passing day. She knew that one day she would meet Naruto again, and when that day came, she would be ready to stand by his side. For now, she would focus on becoming stronger, driven by the memory of the boy who had saved her and shown her a new path. As Naruto ventured into the unknown, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had faced many challenges, but he was ready for whatever lay ahead. With his clan's legacy guiding him, he was determined to uncover the truths of his past and forge a path towards a brighter future. Naruto raced through the night, his feet barely touching the ground as he moved with incredible speed. Sage mode, combined with his ability to fly, made him nearly impossible to detect. The wind and dust kicked up behind him were the only indicators of his presence, but they were fleeting and hard to track. In this state, he could easily traverse the sea in an hour, reaching Mizuno Kuni in what would take a normal shinobi 2 or 3 weeks by boat. As he approached a port, Naruto decelerated rapidly, nearly crashing into a small boat anchored by the shore. Several small stalls lined the area, their occupants asleep and oblivious to the world around them. Naruto observed the scene skeptically, surprised by the lack of security. There were no barriers or guards, just people sleeping soundly. Naruto approached one of the sleeping men and gently woke him up. The man groggily regained consciousness and began answering Naruto's questions. Unfortunately, the news was not good. The last ship had left that afternoon, and the next one wouldn't arrive until the following day. No one in the port seemed to know the exact route to the city Naruto needed to reach. Satisfied that he had extracted all the useful information, Naruto let the man drift back to sleep. He noticed a map sticking out of the man's bag and took it. The map was outdated, lacking many cities that would later become capitals and missing the hidden villages. It showed only small provinces and major cities or ports. Naruto folded the map and put it back in the man's bag. He looked up at the night sky, which was surprisingly clear, with a solitary moon illuminating the world and reflecting on the water. A smile spread across his face as he recalled his trip to the moon with his friends. That mission had been significant, marking the moment he realized Hinata's feelings for him. Unfortunately, he had dismissed her feelings at the time, considering them a mere crush like many other girls in Konoha. It was only later that he understood the depth of Hinata's affection, but by then it was too late. Now, in this strange world, he regretted not reciprocating her feelings when he had the chance. The thought of Hinata brought a pang of sadness. In this world, those who would have been his peers and mentors were not yet born. He might even be older than Madara and Hashirama. It was a strange and lonely realization. If only he could find them or they could find him, it would make things easier. But searching for them was pointless now, they didn't even know he existed. Naruto's thoughts turned to Omegakure, the village hidden by rain, which had intrigued him ever since he learned about it from Kurama. The village was once under the rule of Mido Uzumaki, the first Jinchuriki of Kurama and wife of the future first Hokage. Naruto felt a pull towards this village, a desire to show his power and perhaps help raise it to prominence, just as Konoha had done. As dawn approached, Naruto decided to rest until the next ship arrived. He found a secluded spot near the port and closed his eyes, letting his mind wander. The memories of his past missions, his friends, and his unfulfilled love for Hinata played in his mind. When he awoke, the sun was already rising, casting a golden hue over the port. Naruto stood up, stretching his muscles, and made his way back to the docks. The ship he needed to take was just arriving. He boarded, eager to continue his journey. The voyage was uneventful, giving Naruto time to reflect and train. He practiced his techniques, pushing his limits and refining his skills. He needed to be ready for whatever awaited him in Omegakure. His goal was clear. To demonstrate his power and help the village rise, just as Konoha had once done under his guidance. Upon reaching Omegakure, Naruto was struck by the city's unique architecture and the perpetual rain that gave the village its name. He quickly found an inn and began gathering information. He learned about the village's history, its struggles, and its potential. The more he learned, the more determined he became to help. Naruto's presence in Omegakure did not go unnoticed. His power and determination quickly drew attention, and he found himself in the company of those who shared his vision for the village. Together, they began to work towards a brighter future for Omegakure. As Naruto trained and planned, he couldn't help but think of Satsuko. He hoped she was safe and continuing her training. He knew they would meet again, and when they did, they would be stronger and ready to face any challenges together. For now, Naruto focused on his mission. The path ahead was uncertain, but he was ready. With his clan's legacy guiding him and his newfound allies by his side, he was determined to uncover the truths of his past and forge a path toward a brighter future for Omegakure. Naruto stood at the bow of the ship, the wind whipping through his hair and carrying the salty tang of the sea. The sun had just risen, casting a golden hue over the water. He could see the land of water's coastline in the distance, and he felt a renewed sense of urgency. The competition was only a day away, and he had to be ready. As the ship made its way towards the harbor, Naruto took in his surroundings. The crew of the ship was a mix of seasoned sailors and casual observers, all bustling about in preparation for their arrival. They seemed a bit more relaxed now that Naruto was part of their group. His presence had initially caused some tension, but after his easy acceptance by their leader, Mamoru, things had settled. Naruto approached Mamoru, who was standing near the helm, watching the approaching land. The captain's ashen hair and green eyes caught the sunlight, giving him an almost ethereal appearance. He was casually dressed, with a relaxed demeanor that belied his sharp senses. "You seem to know a lot about this tournament," Naruto said, trying to make conversation. "What's the atmosphere like over there?" Mamoru turned to face him, his wry smile still intact. "The tournament is the biggest event of the year in this region. It attracts competitors from all over the world, each one looking to prove their skills and gain recognition. The competition is fierce, and the stakes are high. People come to watch, bet, and sometimes even to settle personal scores." Naruto nodded, his mind already focused on the task ahead. "Sounds like the perfect place to make an impression. Do you know anything about the participants?" Mamoru chuckled. "Quite a few, actually. There are some well-known fighters who have won this tournament multiple times. There's also a lot of local talent that you might not have heard of. They all have their own unique styles and techniques." Naruto's eyes narrowed slightly. "And what about the audience? Are they knowledgeable?" "They're very knowledgeable," Mamoru replied. "The spectators here are not just casual viewers. Many of them are shinobi or have connections to shinobi clans. They know their stuff and can be quite discerning." As the ship drew closer to the harbor, the crew started to prepare for docking. Naruto took a moment to reflect on his situation. He was about to participate in a tournament where he would not only showcase his abilities, but also potentially uncover more about the Uzumaki clan. His mother's clan had been a powerful force in its time, and he was determined to find out why it had been destroyed so mysteriously. The ship finally docked, and Naruto disembarked with the crew. The port city of Asakusa was bustling with activity, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation for the tournament. Colorful banners adorned the streets, and the smell of street food wafted through the air. Mamoru led Naruto through the crowded streets, heading towards the tournament grounds. "The tournament arena is just up ahead. We'll get you registered and settled in. The competition starts tomorrow, but there are preliminary rounds and exhibitions today." Naruto followed Mamoru, taking in the sights and sounds of the city. He noticed the excitement in the air and felt a surge of adrenaline. This was more than just a competition, it was an opportunity to prove himself and possibly find clues about his clan. They reached the arena, a massive structure with a large central stage and seating for thousands. The registration area was busy with competitors and their entourages. Naruto's entry was handled swiftly, and he was given a numbered badge indicating his place in the tournament. As he wandered through the arena, he overheard conversations about various competitors and their skills. He spotted a few familiar faces from other regions, including some renowned shinobi who had made a name for themselves in previous tournaments. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by a tap on his shoulder. He turned to see one of the crew members from Mamoru's ship, a young man with a friendly smile. "Hey, Naruto," the crew member said, "we're going to be watching the exhibition matches later. You should come join us. It'll give you a chance to see the competition up close." Naruto smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie with the crew. "Sure, I'd like that." As the day progressed, Naruto watched the preliminary rounds and exhibitions. He observed the various techniques and styles of the competitors, taking mental notes of their strengths and weaknesses. The tournament promised to be intense, and Naruto was eager to make his mark. The evening approached and Naruto found himself back at the ship preparing for the next day. He took a moment to reflect on his journey so far and his goals for the tournament. He was determined not only to win but also to uncover more about his clan and protect his mother's legacy. But the sense of purpose and resolve, Naruto settled into his preparations for the competition, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Naruto stood at the edge of the dock, observing the bustling scene before him. The port was alive with activity as traders and merchants moved about their business and the clamor of excited voices filled the air. The dock was a far cry from the simple coast he had first encountered, now brimming with various boats and ships and equipped with well-maintained facilities. The contrast was striking and Naruto couldn't help but marvel at the transformation. He turned his attention to his companions, who were eagerly exploring their surroundings. Maya, and Kitsu were animatedly discussing their plans and admiring the various stalls set up along the dock. The girls' vibrant personalities were a stark contrast to the otherwise calm and orderly environment of the port. Naruto had grown accustomed to their presence over the past weeks, though he remained somewhat puzzled by Maya's growing affection towards him. Her earnest attempts to spend time with him and her unspoken feelings were clear, but Naruto found himself unable to reciprocate. The shadow of his past, particularly the lingering image of Hinata, clouded his ability to connect with Maya on a deeper level. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of a small cart carrying a variety of trinkets and local crafts. He watched as Kitsu eagerly pointed out several items, her youthful enthusiasm infectious. He knew that this trip was not just about reaching the tournament but also about exploring and understanding the new world he found himself in. The Fire Nation's destruction and the tragic fate of the girls' clan were a sobering reminder of the upheaval that had marked their journey. Despite the dire circumstances that had led them here, Naruto could appreciate the opportunity to explore and learn about the world around him. After ensuring that everyone had ample time to explore and purchase their desired items, Naruto decided to take a stroll along the docks. The healing water that Kai had mentioned intrigued him. It was said to be particularly beneficial, extracted from a now extinct lake and sold in limited quantities. Naruto's curiosity was piqued and he hoped to find this rare commodity for himself. The prospect of obtaining something so unique was appealing, especially given his experiences and the challenges he faced. As Naruto walked through the vibrant market, he couldn't help but reflect on his own journey. The past few months had been a whirlwind of events, from the battles he fought to the revelations about his mother's clan. Each step he took felt like a step further from his previous life and closer to unraveling the mysteries of this new world. The knowledge he sought about the Uzumaki clan's disappearance was still elusive, and the strange barrier that had hidden their ruins was a constant reminder of the secrets yet to be uncovered. He stopped at a small stall where a vendor was demonstrating the properties of the healing water. The vendor, an elderly man with a kind smile, greeted Naruto warmly. Naruto inquired about the water's origins and the story surrounding it. The vendor spoke of the ancient lake with reverence, describing its once mighty presence and its role in the local lore. Naruto listened intently, appreciating the connection between the past and present that the vendor's stories provided. With a small vial of healing water in hand, Naruto made his way back to the dock, where he found his companions gathering their things. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the water and creating a serene backdrop for their departure. Naruto could see the excitement in their faces as they prepared to embark on the next leg of their journey. "Alright, everyone," Naruto called out, his voice carrying over the chatter. "Let's head to the arena. We've got some time before the tournament starts, so let's make the most of it." As they boarded the ship, Naruto felt a sense of camaraderie with his new friends. Despite the differences and the challenges they faced, there was a shared sense of purpose and adventure that bound them together. Naruto's thoughts drifted back to Hinata and the life he left behind. Though he missed her, he knew that moving forward was the only way to honor his past and embrace the future. The ship set sail, and as the port city faded into the distance, Naruto looked ahead with renewed determination. The tournament awaited, and with it, the chance to prove himself and uncover more about the world he now called home. The journey was far from over, and Naruto was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Naruto settled into the makeshift campsite with a mix of relief and anticipation. The day's journey had been relatively uneventful, but the promise of the upcoming tournament and the mystery of the Uzumaki clan's disappearance weighed heavily on his mind. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the camp, Naruto took a moment to reflect on their progress. Kai, the guide, had proven to be a reliable companion. His knowledge of the terrain and the local area was invaluable. Despite the fact that Naruto's sensory abilities could have easily guided them, Kai's familiarity with the region made him an indispensable asset. The twins, Mia and Maya, along with Kitsu, formed a cohesive team, their synchronization evident in the way they moved and acted. As night fell, Naruto's thoughts were interrupted by the appearance of a small curious creature. A red fox cub with a tiny bit of Yubi's chakra had appeared, seemingly drawn to him. Naruto had been aware of the fox's presence from his initial conversation with Mamoru on the ship. This creature, a mere fragment of Yubi's power, was more of a tamed beast than a sentient being. Its tiny size and lack of intelligence were evident, but Naruto couldn't help but find it endearing. The fox cub scampered around Naruto's feet, its tiny tail flicking with an illusionary flame that seemed to mystify it. Naruto smiled as he watched the cub attempt to extinguish the harmless fire with its tiny paws. The fox's confusion and eventual realization that the fire was merely an illusion brought a chuckle from Naruto. He gently fed some of his own chakra into his hand, watching as the cub interacted with the energy. The moment was short-lived, however, as Naruto's attention was drawn to a more pressing matter. His sharp senses picked up the presence of a thief attempting to steal one of the bags left under a nearby tree. Naruto had inadvertently entered Sage Mode, a state that heightened his sensory abilities and allowed him to perceive even the slightest disturbances around him. The thief, having not noticed Naruto's presence, was caught in the act. With a swift motion, Naruto leapt from the branch he had been lying on, landing gracefully on the ground beside the startled thief. "Is everything okay?" Naruto asked, amusement evident in his voice. The thief's face turned pale, and without uttering a word, he fled the scene in haste. Naruto watched him go, a smirk playing on his lips. As the thief disappeared into the night, Naruto turned his attention back to the camp. His team was arriving, their punctuality a testament to their discipline. Except for one boy who had arrived late due to getting lost, everyone was present and accounted for. The decision to leave had been made promptly, and the group set off in the right direction, guided by Kai. The night air was cool and crisp as they set up camp. Naruto took charge of organizing the watch schedule, knowing that their strength and vigilance were crucial for their safety. With Mia, Maya, Kitsu, and himself being the strongest shinobi in the group, it was important to ensure that they remained alert and prepared for any potential threats. The campfire crackled softly as Naruto and his companions gathered around, discussing their plans and the upcoming tournament. The atmosphere was one of camaraderie and shared purpose. Despite the trials they had faced and the uncertainties that lay ahead, the group spirit remained high. As the night deepened, Naruto found himself reflecting on their journey and the challenges they had encountered. The sense of purpose that drove him was clear. To uncover the truth about the Uzumaki clan and to protect his mother's legacy. The tournament was a significant step in that journey, a chance to prove himself and perhaps gain the insights he sought. The watch was set, with Naruto and the others taking turns to ensure that the camp remained secure. As the first watch began, Naruto took a moment to enjoy the quiet solitude of the night. The stars above were a stark contrast to the turbulent past he had left behind, and the calm of the night provided a brief respite from the chaos of his journey. With a deep breath, Naruto closed his eyes and allowed himself a moment of peace. The path ahead was still uncertain, but with his friends by his side and his determination unwavering, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The night passed uneventfully for the camp, with each member taking their turn on guard duty. Mia, the first on watch, kept a keen eye on the surrounding darkness, her senses alert for any potential threats. Kitsu followed, her vigilance unwavering as she took her turn to keep watch. Maya, despite her usual cheerful demeanor, was focused and serious during her shift, determined to protect her new friends. Finally, the boy took his turn, settling down comfortably against a tree. His exhaustion from the day's activities overtook him quickly, and he fell asleep almost immediately. The others, observing his sudden collapse into sleep, were surprised but trusted that his experience and confidence would keep him safe. The boy's nonchalant attitude toward his guard duty and the ease with which he fell asleep were met with a mix of amusement and curiosity by the others. As the night wore on, the friendly banter among the group continued, punctuated by Maya's occasional laughter and Kerr's attempts to be close to her, which she deftly avoided. Morning arrived with the promise of a new day filled with the excitement of the tournament. Naruto and his companions made their way to the tournament venue, a grand arena that had been bustling with activity. The city was alive with anticipation, vendors hawking their goods and spectators eagerly discussing the upcoming matches. Kai, ever the enthusiastic observer, was particularly excited about the tournament's highlight, the Eternal Champion, a formidable fighter who had won the grand prize year after year without ever receiving a single injury. The admiration in Kai's voice was palpable as he spoke about the champion's unmatched skills. The arena was filled with spectators, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Naruto, however, was calm and composed. He leaned against the wall, examining the sword he had brought with him, its polished blade reflecting the sunlight. His demeanor was relaxed, in stark contrast to the intense energy around him. Kerr, standing beside Kai, couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and hope. "I wonder what Naruto-san will show us," he said, his voice tinged with nervous excitement. Although Kerr was aware that he couldn't match Naruto's strength, he was eager to see what the Uzumaki could do. Kai's confidence in Naruto was unwavering. "Naruto-san is the strongest shinobi I've ever met," he said, admiring Naruto's presence. "His chakra is incredible. Kai's words drew a look of surprise from Kerr, who had noticed that neither he nor Kai could sense Naruto's chakra. The only explanation seemed to be that Naruto's power was far beyond their own, making any comparison seem futile. As the tournament began, Naruto entered the arena alongside his opponent, a semi-finalist who had made it through several grueling matches. The crowd watched in anticipation as the two fighters prepared for their bout. In a breathtaking display of speed and precision, Naruto's opponent was incapacitated in a single move. The blonde shinobi had drawn his sword and touched the opponent's shoulder before anyone could fully comprehend what had happened. The opponent fell to the ground, defeated, while Naruto stood calmly, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his sword. The entire sequence had occurred so swiftly that the spectators were left in stunned silence. Kai, witnessing Naruto's incredible display of skill, couldn't contain his excitement. He smiled broadly and rubbed his hands together, pleased with the outcome and the successful bet he had placed on Naruto. The group's arrival in town had been met with warm hospitality, though they encountered some unscrupulous vendors who tried to inflate prices at every opportunity. Despite the attempts to overcharge, the group managed to find accommodations in a large hotel, where they settled into a shared room. The dynamic between Naruto and the three girls Mia, Maya and Kitsu was noted by Kerr, who felt a pang of envy as he observed Naruto's interactions with them. The twins, in particular, were eager to spend time with Naruto, and their affection for him was evident. When it came time to register Naruto for the tournament, the process was straightforward: an application, a small fee, and a token for identification. However, the mention of Naruto's last name initially caused a stir among the tournament officials. They suspected he might be trying to use a false identity or sully the Uzumaki family's name. The situation was tense for a moment, but it eventually resolved itself, and Naruto was added to the list of main participants without further issue. The day of the tournament was marked by a sense of excitement and anticipation. The city had come alive with the arrival of competitors and spectators from all corners. As Naruto prepared for his next match, the atmosphere around him was charged with energy, and the stakes were higher than ever. The path ahead was filled with challenges, but Naruto's determination and skill promised a thrilling spectacle for all who watched. As the tournament approached, Naruto's decision to withhold his last name had sparked a range of reactions among his acquaintances. While he hadn't intended to be deceitful, he preferred not to reveal too much too soon, not wanting to intimidate or alarm anyone. The Uzumaki name carried weight in history, and Naruto was wary of the potential consequences that could arise from it. Consequently, his companions remained unaware of his full identity, and Naruto's reticence only fueled curiosity and speculation among them. Despite his efforts to maintain a low profile, Naruto could not escape the lingering presence of chakra signatures resembling his mother's. These mysterious chakra traces often appeared near him but vanished as he approached, suggesting a sophisticated barrier or concealment technique. Naruto was perplexed by these phenomena, as he was unfamiliar with the intricacies of Uzumaki clan abilities. The instant disappearances remained a mystery, adding another layer of intrigue to his quest. During the training sessions leading up to the tournament, Naruto had hoped to encounter another member of the Uzumaki clan. However, despite the presence of Uzumaki chakra in the vicinity, no one fitting that description appeared on the training lists. His own clone, utilizing nature-infused senjutsu, had guarded the registration area, but the elusive Uzumaki remained unseen. The training itself was an enjoyable experience for Naruto. Following Kai's advice, he had deliberately lost to various opponents, only defeating a young swordsman who was still learning the basics. This strategic defeat served to bolster the odds in his favor, creating favorable conditions for the bets placed on him. With the main prize and the potential earnings from the bets, Naruto stood to gain a significant amount, which would be useful for his future endeavors. Kai, ever the astute observer, had noted Naruto's tactical approach during training and was impressed by the outcome. His belief in Naruto's abilities was unwavering, and he chuckled at the thought of Kerr's missed opportunity to profit from the bet. Kerr, having witnessed Naruto's sparring sessions, had chosen not to bet on him, either out of respect or disbelief in Naruto's true capabilities. Kai, however, remained confident that Naruto would at least reach the semifinals, if not the finals, of the tournament. Maya's unshakable confidence in Naruto's victory stood out among the group. Her belief in his strength, despite his apparent display of ineptitude in training, was unwavering. To Naruto, Maya's behavior seemed reckless, but he couldn't shake the feeling that she might genuinely sense his true strength. Her confidence, while seemingly naive, hinted at a deeper understanding of his abilities. On the day of the tournament, the arena was a sight to behold. It was smaller compared to the Chunin Exam Arena in Konoha, but was nonetheless packed with spectators. The presence of representatives from the Azuki clan, stationed at various points around the arena, signaled a high level of vigilance and control over the event. The referees and organizers were strong and capable, with a clear intention to ensure that the tournament proceeded smoothly and without conflict. Naruto observed the bustling arena with a mix of excitement and focus. The energy of the crowd, the array of competitors, and the elaborate setup all contributed to an atmosphere charged with anticipation. The stakes were high, and Naruto was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As he prepared for his matches, he remained mindful of his goal to uncover the truth about his mother's clan and to protect the legacy of the Uzumaki. With the tournament about to begin, Naruto's resolve was strengthened. He was determined to not only perform well, but also to navigate the intricate dynamics of the competition and his personal quest. The tournament was more than just a series of fights, it was an opportunity to prove himself, to explore the mysteries surrounding his family, and to forge a path forward in his journey. The tournament was structured in 3 distinct stages, each designed to test different aspects of a swordsman's skill and resilience. The first day featured one-on-one duels, where the winners progressed while the losers were immediately eliminated. The second day showcased 2-on-2 battles, adding a layer of teamwork to the competition. Finally, the third day would revert to one-on-one fights, culminating in the final showdown. An intriguing twist was the public sympathy nomination introduced in the second stage. This allowed the audience to vote for 2 losing swordsmen to advance to the next round, adding an element of unpredictability to the proceedings. The entire competition spanned 3 days, with each day dedicated to one stage. The rules were clear. Chakra could only be used to enhance the body, the sword, or to accelerate movement. Any misuse of chakra would result in instant disqualification. This emphasis on safety and fairness highlighted the organizers' commitment to maintaining a secure environment for both competitors and spectators. Maya, her eyes shining with affection, approached Naruto before the competition began. She wished him good luck and planted a quick kiss on his cheek. Naruto, though surprised, appreciated her support and made no move to distance himself. The gesture was sweet and sincere, and he responded with a nod of gratitude. The others, including Kai and Kerr, offered their best wishes with words and handshakes, each expressing their confidence in Naruto's abilities. As the tournament commenced, participants gathered in the center of the arena. The competitors not actively fighting were seated in a special balcony reserved for the audience and judges. With 50 swordsmen participating, the tension was palpable as each awaited their turn. Naruto, for his part, chose a spot against the wall, content to observe the proceedings. The first notable match featured Hiroki Uzumaki, a young man of 20 with striking scarlet hair and long bangs that obscured his eyes. His katana was adorned with an intricate dragon-like design on the blade, hinting at his connection to the Uzumaki clan. Despite his imposing physique and well-defined build, it was his sheer agility and skill that truly set him apart. The fight was swift and decisive, showcasing Hiroki's prowess. His movements were fluid and nearly impossible to anticipate, allowing him to dispatch his opponent with ease. Naruto was particularly interested in meeting Hiroki, having sought out a member of the Uzumaki clan for some time. He noted Hiroki's impressive performance and wondered if this encounter might reveal more about his own heritage. The fight concluded and the arena erupted in applause. Hiroki's display had solidified his reputation as a formidable swordsman. As the referee called the contenders for the next match, Naruto's opponent made a dramatic entrance. Infusing chakra into his legs, the opponent leaped from the balcony, leaving a dent in the ground upon landing. His brash display of power and arrogance suggested he had underestimated Naruto expending chakra that might be better reserved for the fight ahead. Naruto decided to avoid any unnecessary theatrics. Instead of using chakra to leap down, he chose to walk down the stairs, preferring to conserve his energy for the match itself. On his way, he unexpectedly encountered Hiroki, who was heading in the opposite direction. To Naruto's surprise, Hiroki initiated a brief conversation, expressing a desire to speak with him after the initial rounds. With that, Hiroki continued on his way, leaving Naruto to reflect on the unexpected encounter. With the preliminary exchanges complete, Naruto made his way to the center of the arena. His opponent was already there, and the judge stood by, ready to commence the next bout. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, their laughter from the previous night's fight still echoing through the stadium. Naruto felt a surge of excitement. The energy from the crowd, the anticipation of the upcoming fight, and the presence of familiar faces like Maya's and Kai's added to the intensity of the moment. As the match began, Naruto focused on his opponent, ready to demonstrate his skills and make the most of the opportunity. The tournament was more than just a series of battles, it was a chance to prove himself, gain valuable experience, and perhaps uncover more about his lineage. With the stakes high and the competition fierce, Naruto was determined to perform at his best and make a lasting impression. The previous night's show had undoubtedly influenced the betting odds, skewing them against Uzumaki. But the odds now 6-1, the stakes were higher than ever. Naruto found his colleague in the stands and nodded, winking at Maya, who was seated beside him. The gesture caused another wave of laughter among the spectators, and Maya joined in, laughing at his antics. She brought her hands to her chest and smiled warmly. "Are you ready?" asked the referee, as Naruto stood face to face with his opponent. The blonde ninja unsheathed his sword just a little, extending it in front of him and positioning one foot back. Without even drawing his weapon, Naruto nodded in response. His opponent, who had been mocking him all morning and reminding him of his defeat the previous day, sneered, "Have you already given up?" Naruto ignored the provocation, bringing his hand to the hilt of his katana, preparing to end the fight with a single, decisive blow. As soon as the referee announced the start of the match, Naruto pulled the katana out of its sheath by a centimeter, suddenly finding himself behind his opponent and resheathing his weapon. This technique, learned during his time in the Anbu, proved useful once again. Naruto might not have been a master of Kenjutsu, but his speed and perfect control allowed him to strike so quickly that no one noticed. For an instant, his chakra enveloped the entire arena, reaching the first rows of spectators. Realizing what had happened, Naruto quickly suppressed his chakra, not allowing it to extend any further. Despite his efforts to control it, the judge and most participants felt the immense power radiating from Naruto. The members of the Azuki clan tensed up, sensing a strong shinobi at the center of the arena. The mismatch between Naruto's hair color and his last name added to their unease. Once the result was announced, Naruto headed back to the balcony where the other contestants were gathered. Doctors rushed past him towards his fallen opponent, but Naruto paid them no mind, focused instead on the impending conversation with Hiroki. Naruto was puzzled by the sudden attention from Hiroki Uzumaki. After tirelessly searching for him, Hiroki had approached him first, asking for a conversation. This unexpected turn of events left Naruto both stressed and curious. Standing on a free seat on the balcony, Naruto watched the remaining battles disinterestedly, his mind preoccupied with the upcoming dialogue. The first round concluded as dusk settled in. The arena was now illuminated by torches and various elemental techniques, creating a mesmerizing atmosphere. The day had revealed some remarkable abilities among the participants, though none could eclipse Naruto's performance. He witnessed feats of telekinesis for the first time, a young woman's sword being torn from her hands in the opening minute of her fight. Initially, Naruto thought her defeat was inevitable and began to turn away. However, the sudden silence from the crowd indicated otherwise. The audience, typically quick to applaud, was now eerily quiet. Naruto turned back to see the young woman still standing, her opponent's sword now hovering in midair. She controlled it with her mind, guiding it with precision. The crowd erupted in applause, awestruck by her display of telekinesis. Naruto watched, impressed and intrigued by the demonstration. As the first day of the tournament ended, the participants returned to their quarters, preparing for the challenges ahead. Naruto, still reflecting on the day's events, found himself standing outside, gazing at the stars. The anticipation for the next stages was palpable. The 2-on-2 battles would add a new dynamic, requiring not just individual skill but teamwork and strategy. Later that evening, Naruto and Hiroki finally had their conversation. Hiroki was surprisingly candid, revealing his admiration for Naruto's skill and potential. They discussed their shared heritage and the mysteries of the Uzumaki clan. Hiroki explained that the fleeting chakra signatures Naruto had sensed were likely remnants of a powerful Uzumaki barrier designed to protect and conceal members of the clan. This revelation brought Naruto some clarity, though many questions remained unanswered. The second day of the tournament arrived with renewed excitement. Naruto and his partner, Kai, faced their opponents in the 2-on-2 battles. The match was intense, with both teams displaying exceptional skill and coordination. Naruto's speed and Kai's strength complemented each other perfectly, leading them to a hard-fought victory. As the day progressed, Naruto's reputation grew. His earlier display of speed and control had left a lasting impression, and spectators eagerly awaited his next performance. The odds began to shift in his favor, and the excitement surrounding his participation reached new heights. In the final one-on-one match, Naruto stood ready, his mind focused and determined. The crowd's cheers and the weight of their expectations energized him. This was his moment to prove himself, to honor his heritage, and to secure his place among the greatest swordsmen. With a deep breath, Naruto stepped into the arena, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The tournament had been a journey of discovery, camaraderie, and self-realization. And as the final battle commenced, Naruto knew that he was prepared to give it his all, not just for himself, but for the legacy of the Uzumaki clan. Maybe there was a stipulation somewhere about what would happen to the pair that didn't get opponents, but Naruto hadn't read any such rule, nor did he plan to. The judge took out a small bag containing papers with numbers. One by one, the swordsmen approached the judge, drawing a piece of paper and announcing their number. Uzumaki got the number 7, and his partner was a young woman who had barely made it to the next phase. Whistling at the sight of the burden, Naruto looked around at the others. Hiroki was teamed up with the eggplant guy, as Naruto had described him by the color of his hair. Luck was not exactly on Naruto's side, although he had little competition. The rules are a little different for the second round, the judge announced as soon as everyone was paired up. Everyone fell silent, giving the referee the chance to finish his sentence. It was getting late, so no one wanted to stay more than 10 more minutes. There are some adjustments. Now you can use chakra-assisted techniques that affect your opponent indirectly, meaning your technique should not directly deal damage to your opponent. This can be a change of terrain or something else. That's all. Everyone is free to go. Tomorrow we start at the same time. Everyone began to slowly disperse, saying goodbye to future opponents and wishing them a good night. By the way, it was not known who would fight whom. Tomorrow morning, there would be another draw to determine the pairs of fighters. Hiroki approached Naruto, reminding him once again of their meeting tonight so that the boy would not inadvertently forget it. However, it was unlikely that Naruto would forget, after all. The meeting with his relative was the main objective of the blonde. There were some doubts about going to Uchiha, but Naruto tried not to pay attention to them, sincerely believing that together with his relatives, something in his life would change for the better. Yes, and the banal interest in the life of the Uzumaki clan took on an interest that could not be satiated in any other way. Uzumaki-san, I suggest we meet tomorrow a few hours before the start and at least tell each other our own skills and do some techniques together, the girl began, waiting for her partner to say goodbye to his relatives. Naruto smiled weakly and nodded. He patted the girl on the shoulder, then said goodnight and headed in the direction of his acquaintances. Maya immediately threw herself into his arms, having never seen him come to her spectator stands during the rest of the fight. Crying unconsciously, the blonde returned the hug loosely, accepting the congratulations. Kai smiled satisfied, rubbing his palms together in anticipation of tomorrow's battles. Kerr apologized for having thought all this time that Naruto was not especially strong. Maya's sisters limited themselves to the usual congratulations, since the others had long since retired to their rooms. I suggest we celebrate this special occasion. I'll treat you, Kai immediately offered, winking at Maya and looking at Naruto, who was still hugging the girl. Despite another unconscious howl from Naruto, who was already tired of the subject with Maya, he didn't refuse because he wanted to eat more than to avoid any action from the matchmaker. Naruto wasn't the only one who wanted to get out for free. They all headed to a small tavern nearby, the atmosphere lively with other tournament participants and spectators who had gathered to celebrate the day's events. The group found a table in the corner and Kai ordered a variety of dishes, making sure everyone had something they liked. As they ate, the conversation flowed easily. They discussed the day's battles, the different techniques they had seen, and speculated about the next day's matches. Naruto listened more than he spoke, his mind still turning over the meeting with Hiroki and the newfound connection to his clan. Kai noticed Naruto's distraction and leaned over. Hey, Naruto, you okay? You've been pretty quiet. Naruto snapped out of his thoughts and smiled. Yeah, just thinking about tomorrow. And I've got a lot on my mind. Kai nodded understandingly. It's a lot, I get it. But hey, we're all here for you. And don't forget, we're celebrating tonight. Try to relax a little. Naruto appreciated the support and tried to push his worries aside for the moment. They continued to talk and laugh, the camaraderie lifting his spirits. After they finished eating, they decided to take a walk around the town, enjoying the cool night air and the festive atmosphere. As the night wore on, they eventually made their way back to their lodgings. Naruto said goodnight to his friends and headed to his room, where he lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. The day's events replayed in his mind, and he felt a mix of excitement and anxiety for what was to come. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but also new opportunities. Naruto was determined to face them head-on, to prove himself and to uncover the secrets of his clan. With a deep breath, he closed his eyes, ready to embrace whatever the future held. The next morning, Naruto woke early, feeling refreshed and focused. He met with his partner as planned, and they spent a few hours discussing their abilities and practicing some techniques together. The girl was skilled and eager to learn, and Naruto found himself enjoying the practice session. When it was time for the next draw, they headed to the arena. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as the judge called out the numbers, pairing up the contestants for the second round. Naruto felt a surge of determination as his and his partner's names were called. They were ready. As the battles began, Naruto and his partner used their combined skills and strategies to their advantage, successfully navigating the challenges of the second round. The new rules allowed for more creative uses of chakra, and Naruto found himself adapting quickly, using the terrain and indirect techniques to outmaneuver their opponents. By the end of the day, they had secured their place in the final round. Naruto felt a sense of accomplishment and pride, not just for himself, but for his partner and his friends who had supported him. That night, as he prepared for the final battles, Naruto thought about how far he had come. He felt a renewed sense of purpose and connection to his heritage. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew he was ready to face them, with the strength and support of his friends and the legacy of the Uzumaki clan behind him. So they didn't think about returning to their room, heading straight to the nearest restaurant that wasn't too far from their hotel. It was going to be a fun night for the boys, considering the money Kai had won with Uzumaki's victory. Dodging Maya's attempt to kiss him once again, the blonde sighed heavily as he laid the girl down on a bed. He had suspected that the evening would be fun, but he hadn't thought it would be this eventful. Except for the fact that Kerr had also tried his luck with the youngest of Maya's sisters, from whom he received a strong punch in the face. The evening had passed without any fights within their company but not without any altercations with others. 2 hours after the boys had entered the restaurant, Mia was being flirted with by an annoying guy who had participated in the tournament but had lost without a chance. Apparently, the guy wanted to be a winner somewhere, but fate had clearly turned its back on him today. While Naruto planned to intervene, Kai got rid of the arrogant boy quite easily by simply punching him in the stomach and carrying him away outside. This action started a full-blown fight that destroyed everything in the restaurant. At the end of that fight, Kai, as the one who started the altercation, had to repair the damage done to the establishment. Although he did not get involved in any more fights, it was clear that nobody else wanted to compensate for the damage caused by the uncontrolled brawl. After that, Kai's wallet was half empty, but there was still some of the victory money left, not as much as before, but not too little either. What impacted the night the most was the drunk Maya, who, during the whole evening, tried to be alone with Naruto or simply kiss or touch him in some way, obviously trying to seduce him. Nobody expected such behavior from a rather modest girl, but as they say, in a quiet abyss. Naruto, resigned to his fate, picked up the girl in his arms and took her to the hotel, which luckily was not so far from the restaurant. Despite Naruto's attempts to dodge the girl, she managed to pull him in and kiss him a few times. Like now, for example. Maya threw Naruto on the bed, forcing him to get on top of her and pulling him in to kiss him. After a second of shock, Uzumaki moved away from the girl as if scalded, disappearing in an instant using his swift movement technique. The boy went to the edge of the nearest forest, dodging another attempt by the girl to kiss him. Catching his breath, the boy touched his lips with the palm of his hand, repeating in his head that unexpected moment. The image of a smiling girl with blue eyes that had attracted him towards her, kissing him on the lips, passed before his eyes. His hand still remembered the sensations of the moment when he tried to contain himself from falling completely on top of the girl, resting his hands on the sides of her body. Placing his palms right on her blonde hair that he could smell all the time when the girl hugged him but not as much as now. Naruto had never thought that something could provoke such incomprehensible and contradictory emotions in him. His heart raced, his mind spinning with the confusion of the night's events. He had always seen Maya as a friend, a companion in his adventures, but tonight had blurred those lines in ways he hadn't anticipated. As he stood there, the cool night air helping to clear his thoughts, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling of Maya's kiss. It was different from any other kiss he'd experienced, not just because it was unexpected, but because it stirred something deep within him, something he wasn't sure he was ready to face. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "What am I supposed to do now?" he muttered to himself, looking up at the stars. The night was silent, save for the distant sounds of the town. He knew he couldn't avoid Maya forever, but he needed time to sort through his feelings. Finally, he decided to head back to the hotel. He moved quietly, hoping to avoid any more confrontations or awkward encounters. As he entered the lobby, he saw Kai and the others talking in hushed tones. They noticed him and waved him over. "Hey, Naruto," Kai said, concern in his voice. "Everything okay?" Naruto nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure. "Yeah, just needed some fresh air." "Is Maya?" "She's fine," Kerr said, though his expression was serious. "She's resting. Maybe a bit embarrassed about everything." Naruto sighed in relief. "Good. I think we all need some rest." They all agreed, heading to their respective rooms. As Naruto lay down, he couldn't stop thinking about Maya and what had happened. Sleep came slowly, his mind too restless to find peace. The next morning, he woke early, determined to clear the air with Maya. He found her sitting by the window in the dining area, looking out at the rising sun. She turned when she heard him approach, her cheeks flushing with color. "Naruto, I'm so sorry about last night," she began, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean to make things awkward between us." Naruto smiled gently, sitting down next to her. "It's okay, Maya. Let's just forget about it and move on, okay? We're friends, and that's what's important." She nodded, relief flooding her features. "Thank you, Naruto. I don't want to lose our friendship." "You won't," he assured her. "Now, let's get ready for the next round. We've got a tournament to win." With that, they shared a smile, the tension easing between them. Naruto felt a weight lift from his shoulders, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The bond of friendship remained strong, guiding them through the trials of the tournament and beyond. No, he did not believe that he had fallen in love with that girl, but he could not explain his own emotions in any other way. Never before in his life had he felt something like this. Being in a state of shock by the explosion that took place inside him, astonishment, happiness, and fear, all these emotions and more mixed to create a weapon of incredible power. After a few more minutes of organizing his thoughts, Naruto tried not to think about the girl so that her image wouldn't appear in his mind, but he was doing a terrible job. Everything seemed so unreal that Naruto wanted to run away just to avoid feeling that kind of emotion once again. Clearly, he wasn't prepared for something like that. He had recently decided to become his old self and had attracted a girl who had fallen in love with him and who was now going to suffer because of him. The boy simply didn't understand what was going through his head. All his thoughts were scrambled, not allowing him to make a sensible judgment of what was happening around him. Not even Hiroki's approach made Naruto come out of his own thoughts and stop his self-torture. Only when Uzumaki got tired of seeing the blonde sigh heavily and grab his hair did he raise his voice again, but this time a little louder, releasing some of his own chakra. Sensing the danger, the blonde immediately released half of his chakra previously hidden under his seals and his hermit mode, making Uzumaki unable to move. The kunai that flew towards the boy passed near his head, but just as he was about to charge at the enemy, Hiroki's voice rang out, stopping the hostilities. Knocking down the chakra action of the growling guy, Uzumaki looked towards the tree from where a young red-haired man appeared, who apparently was Hiroki's bodyguard. Please forgive my subordinate for such a hasty action. He thought that they were attacking me, that's why he tried to interfere. Could you release the pressure now? In an instant, all the chakra that had been enveloping the field disappeared and the guy finally came to his senses, looking more consciously at his interlocutor and the boy who was next to him. The boy, who looked to be about 16 years old, was as strong as a jonin. Why did you make me come? The boy was the first to break the silence, taking a seat comfortably under the tree. He needed to sit down because he didn't have the strength to stand. You really are Uzumaki. I can feel it, but I had never heard of you, especially of an Uzumaki marrying someone outside the clan, began Hiroki from afar, but the blonde didn't react to those words, waiting for the guy to get to the point. It wasn't that he hadn't heard enough about him to ask him out on a date. At least, that was what Naruto expected. We treat those who mix our blood with others very badly, Naruto. I don't know who your parents are, but they are definitely outside the clan's boundaries. But there is still hope for you. No one has told you where your clan is or how to get to it, right? Uzumaki just nodded, trying to contain his surprise. He hadn't expected that to happen. So now they would probably offer him to go with them to Uzushio, even though they had already offered it to him, although not directly. Hiroki continued, our clan is strict about maintaining pure bloodlines, but there are always exceptions. You have proven your strength and potential. There is a place for you in Uzushio, and I believe you could benefit greatly from being among your own kin. Naruto's mind raced. The prospect of connecting with his lost heritage was enticing, but the complications of his current situation weighed heavily on him. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. What exactly are you offering me, Hiroki? A chance to come with us, to learn about your heritage, to train among the Uzumaki. We can help you understand your abilities better, and in return, you can help us strengthen our clan, Hiroki explained, his eyes earnest and hopeful. Naruto considered the offer carefully. It was a rare opportunity, but he couldn't ignore the commitments and bonds he had formed outside the Uzumaki clan. I appreciate the offer, Hiroki, but I have responsibilities here too. I can't just abandon my friends and my village. Hiroki nodded, understanding the dilemma. I'm not asking you to abandon them. You can stay connected with them. Think of it as expanding your horizons. Learn from us and use that knowledge to protect those you care about. The Uzumaki clan has always valued strength and loyalty. You embody both. Naruto's resolve began to strengthen. The idea of learning more about his heritage while still maintaining his current bonds seemed like a path worth exploring. Alright, I'll come with you to Uzushio. But I need to make sure my friends understand and support this decision. Hiroki smiled, relief evident on his face. Of course, take the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready. With that, the red-haired boy and his bodyguard disappeared into the forest, leaving Naruto alone with his thoughts. He felt a mix of excitement and apprehension, but a newfound clarity began to form in his mind. He would learn about his heritage and use that knowledge to protect those he loved. The next morning, Naruto gathered his friends, explaining the offer and his decision. They listened intently, offering their support and understanding. Maya, though still embarrassed from the previous night's events, gave him a determined nod. Do what you need to do, Naruto. We'll be here when you get back. With the support of his friends, Naruto felt more confident in his decision. He packed his belongings, ready to embark on a new chapter in his journey. As he left the village, he couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. The road ahead was uncertain, but he knew that understanding his heritage would make him stronger, not just for himself, but for everyone he cared about. Naruto set off towards Uzushio, the place of his ancestors, with a heart full of determination and hope. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that he was never truly alone. Naruto did not believe in such luck and neither in such kindness, so the boy tried to find some trick in the words, but so far there was nothing of the sort. Everything seemed clearer than water. Helping your people is an obligatory duty for every Uzumaki, and I am no exception. After this tournament, we will return to the village. I suggest you come with us, Hiroki continued. Naruto tensed up even more. It was suspiciously friendly, especially with a real stranger, although a clanmate. Only reaching us is not so easy. The barriers can't be overcome by people who want to harm our clan. And if you manage to enter, you won't be able to leave the village for a few years, but they will help you. So it's not that bad. That's all I have to say. You can tell me the answer when the last round is over and good luck tomorrow. I agree, said Uzumaki without thinking twice. It was a great opportunity to escape from the outside world and finally fully understand himself. And that was what the boy was dreaming of. Not knowing how to fight his emotions with Maya, he planned to behave distant for these 2 days, after which he would disappear and they would not meet again. Good luck to you too, he said, before heading back to his room. Chapter 8 Naruto had absolutely no desire to return to the room. After waiting for the Uzumaki to get far enough away, he hit the wood with his hand hard, making it jump in the air. Exhaling heavily, Naruto looked at his own hands that trembled for some reason, not wanting to stop. Trying to catch his breath, he collapsed against an intact tree, covering his eyes and rolling down. Anyone would know how much effort it cost him to calm the emotions that were boiling inside him during the conversation with Hiroki, and now that the dialogue had ended, all the contained feelings got out of control at once, raining down on Naruto in an unpleasant crushing torrent from which he wanted to escape. He just kissed me, a girl, and I'm in this state. Jiraiya would have to remind me of this for a long time, he smiled, trying to take his mind off the annoying thoughts of Maya. He never thought that he would react so strongly because of a kiss from a girl he had only known for a month, and that meant nothing to him, or at least, she meant nothing before. Now, Naruto couldn't affirm that with as much certainty as before. The girl had hooked him, after all, and denying it now was foolish. After a few minutes of emotional self-torture, the boy passed out, falling into a deep sleep. A silent knock was heard on the door, and then Kai opened it, entering Naruto's room. Looking around, he did not see Naruto. Instead, there was only Maya sleeping in the boy's bed, smiling happily as she slept. Approaching the girl, he began to gently wake her up. Remembering the state in which she was taken to the room, it was evident it would take a while for her to come back to her senses. Good morning, Kai-san, greeted the girl, yawning. Kai returned the greeting, surprised to see that the girl, unlike him, did not start to grab her head in an attempt to mitigate the pain. Apparently, he was the only one who felt bad after last night's drunkenness. Good morning, Maya. How are you feeling? Kai asked, genuinely curious. Surprisingly well, she replied, stretching. Where is Naruto? Not here, Kai said, glancing around the room. He must have gone out early. Maya nodded, looking a bit disappointed, but quickly masking it with a smile. Well, I should get ready for the tournament. Thanks for waking me up. Kai nodded and left the room, heading to find Naruto. He eventually found him at the edge of the forest, looking out into the distance. Kai approached cautiously, not wanting to startle him. Naruto, you alright? He asked. Naruto turned, giving Kai a weak smile. Yeah, just thinking about everything. Kai nodded, understanding. It's a lot to take in. Hiroki's offer, the tournament, Maya. Naruto sighed. Yeah, it's overwhelming. But I think going to Uzushiogakure might be the right thing to do. I need to understand my heritage, my abilities. Kai placed a reassuring hand on Naruto's shoulder. We'll support you, whatever you decide. Thanks, Kai. That means a lot, Naruto said, feeling a bit lighter. As the day progressed, Naruto and his friends prepared for the final round of the tournament. The atmosphere was tense, with everyone focused on their own strategies and techniques. Naruto did his best to maintain his distance from Maya, but it was difficult. She kept trying to get close, her feelings for him evident in every glance and touch. The final round of the tournament was intense. Naruto fought with determination, his mind clearer after his decision to go to Uzushiogakure. He gave it his all, and in the end, he emerged victorious. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Naruto's thoughts were elsewhere. He had made his decision, and now he had to follow through. After the tournament, Naruto found Hiroki. I've made my decision. I'll go to Uzushiogakure with you. Hiroki smiled. I'm glad to hear that, Naruto. We'll leave tomorrow. Naruto nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready for the next chapter of his journey. As he returned to his friends, he felt a sense of peace. He was on the path to understanding himself and his heritage, and with the support of his friends, he knew he could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Where is Naruto-kun? Kai asked, addressing the man who had planned to leave the room to change, in response to the girl's request. Without waiting for a response, Kai immediately left the room and headed towards the few sofas in his apartment. Half an hour later, the 5 of them were back in formation, except for the 6th Naruto was missing. The rest of the group had split into pairs and walked together, not really interacting with their neighbors outside the room. No one seemed to care, nor should they have. After a good breakfast that passed in silence, tension hung in the air. Maya was clearly anxious, and Mia and Kurt did not behave well. Kurt gobbled up his breakfast without getting into trouble, as no one allowed him to drink any alcohol. Having finished the morning meal, the company headed towards the arena, where the next stage would begin in about 20 minutes. The way to the arena was filled with the same silence, interrupted only by the hyperactive Kitsune. Knowing that something was amiss but bored, she asked questions to engage the boys in dialogue. When they arrived at the arena and occupied the empty seats, Kai realized that there were many more spectators this time. Apparently, the third stage would have to feature the swordsmen who had passed the first phase. They were divided into pairs, actively discussing strategies with their companions. The draw had not yet been made, and they were waiting for the last of the contenders who had not yet shown up. Naruto was not among them. Although his partner was in the arena, it was strange considering they had planned to train together before the stage began. The tense atmosphere was palpable, and from the movement of her leg, it was clear that the girl herself did not know where her partner was either. "Where is Naruto-san?" asked Kitsune, surprised. She looked at her relative, Maya, who did not respond, immersed in her own thoughts and replaying the events of the previous night in her head. She remembered kissing him, after which he had disappeared and had not reappeared. Maybe she had scared him with those actions and he had decided to leave them and go far away, never to see her again. No, Naruto-kun would never run away for something like that. He wouldn't leave Kai-san. They have an agreement. She tried to convince herself that the boy's disappearance wasn't her fault. It was a lousy job, but she had no choice but to keep convincing herself. Maybe she shouldn't have kissed him and everything would have been fine. But then he still wouldn't notice my feelings, she thought. Why are they so complicated? She mused. As all the remaining fighters, except Naruto, showed up, the referee announced the start of the draw. Naruto's partner, if he didn't show up before the fight began, would have to fight against 2 men at a time. The girl did not argue, accepting the conditions of the tournament and hoping that the blonde would not disappoint her and would show up before the start of her fight. The fight, by the way, was the third in a row. It would not be 2 against 2, but 2 against 2 against 2, 3 teams fighting simultaneously to move on to the next phase. This made the girl even more tense. The arena buzzed with anticipation as the first round commenced. Fighters clashed, their weapons ringing out in the early morning air. Maya watched nervously, her eyes darting to the entrance every few seconds, hoping to see Naruto's familiar blonde hair appear. She couldn't shake the worry that her actions had driven him away. Time seemed to crawl. The second match concluded and the referee called for the participants of the third fight to prepare. Maya stood, her heart pounding in her chest, and walked to the designated area. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves, but it was no use. "Where are you, Naruto?" The referee's voice echoed through the arena, announcing the start of the third match. Maya's heart sank. Naruto still hadn't appeared. Her opponents eyed her warily, sensing her distraction. She tightened her grip on her weapon, determination flickering in her eyes. "I have to do this, with or without him." Just as the referee was about to signal the start, a commotion at the entrance drew everyone's attention. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as Naruto appeared, slightly disheveled but with an intense look of focus in his eyes. He jogged towards Maya, a mixture of relief and determination on his face. "Sorry I'm late," he panted, taking his place beside her. "Got a little sidetracked." Maya's relief was palpable and she couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. "You're just in time." The referee, satisfied that all fighters were present, signaled the start of the match. The 3 teams sprang into action, clashing in a chaotic dance of steel and strategy. Naruto and Maya fought with a synergy that surprised their opponents, their movements fluid and coordinated despite the earlier tension. The fight was brutal and exhausting. At one point, Maya found herself cornered by 2 opponents, but Naruto intervened, blocking their attacks with swift, precise strikes. They fought back to back, their trust in each other evident in every movement. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the referee called the match. Naruto and Maya, battered and bruised but victorious, stood amidst their fallen opponents. The crowd erupted in cheers, and the tension that had weighed on them all morning lifted. As they walked off the arena floor, Naruto glanced at Maya. "We need to talk later," he said quietly. "About everything?" Maya nodded, her heart swelling with hope. "Yes, we do." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Naruto and Maya both advanced to the next round, their confidence bolstered by their victory. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they found a quiet spot near the edge of the forest. Naruto took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. Maya, about last night, she looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. "I'm sorry if I scared you," she said softly. I like you, Naruto. A lot." Naruto smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. I like you too, Maya. But we need to take things slow. There's so much happening right now, and I don't want to hurt you. Maya nodded, relief flooding through her. I understand. We'll take it one step at a time. Naruto reached out, taking her hand in his. We'll figure this out together. As they sat there, hand in hand, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the night sky, they both felt a sense of peace. The path ahead might be uncertain, but they knew they wouldn't be facing it alone. Against two swordsmen, Maya could resist, but against two teams, she had no chance. Demons, where have you been, Naruto? I muttered, starting to get nervous as he remembered the amount of money he had bet on his team advancing to the next phase. He couldn't believe that Naruto had taken his cut from the first round and left. It wasn't like the Naruto he knew. After the announcement of the first pair of teams, everyone left the arena and headed to the spectators' balcony, where they were greeted by the same observers from the Azuki clan, who had been present yesterday. The first fight was between two men, aged between 30 and 50, who apparently were old friends, against two young girls. Interestingly, about a third of the participants in the second round were girls, which was quite unusual for this tournament. As soon as the referee announced the start of the fight, a thick fog enveloped the arena, denying the girls the opportunity to see their opponents. Standing with their backs to each other, the girls prepared to deflect a blow that never came. After a minute, then 2, then 5, when the fog finally cleared, the girls saw the bodies of their unconscious opponents on the ground. It seemed that the men had somehow knocked each other out in the fog. Loud laughter erupted from the stands. There had been contestants capable of harming themselves with their own attacks before, but having two of them on the same team was a first. Several Azuki members took the losers away, clearing the battlefield for the next fight. The second battle was between the clear favorites and the promising rookies who had reached a fairly good level for their age. Uzumaki Hiroki and Matsuoka Raiden were up against two fairly young shinobi. A 16-year-old boy and a girl of about 15. Both had performed admirably in the first phase, defeating their opponents in less than a minute. After moving a decent distance from each other, the competitors waited for the fight to begin. As soon as the referee gave the signal, Raiden started by placing the palm of his hand on the hilt of his sword, preparing to finish everything with one blow. The girl ran towards her opponent, taking out her katana and preparing to attack. Just 3 meters away from each other, while Matsuoka used his technique, a stone wall appeared between the opponents. The guy's technique knocked down the wall, but it was enough for the girl to escape his gaze. Surprised, Raiden looked back as soon as the layer of dust disappeared, but he couldn't find his rival. Only the voice of his partner helped him dodge the attack of the girl from above. Having landed gracefully, the girl launched herself towards her opponent with little strength, planning to end the battle with him in one hit. However, an invisible wall appeared in front of her, increasing the distance instantly. She looked surprised at the Uzumaki, who was calmly approaching her partner and showing the others the barrier that she had placed before the fight began. Thanks, the boy said, taking a deep breath and exhaling. The plan to go for a quick win had failed because their opponents were good enough to resist his technique, unlike the man from yesterday. You're welcome, Uzumaki nodded, looking with interest at the boy who was next to the girl. He had a fairly good level of Doton for his age, and in principle, this element was also not very common among his clan. Those who possessed it would not be able to create a wall of 2 meters with such speed. While Uzumaki evaluated the skills of his opponent, he couldn't help but be impressed. As the fight continued, the girl and her partner showed remarkable resilience. They adapted quickly to the changing dynamics of the battle, utilizing their unique techniques and teamwork. Uzumaki and Raiden, however, were equally formidable. Raiden's swift and powerful strikes kept their opponents on their toes, while Uzumaki's strategic use of barriers and seals created opportunities for counterattacks. Maya, watching from the sidelines, couldn't help but feel a mix of anxiety and admiration. She hoped Naruto would arrive soon, but she also couldn't deny the skill and determination of her current teammates. The battle raged on, each side pushing the other to their limits. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the arena. Naruto, slightly out of breath but with an intense look of focus, made his way towards the battlefield. Relief washed over Maya as she saw him. She knew that with Naruto's arrival, their chances of winning would increase significantly. Sorry I'm late, Naruto panted as he joined Uzumaki and Raiden. Got held up. Just in time, Uzumaki replied with a nod. Let's finish this. With Naruto now in the fray, the dynamics of the battle shifted. His presence bolstered their morale and added a new layer of strategy to their approach. The trio worked in perfect harmony, their movements fluid and coordinated. Naruto's powerful attacks and quick reflexes complemented Uzumaki's defensive techniques and Raiden's offensive prowess. Together, they overwhelmed their opponents, pushing them back and gaining the upper hand. The fight reached a climax as Naruto unleashed a final devastating blow that secured their victory. The crowd erupted in cheers as the referee announced the end of the match. Naruto, Uzumaki, and Raiden stood victorious, their opponents defeated. As they walked off the arena floor, Maya ran up to Naruto, relief and gratitude evident on her face. "You made it," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I wouldn't miss it," Naruto replied with a smile. "We did it." The rest of the day passed in a blur of celebration in preparation for the next phase of the tournament. Naruto and his teammates had proven their strength and resilience, earning the respect and admiration of their peers. That evening, as the sun set and the arena emptied, Naruto found a quiet spot to reflect on the day's events. Maya joined him, and they sat together, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the night sky. "Thank you for coming back," Maya said softly. "I was worried." Naruto took her hand in his, a warm smile on his face. "I won't leave you, Maya. We'll face whatever comes next together." As they sat there, hand in hand, they both felt a sense of peace and determination. The path ahead might be uncertain, but they knew they wouldn't be facing it alone. The bonds they had forged and the strength they had shown would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Raiden completely covered his body with lightning release, just like the Raijin masters do in the Land of Lightning. With a mocking smile, Hiroki stepped back a bit, letting his partner handle it. These two weren't causing any trouble, so if Matsuoka failed, he would step in and end the fight quickly. This time, the boy's wall didn't help at all. Raiden flew through it, destroying it with ease. Lining up a row of walls, the boy prepared to repel his opponent's attack, but after destroying the last wall, Raiden disappeared. By instinct, the boy turned around and raised another wall, covering himself with numerous blows with his sword. Raiden disappeared again and reappeared from the side. Cursing silently, the boy lunged at him, receiving the blow of the incomprehensible technique and becoming live bait. The girl, who appeared behind Raiden, stabbed the boy's body with a katana, forcing him to get rid of his lightning shield and look back over his shoulder. After another second, the girl ripped the weapon out of the way, and the body of their defeated opponent fell next to his former partner. Looking towards Uzumaki, Raiden raised his hand, announcing that he was giving up and fell unconscious. That last jump, as well as the passage of the katana through the lightning barrier, had cost him dearly, exhausting all his reserves. If he had put a little less chakra into his katana, he wouldn't have been able to defeat his opponent by piercing his skin. The judge loudly announced the following pairs after the dead shinobi and the unconscious one were taken to the Uzumaki infirmary. Hiroki managed alone because he didn't even enter the fight. 5 people came down to the field. 3 boys and 2 girls. One more was missing, but he didn't intend to delay the start of the fight more than 5 minutes. The spectators would need those 5 minutes to recover from the several deaths of the previous fight. The first deaths were always hard for the public. "How long are we going to wait?" a girl asked, snorting discontentedly. She had a certain arrogance and nothing to say. Well, she needed an answer to that question herself. "So why don't you give up? We can team up and get rid of you first, and then we can go to the real fight," she said, as if that would help. "Like that would help you," a breathless guy with a few branches sticking out of his hair and tree leaves stuck to his shirt said, turning around. The guy had fallen asleep. He didn't run away scared like Maya thought. He didn't betray her by taking the prize like Kai didn't want to think. He fell asleep. That's all. Looking at her own partner in surprise, the girl sighed heavily. Even though he had come, which was well, they didn't even know each other's abilities, so interaction was out of the question. "Sorry, Chan," Uzumaki smiled as he approached his partner. He seemed so stupid now that the girl even forgot to resent him for addressing her. As soon as the referee saw that the last boy had arrived, he announced the preparation for the match, followed by the start of the match itself. Both teams ran immediately towards Naruto and the girl, joining forces in silence. It could have been worse, as Uzumaki noticed to himself, but the girl was clearly nervous as she did not notice any action from her partner. She quickly folded her seals, creating several huge drops of water in front of her and her partner, the size of a 2-meter-tall man. The opponents immediately stopped, momentarily confused. Naruto took advantage of the pause. He swiftly moved to the front, creating shadow clones that surrounded their opponents. The sudden appearance of multiple Narutos threw the enemy teams into disarray. The girl, seeing this, gained some confidence and prepared her next move. She molded her chakra and, with a series of hand seals, transformed the giant drops of water into water dragons, which roared and charged towards their enemies. The water dragons crashed into the enemy teams, scattering them. One of the opponents tried to counter with a fire technique, but the sheer volume of water overwhelmed the flames, creating a thick mist that shrouded the battlefield. Naruto and the girl used the cover of the mist to strike from multiple angles. Naruto's clones kept their opponents off balance, while the girl launched precise water-based attacks. Despite the confusion, the enemy teams began to adapt. One of the boys from the opposing team used Earth Release to create a defensive dome around his team, shielding them from the water dragons. Another enemy shinobi with Wind Release cleared the mist, making it easier for their team to regroup. Stay close, Naruto instructed his partner. We'll have to break their defense together. Nodding, the girl prepared another water-based attack. Naruto, meanwhile, gathered his chakra and created a Rasengan. With a synchronized effort, the girl launched her water technique at the dome while Naruto charged with his Rasengan. The combined power of their attacks shattered the earth-release dome, sending shockwaves through the arena. The enemy teams, now exposed and disoriented, struggled to mount a counterattack. Naruto's clones continued to harass them, preventing them from reforming a solid defense. Sensing their advantage, Naruto and his partner pressed on. The girl unleashed a powerful torrent of water, knocking several opponents off their feet, while Naruto used his Rasengan to incapacitate another. Amidst the chaos, one of the enemy shinobi managed to land a solid hit on Naruto's partner, sending her sprawling to the ground. Seeing this, Naruto's eyes narrowed. He quickly dispatched the attacker with a swift combination of taijutsu and a shadow clone feint. "Are you okay?" Naruto asked, helping his partner to her feet. "Yeah, I'm fine," she replied, wincing slightly. "Let's finish this." With renewed determination, the two of them faced the remaining opponents. The battlefield was a mess of water, mud, and debris, but Naruto and his partner moved with precision and purpose. The enemy teams, exhausted and demoralized, could barely keep up. Finally, with a coordinated assault, Naruto and his partner overwhelmed the last of their opponents. The referee signaled the end of the match, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Naruto and his partner stood victorious in the center of the arena, catching their breath. The girl looked at Naruto with newfound respect and gratitude. "Thanks for having my back," she said, smiling. "Anytime," Naruto replied, smiling back. "We make a pretty good team." As they walked off the battlefield, the girl couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. Naruto's leadership and strength had been crucial, but she had also proven her worth. Together, they had forged a bond of trust and teamwork that would serve them well in the challenges ahead. Back in the stands, Kai and the others watched with relief and satisfaction. The tension that had filled the air before the match was now replaced with a sense of camaraderie and hope. They had made it through another round, and with Naruto by their side, they knew they stood a strong chance of winning the tournament. As the day drew to a close, Naruto and his friends gathered to celebrate their victory. They knew there were still many challenges ahead, but for now, they reveled in their hard-earned success. The bonds they had forged in the heat of battle would carry them forward, no matter what obstacles they might face in the future. As they noticed the bubbles beginning to grow, the technique was clearly impressive but useless for attacking. Naruto moved behind his opponents, pointing his sword at their heads and planning to finish off the insolent girl with a single blow. However, the girl managed not only to dodge, but also to block the blow with her weapon. Unfortunately for her, the block did not save her from the kick that sent her flying. Having landed on the ground and not having time to adopt a stable position, she had to dodge the fast blows of the guy who was playing with her, who was visible at one point. Taking a kunai out of its sheath, the guy threw it to the side where the trio crowded on the girl, hitting one of the guys in the neck and ending his life. Due to her chakra level, the girl should have been able to face those two on her own. Bastard, the girl gritted her teeth but was unable to counterattack, even though her opponent was distracted for a few seconds. If that blow had not been unexpected, her partner would have dodged it, but in such a situation, it was not surprising that he noticed the kunai only at the last second when it was already too late. "If you can get rid of us so easily, what's the point of so much delay?" she demanded. "I need to take my mind off my problems for a while, so keep fighting," said the guy, irritated, putting some chakra into the katana and increasing the onslaught. The girl, who was already having a hard time fighting, was now in no mood to talk. The illusion of a sword blow from above made her put up a block, and only when the sword pierced her did she realize it was an illusion. But it was too late. A punch in the stomach sent the girl straight into the wall and sealed her. Something must have broken, but the guy didn't care now, given over to battle. He wanted to forget everything that had been worrying him all night and morning, and a girl with the level of a jonin was perfect for that. Although she hadn't been able to show any of her techniques yet, little by little a mist began to appear in the arena, covering the five senses and incapacitating them to perceive the chakra. Covering their eyes, the boy focused fully on his own sense of danger. It was precisely in situations like this that his hand twitched. And then a scream was heard, a clink of metal as the two weapons collided. The girl bounced back, preparing to strike next, but the boy abruptly released a huge amount of chakra, dissipating the mist and revealing the girl who lunged towards Naruto's partner, who, by the way, had already taken care of one of the two guys. However, his reserve was also two-thirds empty, advancing instantly towards his rival. The guy grabbed her by the neck, lifting her off the ground. With a strong pull, the girl received a strong blow to the stomach that made her spit out a blood clot. Sure, something had broken at the end of this crazy fight, throwing the girl against the nearest wall. The guy headed towards his partner, who was beginning to see herself cornered by her opponent, holding on by sheer force of will. The situation was clearly different now. Hitting the carotid, Naruto approached the girl, helping her to stand up after the announcement of the winner. The referee's voice echoed through the arena, declaring Naruto and his partner as the victors. The audience erupted in cheers, but the excitement in the stands was in stark contrast to the grim scene in the arena. The girl, breathing heavily, clutched her side, her face contorted in pain. Naruto supported her, his arm around her shoulders, helping her stay on her feet. "We did it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, we did," Naruto replied, his tone serious. "But you need to get to the infirmary. You've taken too many hits." "I'll be fine," she insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. Naruto gave her a stern look. "No arguments. Let's go." He helped her off the battlefield, guiding her towards the infirmary. As they walked, he couldn't help but think about the intensity of the fight and the unexpected turn of events. The techniques they had faced were powerful, and their opponents were skilled. It had taken everything they had to come out on top. In the infirmary, medics rushed to tend to the girl, checking her injuries and administering healing techniques. Naruto watched anxiously, feeling a mix of relief and worry. He had pushed himself hard, and so had she. They had fought well, but the toll it had taken on them was evident. As the medics worked, Naruto took a moment to reflect on the fight. He had been driven by a need to distract himself from his own worries, but now, seeing his partner in pain, he realized that their victory had come at a cost. He couldn't afford to let his personal struggles affect his performance in the future. His partner's well-being and their success in the tournament depended on it. After a while, the lead medic approached him. "She'll be fine," he said. "She just needs some rest and recovery." Naruto nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. "Thank you." The medic smiled. "You fought well out there. Both of you. Take care of each other." Naruto returned to his partner's side. She was lying on a cot, her breathing steadier now. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. "Better," she replied, her voice still weak. "Thanks for looking out for me." "Of course," Naruto said, sitting down beside her. "We're a team. We have to watch each other's backs." She managed a small smile. "You're right. And we did it. We won." "Yeah, we did," Naruto agreed, feeling a sense of pride. "But let's focus on getting you better. We'll need all our strength for the next round." She nodded, closing her eyes to rest. Naruto sat quietly by her side, his mind racing with thoughts of the challenges ahead. The tournament was far from over, and they would need to be at their best to continue winning. But for now, they had earned a moment of respite, and he was grateful for it. As the sun began to set outside, casting a warm glow over the arena, Naruto vowed to himself that he would not let his personal struggles hinder their progress. He would fight with everything he had, not just for himself, but for his partner and their team. They had come this far, and he was determined to see them through to the end. As the medics swiftly attended to the wounded in the arena, their urgent movements underscored the intensity of the recent battles. The arena had erupted with excitement, but Naruto's focus was elsewhere. The result of the fight was already decided, and while the excitement continued to buzz around him, Naruto's gaze was fixed on something more troubling. His eyes met Kai's briefly, acknowledging the moment with a nod, but when his gaze shifted to Maya, he quickly broke eye contact and vanished into the shadows, retreating into the quieter corners of the arena. Maya, stunned, continued to stare at the arena with wide eyes. She had not anticipated the depth of Naruto's ruthlessness, his willingness to kill without a trace of remorse. To her, he had been a figure of hope and camaraderie, not a ruthless fighter who had just shown his true colors. The Naruto she had envisioned, a cheerful, fun-loving boy, was replaced by a cold, calculating killer, reminiscent of the shobi who had taken so much from her own life. The image of Naruto standing over Ma's corpse, detached and observing her own hysteria, shattered her previous perception. He seemed no different from the merciless beasts that had ravaged her family and clan. This realization left Maya grappling with a deep sense of disillusionment. She had always clung to the belief that Naruto, despite the hardships he faced, would never become the kind of person driven solely by the thirst for battle. But now, faced with the harsh reality, she felt the weight of her naivety. The fight had exposed the brutal truth of the world they inhabited, and Maya struggled to reconcile this new reality with the idealized image she had of Naruto. Her admiration and gratitude towards him dissolved, replaced by a cold attachment and a creeping sense of dislike. Although she knew deep down that Naruto had done nothing wrong directly to her, her feelings had irrevocably changed. The world had repeatedly shattered her dreams and hopes, and Naruto's true nature was yet another blow to her already fragile sense of optimism. Naruto, meanwhile, had made his way to the balcony reserved for participants. The sight of Hiroki, another Uzumaki, immediately caught his attention. Hiroki, despite his weakened state and trembling legs, greeted Naruto with a weak smile, clearly relieved to see him. "Congratulations on making it through," Hiroki said, his voice carrying a mixture of exhaustion and relief. The brutality of the fight was evident in his appearance, though he had managed to emerge victorious. "I look forward to meeting you in the final." Naruto nodded briefly in response, offering no further comment. His mind was preoccupied with the battle's aftermath and the emotional turmoil it had stirred within him. But the Sai, he rolled his back down the wall and settled next to one of the Azuki, who paid him little attention, lost in their own thoughts. Seeking solace in the quiet, Naruto discreetly created a shadow clone, which swiftly disappeared into the shadows. The clone's purpose was to keep watch over him, ensuring that no threat could approach unnoticed. As he allowed himself to relax, Naruto leaned against the wall, mentally preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. Despite the temporary respite, the fight had left him with a tumult of emotions, and he knew that maintaining his focus would be crucial as the tournament progressed. With the clone keeping a vigilant watch, Naruto allowed himself a moment of rest. The arena's chaos had momentarily faded into the background, replaced by a more subdued atmosphere. The fight had been a reminder of the harsh realities of their world, and Naruto knew that he would have to confront these realities head-on in the upcoming battles. For now, though, he took comfort in the knowledge that he had faced the turmoil of the fight and emerged with a renewed determination to continue fighting, not just for victory, but for a sense of purpose amidst the chaos. The night had been restless for Naruto, plagued by a relentless series of nightmares that seemed determined to torment him. The emotional self-torture and the stress of recent battles had left him in a fragile state. After his exhausting fight, he had collapsed, seeking solace in a much-needed sleep. Yet even in this brief respite, his mind was far from peaceful. Hiroki, observing Naruto from a distance, was struck by the boy's nonchalance and apparent indifference to his own well-being. It was a stark contrast to anything Hiroki had seen before. Naruto's demeanor was both surprising and unsettling. Hiroki found himself contemplating the implications of this unique and potentially troublesome relative. The battle had showcased Naruto's capabilities, but also his disconcerting attitude. As Hiroki turned his attention back to the arena, he mentally hoped that Naruto's presence would bring more benefits than problems. As the first battle of the second part was drawing to a close, the arena was buzzing with anticipation. The carnage and intensity of the previous matches had left the spectators in a state of shock. Meanwhile, Naruto's shadow clone, ever vigilant, kept a watchful eye on the original, ensuring that no one would pose a threat while Naruto rested. The clone's task was both mundane and critical. Keeping watch while hiding from the chaos that surrounded it. The clone's existence was filled with a sense of melancholy, dramatizing its own fate with exaggerated self-pity. The burden of being a clone was not one to be taken lightly, and the clone lamented its role in the grand scheme of things. Its concerns were interrupted when it noticed Naruto's palm clenched tightly, indicating a deep-seated anxiety even in sleep. Suddenly, the clone was jolted awake by a confrontation. Naruto, still half asleep, found himself facing an unexpected and formidable opponent. This new adversary, with a tail and two ears, had appeared out of nowhere. Naruto had to dodge an attack just in time, his reflexes trained to their limits. A red ball of energy appeared in his opponent's hand, and Naruto narrowly escaped, saving himself from immediate danger. Upon reappearing behind his opponent, Naruto was taken aback by the sight of the tail and ears vanishing, revealing a strange and unsettling transformation. His opponent, seemingly enraged, began emitting a dangerous fire-like energy that threatened to consume him. The red lights from this energy swirled around, creating an eerie and intimidating spectacle. Naruto could only watch as the energy absorbed into the opponent, leaving him incapacitated. Despite the chaos, Naruto managed to regain his composure and attempted to confront the now vanishing figure. His questions were left unanswered as his opponent disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only confusion and a lingering sense of danger. The situation was further compounded by the fact that the mysterious figure left no residual chakra, making it impossible to trace their whereabouts or intentions. As Naruto tried to process the bizarre encounter, a rough voice echoed in his mind, startling him awake. The abrupt awakening pulled him out of his unsettling dream and back into reality. He blinked groggily, recognizing the face of a guard who had been standing watch over him. Realizing the match was ongoing and that he needed to be in the arena, Naruto quickly stood up, nodding his thanks to the guard. He made his way back to the center of the arena with a renewed sense of urgency. The brief rest had not fully restored his strength, but he was determined to rejoin the tournament and face whatever challenges lay ahead. As he walked, he cast a last glance around the arena, mentally preparing himself for the next phase of the competition. The arena was abuzz with activity as fighters prepared for the next match. Naruto knew that his performance would need to be sharp and decisive if he hoped to advance further. With the mysterious events of the night still lingering in his mind, he steeled himself for the trials that awaited him in the arena. Naruto stood in the arena, the remnants of his dreams still clouding his mind. The brief moments of sleep he'd managed had left him feeling disoriented, and his body still craved more rest. His dream, though now fading, had left him with a sense of unease. An incomprehensible phrase about co-years of his life echoed in his mind, though he couldn't quite grasp its meaning. As he took in his surroundings, the judge, who had just announced the participants' advancement to the third phase, was handing out pieces of paper with numbers for the draw. Naruto glanced around at his fellow competitors, noting their varying levels of exhaustion and anticipation. Most of them, despite having fought hard, seemed to have a similar level of chakra, except for a few standouts. The Uzumaki siblings and the girl who had easily defeated her opponents earlier. The judge's announcement that the draw for the final phase would be held the next day brought a wave of relief mixed with tension. Naruto's gaze followed the judge as he approached each participant, handing them a slip of paper with their number. As the number 11 was handed to him, Naruto tried to recall his opponents, but his fragmented memories of the previous fights and the sheer fatigue made it difficult to pinpoint specifics. He noticed that he was unable to identify his opponent since he was unfamiliar with the names of the fighters. When the draw concluded, Naruto observed the girl who had previously fought beside him stepping forward, declaring her intent to withdraw from the tournament. He was surprised and somewhat disheartened that she would give up so easily after all the effort. The girl's departure was met with a mixture of applause and murmurs of discontent from the audience. The short-lived commotion quickly subsided as she disappeared from view. The judge's final words echoed in the arena. The pairings will be revealed tomorrow. That is all for now. With that, the judge vanished into the crowd, leaving the remaining competitors to their own devices. Some shinobi quickly exited the arena, vanishing into the surroundings, while others lingered for a moment before departing. Naruto remained behind, feeling the surge of chakra from the girl who had withdrawn. Her power was significant and he couldn't help but wonder about her background and why she hadn't been more prominent in the competition spotlight. He knew that such strength was not common and it intrigued him that she had chosen to step away rather than continue fighting. Realizing that he still had tasks to complete before the day's end, Naruto turned his attention to his own preparations. He knew that he needed to focus on his training and strategize for the upcoming battles. But the final glance at his acquaintances, he disappeared into the shadows, his thoughts whirling with both anticipation and anxiety for the challenges that lay ahead. In the quiet of his room, Naruto collapsed onto his bed, burying his face in the pillow. The day's events, combined with his sleepless nights and the pressure of the upcoming fights, weighed heavily on him. As he tried to find solace in the comforting embrace of sleep, his mind remained restless, plagued by the echoes of his dreams and the unresolved mysteries of the tournament. Outside, the arena was emptying and the remnants of the day's battles were being cleared away. The excitement and tension of the tournament were palpable, but for Naruto, the focus was on the path he had to navigate, both in terms of his personal struggles and the formidable opponents he would soon face. Maya slumped onto the edge of her bed, her legs swinging in frustration. The day had been long, and with everyone else out exploring, she found herself alone in the room, waiting for Naruto to return. Despite her initial resolve to head home, she had come to the inn, hoping to talk to him. It was nearly 10 o'clock and Naruto still hadn't shown up. His belongings were all there, so she dismissed the idea that he had left. "Hello," a familiar voice broke through her thoughts. Turning her head, Maya saw a boy from the other bed, his eyes serious, yet maintaining a hint of that same carefree smile he had during their battles. His gaze became more intense, clearly recognizing the need for a serious conversation. Maya sat up, her mood reflecting the conflict she was feeling. "We need to talk about what happened during the night," she said, her tone laced with concern. Naruto's expression shifted slightly, a mix of unease and determination evident in his demeanor. "To be honest, it's the first time I've found myself in this kind of situation," he admitted, his confidence wavering. "I really like talking to you, but with everything that's happened and will happen, I'm not prepared to respond to your feelings in any way. I'm sorry if I gave you false hopes." Maya's reaction was calm and unexpected. Her face softened into a gentle smile and she looked directly into Naruto's eyes. "It's okay," she said, her voice steady. "I'm sorry for acting like that. I didn't have control of myself at that moment. I'm sincerely sorry about what happened." Naruto was taken aback by her composed response. He had braced himself for an emotional outburst, but instead, she offered him understanding. The sincerity in her words and her tranquil demeanor helped ease the tension he was feeling. "Thank you for understanding," Naruto replied, his own smile returning. He felt a weight lift off his shoulders as he realized that Maya had processed her feelings with surprising speed and maturity. This interaction had allowed him to clarify his own emotions, and he now felt only a friendly affection towards her, not anything beyond that. The conversation concluded with a sense of mutual respect and closure. Naruto's focus shifted back to the tournament. As he prepared for his next match, his thoughts were on the competition and the challenges that lay ahead. The arena was buzzing with anticipation for the next round. Naruto's opponent was a young brunette who had been the partner of the girl Maya had been interested in. She was neither particularly weak nor exceptionally strong, which made her a somewhat unpredictable adversary. Naruto entered the arena with his usual confidence, ready to face his opponent. As the match began, the brunette girl charged at him with determination. Naruto, however, was quick to use his skills to his advantage. He dodged her attacks with ease, appearing and disappearing with his teleportation technique. The girl grew increasingly frustrated, her attacks becoming more desperate as Naruto effortlessly evaded her. With each dodge, Naruto's confidence grew. He shrugged off her anger and continued to outmaneuver her. A sudden appearance behind her caught the girl off guard. As she tried to retaliate, Naruto's blade came to rest against her neck. The girl stopped in her tracks, realizing that the match was over. Naruto's calm, controlled demeanor contrasted sharply with her flustered attempts to land a hit. The crowd watched in silence, captivated by the display of skill and composure. Naruto withdrew his blade, offering a respectful nod to his opponent. "Good match," he said, acknowledging her effort. The girl, though disappointed, nodded in return. She had faced a skilled opponent and learned from the experience. As she left the arena, Naruto turned his attention to the next phase of the tournament, his mind already shifting to the strategies he would need to employ to succeed. Back in the inn, Maya watched from a distance, reflecting on her earlier conversation with Naruto. She felt a sense of closure and acceptance, understanding that life and relationships were often complex and unpredictable. The clarity she had gained allowed her to focus on her own path forward, whatever that might entail. Naruto's performance and demeanor in the arena only reinforced his reputation as a formidable shinobi. The tournament was far from over, and the challenges ahead promised to be as intense as ever. For now, Naruto was ready to face whatever came next, his mind clear and his resolve strong. The girl shuddered, her body trembling slightly as she turned her head towards her rival. Her eyes met his, a mixture of apprehension and resignation etched into her expression. The brunette raised her hand in a slow, deliberate gesture, announcing her defeat. The referee, with a nod of acknowledgement, declared the end of the fight. Naruto, who had been intently watching from the sidelines, sheathed his sword with a practiced motion and gave a brief courteous farewell to his fallen opponent. With a murmured thanks for the fight, Naruto disappeared in a blur of motion, reappearing beside his relative Uzumaki. He leaned against the wall, his posture relaxed, but his gaze sharp as he observed the remaining battles. His eyes followed the competitors with a mix of curiosity and strategic calculation. The next bout was about to begin. The crowd's excitement surged as the referee announced the names. Kazumi Terumi, the second girl, was set to face off against a burly man who wielded a sword as tall as an axe. The anticipation in the arena was palpable. Despite the man's imposing physique and formidable weapon, Kazumi's chakra was several times greater than her opponent's, a disparity that made the outcome almost predictable. The fight commenced with a dramatic display of power. The man swung his colossal sword with brute force, slamming it into the ground and creating a tremor that shook the battlefield. Blocks of earth, shaped like large plant formations, erupted from the ground and were flung towards Kazumi. The landscape transformed into a chaotic terrain, shifting and displacing as the man's strength manipulated the environment. Kazumi watched with a mixture of awe and determination. As the man's attack caused a cascade of earth to rise, Kazumi was forced to react swiftly. With a burst of speed, she darted away from the oncoming debris, her figure flashing like a flicker of light. The man's movements, however, were not just physical. His chakra surged with lightning, enveloping his body and further enhancing his already formidable presence. Kazumi's eyes narrowed in concentration as her opponent's speed and power intensified. The man's attacks grew more relentless, his strikes accompanied by bursts of lightning that crackled through the air. Despite his increased prowess, Kazumi remained composed. Her own chakra flowed with equal vigor, countering the man's assaults and allowing her to evade his blows with agility and precision. The fight reached its climax when the man, frustrated by his inability to land a decisive blow, attempted a powerful horizontal strike. Kazumi anticipated the move and sidestepped with practiced ease. The man's sword, charged with lightning, clashed against her own weapon. The impact was jarring, but Kazumi's blade held firm, showing no signs of yielding. A faint smile played on Kazumi's lips as she deftly parried the man's blows. The real twist came when, with a final, decisive move, Kazumi's sword began to glow with an otherworldly light. To the audience's astonishment, the man's sword, under the relentless pressure of Kazumi's attacks, began to melt away, the metal dissolving into nothingness. The man, now disarmed, was left in disbelief. Kazumi calmly sheathed her weapon, approaching her opponent with a respectful nod. "Thank you for the fight," she said with genuine appreciation. "It was very enlightening. Perhaps if I had been more vigilant earlier, after dispatching my Earth clone, I might have had a better chance." The man, his expression softening, extended his hand in a gesture of camaraderie. "It was a good fight," he admitted, shaking Kazumi's hand. "I'll have to be more careful next time." Kazumi returned to her spot on the balcony, her mind already analyzing the fight. She and Naruto, having both advanced through the battles, understood the importance of conserving energy for the final phase. Kazumi reflected on Naruto's performance in the earlier match. Despite his seemingly minimal effort, Naruto had managed to secure victory with a strategic approach that had avoided unnecessary expenditure of chakra. As the final phase approached, both Naruto and Kazumi prepared themselves for the challenges ahead. The tournament had proven to be a grueling test of skill and endurance, but it was also a stage where strategy and adaptability were just as crucial as raw power. With the final battles looming, both competitors were determined to make their mark, each driven by their own motivations and aspirations. The arena buzzed with anticipation as Naruto made his way to the balcony, his thoughts occupied by the recent battles and the figures he had encountered. Unlike Terumi, who had used every ounce of her strength to prevail in her match, Naruto had relied more on strategy and precision. The stark difference in their approaches was evident as he climbed up to the balcony, where he was met by a familiar face. The balcony was a hub of activity, with contestants and spectators mingling, and the atmosphere was charged with a blend of tension and excitement. Naruto's gaze fell upon a redeed with a reputation that preceded him. This was the second Uzumaki, the reigning champion from the previous year's tournament. Naruto vividly remembered the impact the redeed had made on the battlefield, particularly during the finals, when his display of power had left an indelible mark on everyone present. It was a sight Naruto hoped never to witness again. As Naruto approached, he saw Terumi standing by the door to the balcony. She opened it silently, her demeanor a mix of determination and unease. The balcony held a few notable figures, including members of the Azuki clan, longtime allies of Terumi's clan. Terumi had known them since the peace treaty had been signed between their clans, and their presence was a testament to the deep-rooted alliances in the shinobi world. Azuki Kidoro, the eldest of the Azuki brothers, greeted Terumi with a respectful nod. His younger brother, standing beside him, followed suit. "Your Keigenkai is impressive," Kidoro remarked, acknowledging Terumi's prowess. Their words were polite, but there was an underlying edge to them. They seemed to be subtly conveying that Terumi needed to prove herself to maintain her clan's standing within the alliance. Terumi's expression hardened. "They sent me here for a reason," she said, her voice cold. "Show them what the alliance clan can do. I know without you I'll take it away." Her gaze was steely, a clear message to the Azuki clan to take her seriously. Despite her irritation at the insinuations, she chose not to escalate the situation further. The fragile alliance between her clan and the Azuki was too important to jeopardize over personal grievances. Naruto, observing the exchange with a smirk, turned his attention to the younger Azuki brother who stood next to Terumi. He was strikingly similar to Sasuke's partner, but shorter in stature. The girl beside him bore a resemblance to the fifth Mizukage, though her appearance was markedly different: blonde hair cropped short, blue eyes, and a suit that did not quite fit the Mizukage's more regal demeanor. Despite the shared last name, Naruto suspected they were distantly related rather than directly connected. The girl's use of Yoten, lava release, and her mastery of the technique hinted at a deeper kinship, but Naruto remained skeptical about the extent of their relation. Naruto winked at the girl, eliciting a tense reaction. The fact that he had recognized her use of Ken, a technique of his own, from a distance surprised her. She seemed to regard Naruto with a mix of curiosity and wariness. The mention of melting someone with such an elemental technique made her smile, contemplating the potential uses of her abilities in future encounters. As the conversation continued, Terumi's attention was drawn to a commotion at the edge of the balcony. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw the aftermath of a brutal fight unfolding below. The scene mirrored a tragic event from the previous year. The shinobi lay on the ground, clutching the remnants of his leg while blood poured from the wound. The frantic screams of the injured man echoed through the arena until medical personnel rushed to his aid. The sight was a grim reminder of the violence that had marked the previous year's tournament, where the same redeed had delivered a similar blow to Terumi's brother. The loss of a limb and the ability to continue as a shinobi had left deep scars on Terumi's family. The memory of that brutality fueled her resentment and desire for retribution, though she grappled with the conflicting emotions of seeking vengeance while honoring the alliance and her clan's position. As Terumi stood frozen, her thoughts tangled in anger and sorrow, Naruto could sense the weight of her past experiences. The tournament had not only tested their physical abilities, but it also brought unresolved conflicts and emotional wounds to the surface. Each fight, each interaction, was a reminder of the complex web of relationships and rivalries that defined their world. Terumi's struggle was palpable as she fought to suppress the urge for revenge that surged within her. The sight of Hiroki's cold demeanor and the harsh words exchanged had reignited old wounds and stirred emotions she had vowed to control. Her promise to her peace-loving brother weighed heavily on her, a promise that dictated she refrain from violence, even when faced with those who disrespected her village or her family. The tension in her posture was evident as she refrained from confronting Hiroki directly, even though every fiber of her being screamed for retribution. The subject of Uzushiogakure had been a sensitive topic, and Hiroki's casual dismissal of it had clearly touched a nerve. The Uzumaki's history and their fiercely protective nature over their village were deeply ingrained, and any disparagement was met with immediate and intense reactions. Kazumi knew this all too well, and the internal conflict was a stark reminder of how fragile her control was. Naruto, watching the exchange from a distance, could easily grasp the situation. He had overheard the conversation and understood the reason behind Kazumi's restrained demeanor. The Uzumaki clan's commitment to their heritage was well known, and insults toward Uzushiogakure were bound to provoke a strong reaction. Yet, Hiroki's nonchalant attitude toward such matters was unusual, even for someone of his reputation. Kazumi, standing nearby, observed the interaction with a mix of confusion and concern. The memory of her brother's past encounters with the Uzumaki clan flickered in her mind, but the details were hazy. She recalled the intensity of the previous year's tournament but struggled to piece together the specifics. Her brother had often spoken of the Uzumaki's formidable presence, but the full impact of their actions was something she was only beginning to understand. Naruto, sensing the emotional weight in the air, decided it was time to move on. With a smile and a casual farewell, he disappeared into the irisin, reappearing next to Hiroki, who had left the arena. There was still a significant amount of time before the next phase of the tournament, 2.5 hours to be exact. This time would be used to complete the remaining fights and enjoy a well-deserved lunch. Once next to Hiroki, Naruto was greeted by his bodyguard with a casual wave. Although the bodyguard's acknowledgement was minimal, Naruto couldn't help but return the gesture. The familiarity with Hiroki's routine was evident, and Naruto's presence was soon acknowledged as well. As they made their way to the cafeteria, Naruto took in the bustling atmosphere. It was clear Hiroki was a regular here, as the staff seemed to know him well. The restaurant was upscale, and the prices on the menu reflected that, making Naruto's eyes widen at the cost of the meals. Despite this, Hiroki, noticing Naruto's reaction, offered to treat him. The gesture was appreciated, though Naruto still hesitated at the menu prices. The bodyguard, ever silent, remained unobtrusive as Hiroki placed the order. Naruto, who had been scanning the menu with mild disinterest, perked up when his gaze landed on his favorite dish. His excitement was palpable as he eagerly awaited the arrival of his meal. When the food arrived, it was clear Naruto's craving for ramen had been intense. 5 huge bowls of ramen were placed in front of him, a feast that quickly disappeared as Naruto dug in with enthusiasm. Hiroki and his bodyguard, by contrast, enjoyed their meals more modestly, though Hiroki observed Naruto with a mixture of amusement and slight exasperation. As Naruto finished his 10th bowl, Hiroki made a practical announcement. "We leave tomorrow at dawn," he said, his tone matter of fact. He watched Naruto, now reclining in his chair with a satisfied, albeit stuffed, expression. Hiroki's comment was tinged with a hint of admiration for Naruto's impressive eating prowess, even if it wasn't quite what he had expected. "We will be waiting for you in the same place where we met last time," Hiroki continued, setting down his utensils. With that, both he and his bodyguard left, leaving Naruto to linger over his meal. Naruto remained in the cafeteria for a bit longer, savoring the pleasant fullness in his stomach. Once he felt ready, he made his way back to his hotel. There, he needed to prepare for the upcoming semi-finals. Only 4 shinobi had made it through, even though there were initially supposed to be 5. The competition was fierce, and Naruto knew he had to focus on his upcoming matches. The final stages of the tournament loomed ahead, and Naruto's preparation would be crucial. He needed to optimize his Kai percentage and strategize for the challenges that awaited. As he walked back to his hotel, he reflected on the day's events and the complexities of the alliances and rivalries that had emerged. With the tournament's conclusion in sight, Naruto felt a renewed sense of determination, ready to face whatever challenges came next. No one thought a fight would end in a draw, but it happened. 2 friends faced each other, neither willing to lose. Although they both forfeited their chance to compete for the prize, their camaraderie was more important. The 3 remaining competitors were known quantities, each having proven their strength and skill in previous battles. However, the last contestant was a young boy who hadn't fully recovered from his previous fight. His chakra reserves were depleted by a quarter, and his appearance was disheveled, unlike the other trio who remained unscathed. The pairings were determined by drawing lots. The unfortunate contestant who drew the young boy as an opponent essentially received a free pass to the finals. This certainty did not apply to the second pair. Naruto had defeated them both multiple times, but they still posed a considerable challenge. The real test would be if Hiroki and Kazumi ended up fighting each other, as predicting the outcome of their duel was nearly impossible. Naruto hoped to draw the boy as his opponent to conserve his strength for the final rounds. 2 back-to-back fights against tough opponents would be taxing, even for him. He could manage, but avoiding unnecessary exhaustion was crucial. However, fate was unkind to him this time. His first opponent was Hiroki, and Naruto knew this fight would be memorable in every way. As the arena cleared and a barrier formed between the stands and the arena, the referee announced the start of the fight and disappeared in a swirl of smoke, leaving the competitors to face off. Almost immediately, Naruto attempted to activate his Irisin technique, but it failed. He realized to his shock that all the marks he had discreetly placed in the arena before the first stage had vanished. Kneeling, he tried to place a new mark, but it wouldn't take. Glancing at Hiroki, Naruto saw a satisfied smile on the redeed's face. Hiroki had figured out Naruto's technique and dismantled it. He had also placed some kind of block on the seals within the arena. At first, I thought it was just your speed, Hiroki began, approaching Naruto calmly. But during one of the fights, I realized that if you moved somewhere and reappeared in the same place, it was due to those marks you placed. Naruto stood, a mixture of frustration and admiration filling him. Hiroki's insight was impressive. Your marks blend perfectly with nature thanks to your Sen chakra, but I did an experiment. I removed one of them and you stopped appearing in that spot. Your marks were a meter apart across the field. Amazing, but not impossible to neutralize. Naruto couldn't believe his technique had been deciphered so thoroughly. Hiroki continued to approach slowly, confident in his analysis. Despite the setback, Naruto wasn't about to rely solely on that technique. He prepared himself for a different approach. You're right, Naruto replied, determination hardening his features. I won't rely on just one technique. With that, Naruto shifted his stance, preparing for close combat. Hiroki, recognizing the change, smirked. The two circled each other, their movements cautious and measured. The barrier around the arena shimmered, containing the fierce energy emanating from the two warriors. Hiroki lunged first, his chakra-infused strikes aimed at Naruto's vital points. Naruto dodged and countered with swift, precise blows, his training evident in every movement. The arena echoed with the clash of their attacks, the sheer force creating shockwaves that reverberated through the barrier. Naruto pushed himself to his limits, drawing on his vast reserves of chakra. Hiroki matched him blow for blow, his own prowess and strategic mind making him a formidable opponent. The two seemed evenly matched, their strengths and weaknesses balancing out in a relentless dance of combat. As the fight wore on, Naruto realized he had to end it quickly. He couldn't afford to waste too much energy with another tough opponent waiting. Gathering his chakra, Naruto prepared for one final, decisive move. He charged at Hiroki, who braced himself for the impact. At the last moment, Naruto feinted, diverting his energy into a powerful upward strike. Caught off guard, Hiroki attempted to counter, but Naruto's speed and precision were too much. The strike connected, sending Hiroki skidding backward. Breathing heavily, Naruto watched as Hiroki struggled to regain his footing. Despite the setback, Hiroki smiled, acknowledging Naruto's skill. Impressive, Naruto. You've grown stronger. Naruto nodded, respect evident in his eyes. You too, Hiroki. This fight isn't over yet. Hiroki pushed himself up, readying for another round. The arena crackled with their combined energy, each determined to emerge victorious. The spectators watched in awe, captivated by the intensity and skill on display. Despite his fatigue, Naruto dug deep, drawing on his inner strength and the lessons he had learned from countless battles. He knew that winning this fight would require not just power, but strategy and resilience. With renewed determination, Naruto faced Hiroki, ready to give everything he had. As the fight continued, it became a test of endurance and willpower. Each blow, each dodge, and each counter was a testament to their training and resolve. The outcome hung in the balance, and both fighters knew that a single mistake could decide the victor. Finally, with a surge of chakra, Naruto executed a move that combined his speed and strength in a perfect blend. Hiroki, caught off guard, couldn't react in time. The blow landed with a resounding impact, sending Hiroki to the ground. The referee reappeared, signaling the end of the match. Naruto stood victorious, but exhausted. Hiroki, though defeated, smiled up at Naruto, a glint of respect in his eyes. Well fought, Naruto. Naruto extended a hand, helping Hiroki to his feet. You too, Hiroki. It was an honor. But the fight concluded, Naruto knew he had little time to recover before the final round. The challenges ahead were daunting, but he was ready. As he exited the arena, he couldn't help but think about the young boy who had fought so valiantly despite his exhaustion. In the semifinals, only the strongest remained, and Naruto was determined to be among them. With a renewed sense of purpose, he prepared for the battles to come, knowing that every fight brought him closer to his goal. Naruto watched as Hiroki lunged towards him, bracing himself for the impending clash. Yet, just before they collided, Hiroki veered sharply to the side, sensing an incredible danger. Naruto didn't flinch, he had anticipated this. Hiroki tried again, determined not to retreat, relying on his instincts. It's impressive that you got rid of the marks, Naruto commented, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. Suddenly, Naruto vanished from his spot, reappearing above the fleeing Hiroki. He swung his sword, but Hiroki blocked the strike with his own blade. However, he was immediately sent flying by a well-placed kick. Naruto stood still for a moment, then disappeared again, reappearing behind Hiroki, ready to deliver the final blow. "So, the mark is on me too," Hiroki stated, forming a water prison between himself and Naruto. Naruto's sword collided with the water barrier and got stuck. As he extracted his sword, he noticed the ground beneath him softening, pulling him in. "You're not bad, Naruto-kun. Our village needs fighters like you. That's why I'm going with you," Hiroki said, appearing behind Naruto and putting his blade to his neck. Naruto forced Hiroki to cancel his own technique, the one that had ensnared him. "My speed allows me to move without the help of marks. First, I moved with the technique and then without it, taking advantage of your momentary lapse," Naruto explained, appearing behind Hiroki and placing his sword at his neck. Smiling, Hiroki raised his hand in defeat. "I concede," Hiroki declared, raising his hand. Naruto sheathed his sword and exhaled, relieved. This fight had demanded a significant amount of chakra. "I pretended that I couldn't move without the marks and then showed my true speed. You figured it out perfectly," Naruto said, smiling. In a flash, Naruto moved to the balcony where the other contestants were waiting. The whole trip took less than a second and he wasn't even winded. Moments later, Hiroki appeared on the balcony as well. "My abilities are unknown, so I shouldn't have relaxed after getting rid of the tag. You really do look like lightning, Uzumaki," Hiroki remarked, smiling. Naruto shrugged, reminiscing about his old nickname, Lightning, from back home. It was a nostalgic memory. Meanwhile, Kazumi won her match effortlessly by melting her opponent's sword. She refused to fight for third place, assessing her chances against the former champion as slim. She didn't accept the rest time allotted, insisting that the next match start immediately. No one argued with her decision. The second contestant was also eager to start the match earlier, freeing themselves for the final confrontation. As the judge gave the signal, Kazumi wasted no time. She immediately approached her opponent, weapon in hand, aiming for a swift victory. Naruto watched from the balcony, his mind already strategizing for his next fight. The semi-final match was about to begin and he needed to be prepared. He couldn't afford to underestimate his opponents, especially with the stakes so high. This tournament was not just about proving his strength, it was about showcasing his abilities and earning the respect of his peers. Kazumi's match was over quickly, her opponent unable to withstand her relentless attacks. She stood victorious, but there was no celebration. She knew that the real challenge lay ahead. Naruto's eyes met hers briefly, a silent acknowledgement of the battles yet to come. The crowd buzzed with anticipation as the final match was announced. Naruto and Kazumi would face each other, a clash of titans that everyone had been waiting for. The arena was charged with energy, the air thick with expectation. Naruto stepped into the arena, his heart steady and his mind focused. He had come a long way, and he wasn't about to let anything stop him now. Kazumi stood across from him, her eyes filled with determination. They both knew that this fight would be the ultimate test of their skills and resolve. As the judge signaled the start of the match, Naruto and Kazumi moved simultaneously, their weapons clashing in a flurry of sparks. The crowd watched in awe as they exchanged blows, each one more powerful than the last. Naruto's movements were fluid and precise, his years of training evident in every strike. Kazumi matched him blow for blow, her own skills honed to perfection. It was a battle of equals, each pushing the other to their limits. The fight raged on, neither willing to give an inch. Naruto drew on his reserves of chakra, his determination driving him forward. He could feel the strain, but he refused to back down. This was his moment, and he would seize it with everything he had. Finally, with a surge of energy, Naruto launched a final, decisive attack. Kazumi, caught off guard, couldn't react in time. The blow landed, and she fell to the ground, defeated. The arena erupted in cheers as Naruto stood victorious. He had won, but more importantly, he had proven himself. Kazumi looked up at him from the ground, a smile of respect on her face. "Well fought, Naruto. You truly are the best," she said, accepting her defeat gracefully. Naruto extended a hand to help her up. "You too, Kazumi. It was an honor to fight you." As they stood together, the crowd's applause ringing in their ears, Naruto felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. He had faced incredible challenges and emerged victorious. But he knew that this was just the beginning. There were more battles to be fought, more challenges to overcome. And he was ready for them all. Naruto dodged the sword, not wanting to face his opponent with her own weapon. Without a sword of his own, he couldn't continue the fight even if he wanted to. He hadn't planned on fighting for long, so he immediately merged with lightning, accelerating to incredible speeds and attacking the girl from all possible directions without meeting her sword. Unable to use his techniques because of the rules, he relied on his agility and speed. After dodging for a minute, the girl realized she had no chance. "I give up," declared the girl. The referee declared him the winner of the annual sword tournament. Uzumaki Naruto. The referee announced loudly, prompting a great ovation from the stands. "Thanks for the combat, Kazumi-chan. You will have your revenge the next time we meet, Naruto smiled as he disappeared into the irisin. The closing ceremony would be in a few hours, giving everyone time to enjoy the settlement. Naruto checked once again the integrity of all his belongings, placing the bag in his space pocket. The closing had gone quite well, and the unofficial part allowed those who wanted to fight the opportunity to stretch their fists. Kai was among those helping the men, with the prize being slightly higher than Kai's percentage. Naruto was astonished by the sums involved, noting how well people lived here. Naruto opened the window, preparing to leave. The time was approaching dawn, meaning his future housemates were already waiting for him. Glancing towards the beds where the 3 female relatives lay, he noticed a slight movement from Kitsu. "You're leaving now?" Kitsu rubbed her eyes sleepily, watching Naruto who had already put a foot on the windowsill. "Yes, Kitsu-chan. I have to go. We'll see each other again. Don't miss me, okay?" Naruto replied. There was no need for unnecessary talk and he was unsure of what lay ahead, but he was not going to abandon his plan. He had spent too much time getting to this island and too much energy in the past few days. There was no turning back. At the same shore where their previous encounter had taken place, Hiroki was already waiting for Naruto. Sprawled on a stump, he stared at the tree branches that hid the rising sun from his eyes. The other Uzumaki, Hiroki, was pacing in circles, clearly irritated by Naruto's tardiness. "I'm ready." "Sorry for the wait," Naruto said, appearing next to the cursed man. The desire to finish off Naruto increased several times within Hiroki. He hated waiting and being intimidated, and Naruto had managed to do both. "Come on," Hiroki announced, getting up from his seat. For Naruto, this was the end of his previous life of battles and blood. The place he was about to enter was drastically different from anything he had seen before. It was a place where there was no power, where children were not sent to fight to the death, where everyone was willing to give their life for others. As they made their way to their new destination, Naruto reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The fights, the challenges, and the growth he had experienced had all led to this moment. He was ready for whatever lay ahead, confident in his abilities and the friendships he had forged. The landscape began to change as they moved away from the settlement. The dense forest gave way to open fields, and the air felt different. There was a sense of peace and tranquility that Naruto had never experienced before. It was a new beginning, and he was determined to make the most of it. They reached a small village nestled in a valley. It was a place untouched by the violence and chaos of the outside world. Children played in the streets, and people greeted each other with smiles and open arms. Naruto felt a sense of belonging that he had never felt before. "Welcome to your new home," Hiroki said, gesturing to the village. Naruto took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his past lift off his shoulders. This was a place where he could finally find peace, a place where he could build a new life. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready for the challenge. As he walked into the village, Naruto felt a sense of hope and determination. He was ready to leave his old life behind and embrace this new beginning. He had found a place where he could truly belong, and he was ready to face whatever the future held. This was the start of a new chapter in his life, and Naruto was ready to write it. Naruto was about to embark on a journey where he would need to discover a new self. The arc and chapter were coming to an end, signaled by the cold wind and rain that seemed to duplicate the message. There was no turning back. He had been on this endless ocean for what felt like an eternity, maybe a week or maybe a month. He had long stopped counting the days, sincerely hoping this hellish journey would end soon so he could step on solid ground and feel human again. It was incredibly boring, and while he did not regret his decision, the prolongation of time on the ship irritated him more and more, driving him to the brink of madness. He could not understand how the 2 men who accompanied him endured such a long trip through identical places so calmly. It was like staring at a painting, but with the added misery of dizziness. Another scroll flew towards the cabin, disappearing from his tired blue eyes. What was this, the 8th, maybe the 3rd scroll he had read during his stay on this ship? He kept them in his space pocket, probably never having read so many before. "You don't seem to like reading, Naruto-kun," joked Kotaro, Hiroki's bodyguard. Casting a glance in Jovi's direction, Naruto sincerely envied his companion's resilience. Not even life in the Anbu had prepared him for something so boring and monotonous. "Get ready, in a few minutes we will arrive at our destination," Kotaro said, his tone serious. Naruto raised an eyebrow in disbelief but refrained from expressing his skepticism. He was ready to slap Kotaro for making such a joke, but the serious expression on his face clearly implied that what he said was true. "Our village is hidden behind a barrier," Kotaro shrugged. Naruto smiled, standing up and heading towards Hiroki, who was in charge of the ship. The man was sitting in a chair, looking with real interest at the seascape that seemed identical in every direction. "We're going to have to put some seals on you so you can pass," Hiroki said, nodding. Naruto put his hand out, ready to apply the necessary seals. He had been warned about all the procedures he would have to pass through before entering the grounds of Uo and then the village itself. Such a defense was truly worthy of respect. It was not surprising that no one had been able to find this village in so many years. Naruto himself would not have been able to find this place without such guidance. As the first seal began to spread rapidly along Naruto's arm, he was deprived of the ability to use his own chakra. Out of curiosity, he tried to release some energy, but only managed to weakly hit the seal, resulting in a momentary electric shock. Kotaro laughed for some reason, throwing something over Naruto's identical Uzumaki seal and then applying a second seal on his other hand. Surprisingly, Naruto did not feel any change after applying the second seal, which had no visible contours on his body, unlike the previous one. Naruto reflected on the incredible defense mechanisms of this village. With such robust protections, it was astonishing that the Uzumaki clan had ever been destroyed. The destruction of the clan remained one of the many mysteries Naruto had never been able to solve. All the sources provided different accounts, and no one agreed on anything. It was an amazing clan with a truly amazing, albeit tragic, end. The boat finally slowed as they approached a seemingly invisible barrier. Hiroki stood up and guided Naruto through a series of hand signs, activating the seals on Naruto's body. The barrier shimmered and parted, revealing a lush green valley hidden away from the rest of the world. As they stepped off the boat, Naruto felt a strange mix of excitement and trepidation. This was the place where he would find a new self, a place where he could finally uncover the truth about his clan and build a future free from the burdens of his past. As Naruto walked through the village gates, he was greeted by friendly faces and warm smiles. The villagers seemed genuinely happy to see him, and for the first time in a long while, Naruto felt at peace. He knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one that would be filled with challenges and discoveries. But he was ready for it. With determination in his heart, Naruto took his first steps into this hidden village, ready to embrace whatever the future held. The seal of trust was one of the most intriguing techniques Naruto had ever encountered. A seal that could identify someone as friend or foe with a single touch. If Konoha had such a seal, they wouldn't need to constantly vet new citizens with Inoichi alone. Instead, they could simply stamp a seal and be done with it. Next to Naruto, Hiroki stopped folding seals and struck the floor of the ship with his fist, creating a sphere around them. Several hieroglyphics converged at a point in the center. As soon as the hieroglyphics finished appearing, the sphere began to shrink abruptly, taking all the air out of Naruto's lungs and making him lose consciousness. It was not a pleasant awakening. A slight kick in the rear and a giggle from a cheerful Kotaro, accompanied by some comments from Hiroki, roused him. Upon opening his eyes, Naruto was surprised to find himself lying on solid ground. He looked around, genuinely happy to see his old friend, the earth. What the ocean brings to people, an unknown voice chuckled. The blonde nodded in greeting, meeting the young man's gaze before looking around. To his great surprise, there was no water. Instead, a dense forest stood behind him. "Next time, you will have to cross the main barrier," said his interlocutor. The blonde slowly diverted his gaze towards the two Uzumaki, who were clearly enjoying his reaction. Kotaro's earlier phrases suggested it wasn't the first time they'd seen something like this. "My name is Uzumaki Kengo, and now I will explain everything to you, Naruto. Let's start with your unconsciousness," the boy introduced himself, smiling encouragingly. Naruto was surprised by the amount of chakra this young shinobi possessed, who was not much older than himself. "You lost consciousness due to a space-time technique used to travel to the clan's territory. I can't tell you the details of the technique or how it works. You were unconscious for 5 minutes. The second seal Kotaro placed on you is not felt, and the first seal has traveled further, blocking even more chakra than before." Naruto noticed the seals on his body, one still visible and the other seemingly inactive, but undoubtedly present. The first seal now restricted even more of his chakra. Apparently, it's possible to enter the village from almost anywhere. It only takes an Uzumaki with the power to open the door. The purpose of this is to make newcomers forget a route that doesn't actually exist, Kengo continued, heading towards a huge door not far from their current location. Naruto threw a furious look in Kotaro's direction, but the blonde only saw a wide smile on Kotaro's face, clearly enjoying his own mockery. "The village has many entrances. This one is for people like you. The dormitory, the residence of the Kage, and some other administrative buildings are located here. We are quite strict with admission to certain compartments of the compound," Kengo explained. Upon reaching the huge stone door, the four Uzumaki stopped. Naruto examined the barrier with interest. It showed no door, nothing that could allow them to pass. Glancing at his companions, he noticed no tension, which meant everything was fine and he just needed to wait a little longer. Kengo stepped forward and placed his hand on the stone door. He whispered a few words and the hieroglyphics on the door began to glow. Slowly, the stone door split down the middle, revealing a passageway. "Welcome to our home," Naruto, Kengo said, stepping aside to let him enter first. Naruto walked through the passageway and into the hidden village. The sight took his breath away. The village was a blend of traditional architecture and advanced technology. Buildings stood tall, adorned with intricate designs and surrounded by lush greenery. People moved about, engaged in various activities, and a sense of harmony filled the air. "You'll have to find a new self here," Kengo said, walking beside Naruto. "This is a place where there is no power struggle, where children are not sent to fight to the death, where everyone is family and is willing to give their life for others." Naruto nodded, absorbing the information. This place was indeed different from anything he had seen before. It was a place of peace and community, a stark contrast to the life of battles and blood he had known. As they walked deeper into the village, Kengo pointed out various landmarks and explained their significance. Naruto listened intently, feeling a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. This was a place where he could rebuild himself, discover new strengths, and uncover the mysteries of his clan. The arc and chapter of his previous life were closing, and a new one was beginning. The cold wind and rain might have signaled no turning back, but Naruto felt a warmth in his heart. He was ready to embrace this new chapter, to find his place in this hidden village, and to forge a future filled with hope and purpose. "Welcome back, Hiroki-sama." Kotaro-san, another Uzumaki appeared out of nowhere, hiding his face behind a colorful mask without eye holes. The shinobi approached Naruto, handing him a white bandage and pointing at his forehead. The blonde immediately put it on, then walked towards the door and touched it with one hand. It began to slowly fade from his sight, getting lost in the barrier itself. Taking a step forward, overcoming the door, Naruto had to close his eyes abruptly against the incredibly strong sunlight. Slowly opening his eyes and covering his face with his hand from the sunlight, the blonde was frozen in amazement at the sight. It was as if he had entered a completely new world, radically different from the previous one. The tall 7-story stone building seemed really striking, creating a rather unknown sensation. "Have you ever seen one of these?" Kotaro smiled, approaching a frozen Naruto. "It really is beautiful here," he added, and that was saying something. It was mind-blowing that someone in this era had dared to create such skyscrapers. Incredibly beautiful. How long did it take to build this entire village, if every building of this type required at least one honing and several hours of work? The Uzumaki clearly stood out among all the other villages that adhered to the style of small mansions. "Come on, the Uzukage is waiting for you." Kotaro patted the boy on the shoulder, bringing him out of his thoughts. With each passing minute, the blonde was more and more unable to understand how something like this could be destroyed. Space-time technology, entrance to the village by marks, and in the village itself, there were so many barriers that it was almost impossible to even count them. So many soundproof barriers placed on the buildings that the guy had never seen before. The closer Naruto got to the residence, the more he saw the huge mansions that, in his world, only the clan chiefs or the Kage had. And here, there were many. It was an incredible village, simply incredible, and he was increasingly amazed by it. "Welcome, this is for you." A girl of about 10 years old jumped onto the path the three of them were walking on. Carrying small bouquets of flowers in her hands, she walked towards each of them and handed them the flowers, stopping for a few seconds when she saw Naruto's headband. Bowing, the girl ran towards her mother, who was standing next to the door that led to one of the mansions. Caressing the girl's head, the woman smiled at those who arrived, then nodded and said goodbye, disappearing into the grounds of the mansion. Looking at the bouquet of flowers in his hands, Naruto smiled involuntarily. He had never seen anything like that done, not even once. Something like that was not usual in his village. The duty of a shinobi was to carry out missions to protect the village, and a simple mission was not something supernatural for the people of Konoha. The only thing that really made the people of his village happy was the return from the war, nothing more. Naruto just thought about it now. Maybe it was a mistake to take for granted the fulfillment of missions, something that you couldn't even be happy about, or simply greet a shinobi with a warm smile and the phrase, "Welcome back." Civilians didn't understand everything a shinobi was subjected to when he left the village grounds and how much they wanted to return to their homeland. Here, in this hidden village, it was different. People valued their shinobi, showed appreciation, and created a community where everyone was genuinely happy to see each other return safely. As Naruto walked further into the village, he observed the peaceful and harmonious life of the people. Children played in the streets, adults engaged in various activities, and everyone greeted each other warmly. The sight was so different from the war-torn and suspicious atmosphere he was used to in Konoha. Finally, they arrived at a large building at the center of the village. "This is the Uzukage's residence," Kengo said, leading the way inside. The interior was just as impressive as the exterior, with intricate designs and a sense of grandeur that spoke of the clan's history and achievements. The Uzukage, a wise-looking elderly man with a gentle smile, welcomed them. "Naruto Uzumaki, we have been expecting you," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "Welcome to your new home." Naruto bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Uzukage-sama. It's an honor to be here." The Uzukage gestured for Naruto to sit. "Tell me, Naruto, what do you think of our village so far?" It's Incredible, Naruto replied honestly. I've never seen anything like it. The buildings, the barriers, the sense of community, it's amazing. The Uzukage nodded. We have worked hard to create a place where our people can live in peace and harmony. A place where shinobi are not just warriors but valued members of the community. We believe in the power of unity and trust. Naruto felt a deep sense of respect for the Uzukage in the village. I hope to learn from you and contribute to this community. You will, Naruto, the Uzukage said with a smile. But first, rest and familiarize yourself with our village. There is much to see and many people to meet. Naruto nodded, feeling a sense of belonging that he had never felt before. This was the beginning of a new chapter in his life, a chance to find a new self in a place where he was truly valued and appreciated. As he left the Uzukage's residence and walked through the village, he knew that he had found not just a new home, but a new purpose. I guess that's what they call family, Naruto thought sadly as he followed the two Uzumaki to the small 4-story building that was apparently the residence. They climbed stairs, walked through hallways, climbed more stairs, walked through more hallways, and climbed yet more stairs, until they finally turned right and stopped in front of a door with a sign indicating the village chief's office. After knocking on the door several times, Hiroki entered the office, closing the door behind him. A few minutes later, the door opened again, and Uzumaki Hiroki left the office, wishing Naruto good luck. My name is Uzumaki Ryu. I am the Uzukage of this village. Pleased to meet you, a man of about 40 years old with long scarlet hair and green eyes, studied the boy carefully. Tell me a little about yourself, Uzumaki Naruto. I never met my parents, they died the day I was born, as far as I know. I grew up alone in the land of fire. After that, I wanted to return to my homeland, Naruto replied briefly without stopping to look at his interlocutor. The Uzukage wrote something on a piece of paper, after which the same Uzumaki who had received them at the entrance of the village appeared by his side. The pink mask was well engraved in Naruto's memory, so it was unlikely that he would forget it so quickly. Now he will subject you to a medical examination, after which you will be admitted to the dormitory. We will talk again tomorrow at noon. Do not worry, my subordinate will pick you up. See you tomorrow, the Uzukage said, dismissing Naruto. See you tomorrow, Naruto said goodbye in turn, leaving the office along with the masked Uzumaki. The medical office turned out to be on the ground floor of the same building. The boy was greeted by a young Reed who immediately dragged Naruto after her, conducting several tests on him. The girl, who introduced herself as Rosa, left instantly, promising to return as soon as all the procedures were finished. That's all, nodded Rosa, taking the last necessary analysis. Nodding briefly, Naruto exhaled, genuinely happy that the little ordeal was finally over. Rosa appeared again, next to the girl, thanking her. That's my job. You can already have your dormitory key, Rosa said. Nodding gratefully and saying goodbye to the girl, Naruto left the building with Rosa. All the way to the dormitory, a 5-story wide building, they walked in complete silence, only broken by the voices of the children playing somewhere nearby. Everything seemed too easy for Naruto, which he couldn't help but stress about. Being able to enter the village so easily made him feel like something was wrong. It was meant to happen, but today nothing of the sort happened. Upon arriving at the dormitory, they were greeted by an adult man to whom Rosa handed Naruto over, saying goodbye to both of them. After a brief and cursory recitation of the rules that in principle could have been left unsaid, the boy was escorted to his personal apartment, leaving him alone in a huge apartment. Compared to the Konoha dormitory, the living room was furnished with all the necessary comforts and equipment. The kitchen was not as big as the living room, but its size was still amazing. Here, if the elders of Konoha judged, 5 people at least could live comfortably. There is not much comfort in Konoha. Apparently, it is cozy, summarized Naruto while he finished looking at his new home for the near future. It was not advisable to leave the room, and he was quite tired. He checked that the door was closed and, after a while, fell asleep on the couch. Tomorrow was going to be a very busy day, and he needed to rest. He had managed to get here, to a place where he would try to find his new and true family. The next morning, Naruto woke up early, the sun shining through the windows of his new apartment. He stretched, feeling the comfort of the soft couch beneath him. For a moment, he just lay there, taking in the peace and quiet. It was a far cry from the chaotic mornings in Konoha, where he often woke up to the sounds of bustling streets and training grounds. After freshening up, Naruto decided to explore his new home. The apartment was indeed spacious, with a well-equipped kitchen, a cozy living room, a bedroom with a large comfortable bed, and a bathroom that looked almost luxurious compared to what he was used to. It felt surreal, but he welcomed the change. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Opening it, he found Rosa standing there, smiling brightly. "Good morning, Naruto. Ready for the day?" Naruto nodded. "Good morning, Rosa. Yes, I'm ready." "Great. The Uzukage is expecting you at noon, but until then, I thought you might want to see more of the village." "Follow me," she said, leading the way. As they walked through the village, Naruto couldn't help but marvel at the beauty and harmony of the place. The tall stone buildings, the well-maintained streets, and the friendly faces of the villagers all contributed to a sense of belonging that he had never felt before. Rosa showed him around, introducing him to various places, including the training grounds, the marketplace, and the public library. Everywhere they went, people greeted them warmly, some even stopping to chat with Rosa and express their curiosity about the new arrival. "This is our training ground," Rosa said as they reached an open area filled with shinobi practicing various techniques. "Feel free to join in any time. Our training sessions are quite rigorous, but I think you'll fit right in." Naruto smiled. "Thanks, Rosa. I look forward to it." As they continued their tour, Naruto noticed how the villagers interacted with each other. There was a sense of unity and mutual respect that reminded him of what he had always wanted in Konoha. It was a place where everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, played a vital role in the community. Finally, they arrived at the Uzukage's residence once again. Rosa left him there, wishing him luck for his meeting. Naruto took a deep breath and entered the building. The Uzukage's office was just as impressive as he remembered, and Uzumaki Ryu greeted him with a warm smile. "Welcome back, Naruto. I hope you had a good rest and enjoyed your tour of the village," Ryu said. "I did, thank you. It's a beautiful place," Naruto replied, feeling a sense of gratitude. "Good to hear. Now, let's discuss your place in our village," Ryu began. "We value every member of our community and we want you to feel at home here. You will have responsibilities, but you will also have support and guidance from everyone around you." Naruto nodded, feeling a sense of anticipation. This was the start of a new journey, a chance to find his place and his true family. As he listened to the Uzukage's words, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. He was ready to embrace this new chapter in his life and become the person he was meant to be. The morning was never good. Naruto tried to open his eyes and let out a calm sigh, rubbing the bump that had formed on his head. He had expected many things, but not that the first blow he would receive in Uzushio would be from the ground. It was a pretty good one since the bump was quite large. But the curse, he stood up, stretching and taking a look at his new room. His eyes fixed on the clock hanging on the wall, which marked 11:30. He didn't have much time left before the Uzukage's envoy arrived. So it was worth hurrying with all the necessary paperwork, which Naruto did. Half an hour later, he was already in the kitchen, examining with interest the contents of all the shelves. They contained a few empty scrolls for food, apparently where his provisions were supposed to be, except they had forgotten to put them in. Unlike the scrolls, a voice came from somewhere behind him. "How's your search going?" the voice asked. Naruto turned to face the intruder, holding his kunai to the stranger's neck. He met the brown eyes of a young redhead Uzumaki and quickly put the weapon away. "You could have been a little gentler," said the same voice, but from the door. Naruto turned around and found himself facing the same brown eyes and the sarcastic smile of a boy of about 15 years old, dressed in a simple t-shirt and shorts with several seals in the pockets. "I've come to bring you food and you almost killed my clone. But the reaction is excellent," the boy said, looking towards the window where Naruto noticed the clone was sitting. It didn't look like a shadow, but wasn't elemental either. So it's illusory but has its own structure. "By the way, my name is Daoi." "Nice to meet you," the boy smiled, placing the roll of food on the table and uncovering the contents. It was enough for a single meal. Several bowls of rice, dango rolls, and a variety of other foods that Daoi immediately began sealing and other scrolls to classify. "Raymond, don't touch it," Naruto practically shouted, unknowingly fusing with lightning. The bowl was snatched from Daoi's hand so quickly that he didn't even notice it had been taken. Naruto found himself back in the same spot, except now with a bowl of ramen. "You don't need to seal the rest. We won't have time if you eat all this," Daoi sighed heavily. But when the empty bowl was placed in front of him, he wanted to take back his words. He didn't think there was another person in the village capable of matching his cousin's pace of destruction, probably even superior. "Done," Naruto said after a few minutes, leaving the last bowl of his favorite food on the table. It had been a long time since he had eaten this. The work of art could not compare to Ichiraku's, of course, but it was also quite tasty. Finished with his meal, Naruto collapsed on the couch he had slept on all night, exhaling relaxedly. There was still half an hour until noon, so he could afford to rest a little. Daoi, however, was not supportive of Naruto resting. For some reason, he tactfully ignored him. "Uzukage-sama hates those who arrive late, so get up." "We have to go," Daoi tried to lift Naruto off the couch, failing miserably. Moving Uzumaki was not an easy task. Naruto groaned and sat up. Alright, I'm up." Daoi smiled, satisfied. "Good. Let's go then." As they left the dormitory, the streets of Uzushio were bustling with activity. Villagers greeted them warmly, and Naruto couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. The village was beautiful, with tall stone buildings and well-maintained streets. It was a stark contrast to Konoha, and Naruto felt a pang of homesickness mixed with excitement for this new chapter in his life. They arrived at the Uzukage's residence with a few minutes to spare. Daoi led Naruto to the office where the Uzukage, Uzumaki Ryu, was waiting. Ryu greeted them with a warm smile. "Welcome back, Naruto. I hope you had a good rest and enjoyed your breakfast," Ryu said. "I did, thank you," Naruto replied, feeling a sense of gratitude. "Good. Now, let's discuss your role in our village," Ryu began. "We value every member of our community and we want you to feel at home here. You will have responsibilities, but you will also have support and guidance from everyone around you." Naruto nodded, feeling a sense of anticipation. This was the start of a new journey, a chance to find his place and his true family. As he listened to the Uzukage's words, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. He was ready to embrace this new chapter in his life and become the person he was meant to be. Naruto seemed to be in a daze, his body moving automatically as he forgot to answer some of Daoi's questions. After about 5 minutes, the blonde got up from the couch on his own. He looked at Daoi, who was sitting on the floor with such a hopeless face that Naruto felt sorry for him and decided to support him morally. Naruto sat next to Daoi and handed him a candy that had appeared from somewhere. "Don't be sad, boy. Everything will be fine," Naruto muttered, taking out a second candy and putting it in his mouth. He turned his head towards Daoi, not understanding the reason for the intense commotion in Daoi's eyes. "Something wrong?" Naruto asked. "Everything is fine," Daoi sighed, surprised. He still didn't fully understand what had happened. The guy who had been ignoring him for about 15 minutes suddenly sat down next to him and tried to comfort him for some reason. Yes, his face was quite sad because he was very aware of how the Uzukage would punish him for not completing such a simple task. Oh, and no longer having permission to leave the village grounds most likely. But it was so strange that Daoi didn't even know how to react to Naruto's behavior. "Maybe I haven't gotten enough sleep. It's better that you don't touch me in the morning for the next week. I can't think on an empty stomach after a trip like this, but I'll start thinking if you feed me." Naruto decided to explain his behavior, making Daoi even more confused. "Okay, let's go to the residence." "I'm ready," Daoi said, deciding that it was better for his own sanity not to continue the conversation. He just nodded, leaving the apartment and waiting for Naruto to close the door. After a few attempts to guess which way the lock should be turned, Naruto managed to close the door. The boys went directly to the reception with the ruler of the village. The path, just like yesterday, did not take long and was not distinguished by anything interesting. Something that did not happen yesterday was that Daoi walked in silence, immersed in his own thoughts, and Naruto did not want to start a dialogue right now. He still felt it was worth trying to find out what was going to happen in the ruler's office. There were many options but too little data to be sure of any of them. He knew too little about the village he had traveled to come to a definitive conclusion. The uncertainty of the immediate future was discouraging, but Naruto tried to push those thoughts away for the immediate future. He would solve the problems as they arose, but for now, he needed to mentally prepare himself for the dialogue with the Uzukage. There was not much time for that, about 20 seconds or so. As he approached the door, Naruto had to crouch abruptly against the wall to avoid being hit by an Uzumaki who had just left the office. Looking towards the ruler of the village, the blonde smiled, noticing the same tired face as his former sensei, Kakashi, had while in the cage chair. "All the cages are the same," he thought. "Good afternoon," greeted the Uzukage to the boys, adopting once again the serious and concentrated expression that a village ruler should have. After waiting for a greeting and response from the incoming guests, Ryu continued, "Daoi, you may go. Thank you for your work." "It is my duty," the boy bowed, putting on the most serious expression he could muster. Once Daoi had left, the Uzukage turned his full attention to Naruto. "Naruto, it's good to see you again. I hope you had a restful night and found everything to your liking." Naruto nodded. "Yes, thank you. The apartment is really nice." "Good to hear," Ryu said, his serious demeanor softening slightly. "Now, let's get to the matter at hand. We have much to discuss. I understand you have a lot of questions about Uzushio and your role here." Naruto nodded again, his curiosity piqued. "Yes, I do. There are so many things I don't understand yet." Ryu leaned back in his chair, clasping his hands together. "Ask away. I'll do my best to answer." Naruto took a deep breath. "First of all, why was it so easy for me to enter the village? It almost seemed like something was wrong." Ryu smiled. "That's a good question. Uzushio is a very secure village, but we also believe in giving our kin the benefit of the doubt. You are in Uzumaki, and you have shown great promise. We wanted to give you a chance to see for yourself what we have built here." Naruto nodded, feeling a bit more reassured. "I see. And what about my role here? What will I be doing?" Ryu's expression became serious again. You will be undergoing training and will eventually take on missions to protect and serve the village, much like in Konoha. However, we also have a special task for you. As you may know, Uzushio was nearly destroyed in the past, and we are still rebuilding. We need strong, capable shinobi to help us in this effort. Naruto felt a surge of determination. I'll do my best. I have no doubt that you will, Ryu said with a nod. For now, rest and get to know the village. We will begin your training tomorrow. Daoi will be your guide and mentor for the time being. Naruto stood up, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Thank you, Uzukage-sama. I won't let you down. Ryu smiled warmly. I know you won't. Welcome to Uzushio, Naruto. With that, Naruto left the office, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He had a lot to learn and a lot to prove, but he was ready for the challenge. As he made his way back to his apartment, he couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he had found a place where he truly belonged. Naruto found the moment funny, but in the office of the head of his new village, he tried to behave with the dignity befitting a former Anbu fighter who had accompanied the village ruler to political negotiations on many occasions. See you later, Naruto, Daoi said as the door slammed shut behind him. Naruto turned his attention to the village ruler, searching for something among the huge pile of papers on his desk. Finally, the Uzukage pulled out the necessary document, which had been buried at the bottom of the pile. Ryu stood up and approached Naruto. With a touch of his hand, Naruto suddenly lost the ability to move. A rather interesting jutsu, Naruto thought, frowning as Ryu pushed aside some papers and placed his hands on the desk behind him. Naruto still hadn't moved, nor had his expression changed, as if he hadn't just been immobilized by the ruler of a village he didn't know well. This seemed to be some kind of test or method of acquaintance. Who are you? Ryu asked, his voice calm but commanding. That question has already been asked. I don't see the point in repeating my own words, Naruto answered calmly, waiting for some explanation for the behavior of the village leader. He still didn't understand what his analysis could show or what exactly was wrong with his answer yesterday. Who are your parents? Asked a Uzukage, his calm demeanor unchanged, but the intensity in his gaze increasing as he brought his palm in front of him. It seemed the situation was becoming quite problematic. Naruto still did not understand what could have happened. He hadn't done anything out of the ordinary during his stay in this village. Why the question about his parents? Uzumaki Kushina and Minato Namikaze, the boy answered honestly. He slowly loosened the seal, ready to flee if necessary, but there was no way to instantly get rid of a seal of that level, and the restriction on his chakra would hit him hard if he tried to destroy the immobilizer. My grandson, my several times great-grandson, how did you manage to be born, Iden? Ryu smiled. Uzumaki Naruto froze, unable to explain at all. This was an outcome he clearly couldn't have expected. You know, we all have strong family ties, but not this strong. My daughter is almost your great-grandmother and you're practically the same age as her. Why don't you tell me how that happened, grandson? And don't even try to say you don't know anything. I won't believe you. You won't be satisfied with my answer and I'm not ready to give you a more complete one, Naruto warned. But when he felt the terrifying power of the Uzukage that could compete with him in strength, he gulped. The last thing he wanted was to get into a conflict with this man right now, especially not with the seals restricting his power. Put up a soundproof barrier, please, Naruto requested. The barrier was put up in a few seconds. I am from the future, he said, finally. Let's say I won't share information about the future, so that's all I can tell you. Naruto sighed heavily. Finally getting rid of the seals that restricted his movements was a laborious task, but fortunately, patience and stubbornness were enough. I came here without any particular purpose. I'm getting ahead of your questions, and yes, I have not been to Uzushio because the village no longer exists in my time. I do not know the reasons. And even if I knew them, I would not tell you. Ryu's eyes widened slightly, but he maintained his composure. From the future, you say? That certainly explains a lot. Time travel is a complex and dangerous phenomenon. It's not something to be taken lightly. I know, Naruto replied, his tone somber. But I can't give you any details. The consequences of revealing too much about the future could be disastrous. Ryu nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Very well, I won't press you for details. But know this, Naruto. As long as you are here, you are part of this village. We will protect you, and in return, we expect your loyalty and cooperation. You have it, Naruto said firmly. I will do whatever I can to help Uzushio. Ryu smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. That's all I needed to hear. Welcome to Uzushio, Naruto. Let's work together to build a better future. Naruto felt a weight lift off his shoulders. Despite the unexpected turn of events, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had found a place where he could belong and make a difference. As he left the Uzukage's office, he couldn't help but feel hopeful about the future, even if it was still shrouded in uncertainty. There was silence in the office for a few minutes as the Uzukage processed the information he had just received. Naruto, not noticing any action from the ruler to destroy the seal, began working on getting rid of the second one. The process was slow and laborious, but after a couple of minutes, Naruto managed to remove the second seal and awaited further instructions from Ryu. Ryu, however, did not speak immediately. Instead, he took the paper that apparently contained the results of Naruto's tests and set it on fire, watching as the document turned to ashes. The Uzukage's expression remained neutral, but Naruto could sense the weight of the decision being made. The ruler of the village clearly found the paper, while informative, not necessary for his current purposes. It was apparent that Ryu was more interested in what Naruto could offer moving forward, rather than delving into his past or the specifics of his future knowledge. "Yes, I hadn't thought that a figure like you would be dropped into my village," Ryu said after a pause. "No one will ever know about these results, nor will they know who you are. My attitude towards you will not change due to this information. However, you will have a rather unusual mission." Naruto listened intently, his curiosity piqued. "You, as someone who knows the future, will need to help us resolve or prevent any conflicts related to our village and, most importantly, avoid its destruction. You do not have to share specific details about the future, but you must work to ensure that the village does not fall." Naruto nodded, accepting the terms. "I agree," he said, shaking the Uzukage's outstretched hand. This was not what he had expected from the meeting, but he was not particularly bothered. His specialty had been revealed sooner than he had planned, but perhaps it was beneficial. He would not have to remain inactive for more than a month. "During this month, you will attend the local academy where they will teach you everything you need to know," Ryu continued. "You will train alongside the students who will be graduating in just over a month. Since you are not familiar with our history and other subjects that are typically taught from childhood, you will receive additional instruction from the teachers assigned to you." With that, Ryu returned to filling out some paperwork. The pink-masked shinobi who had appeared before, whom Naruto had seen for the third time, stepped into the office. He was accompanied by a young Redeed, Rosa, who took Naruto's arm and began to lead him out. "Kun, staying in San," Rosa said abruptly. Before Naruto could respond, he was literally pushed out of the office. Rosa, not one to waste time, led him not along the main street, but through a series of alleys. The route was efficient, and within 15 minutes, they arrived at the door of the academy director's office. Naruto, feeling somewhat disoriented and unsure of the exact location, was left to stand at the door when Rosa disappeared. He hesitated, knocking on the door. Moments later, a gruff voice from inside responded. "How many times have I told you not to bother me on my lunch break?" The 50-year-old Redeed growled as he opened the door slightly, glaring at Naruto before closing it again. Naruto groaned softly, realizing that Rosa had not prepared him for this encounter. He knocked on the door again, feeling a bit awkward and unsure of how to proceed. As he waited for a response, he couldn't help but wonder what the next steps would be in his new life within this village. The door creaked open slightly, and the director's grumpy face appeared. "What do you want?" he snapped, clearly annoyed but not yet dismissive. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I've been sent here by the Uzukage," Naruto said, trying to sound as respectful and calm as possible. "I'm supposed to start my training and learn about the village." The director's expression softened slightly, though he still looked weary. "Fine. Come in," he said, opening the door fully and gesturing for Naruto to enter. "Let's get this over with. I assume you're here to start your orientation." Naruto stepped inside, mentally preparing himself for whatever challenges lay ahead. He was determined to make the most of his time in Uzushio, knowing that his future and the future of the village depended on his success. Naruto stood awkwardly in the office, still trying to process the strange encounter he had just had. He had barely noticed the piece of paper on the floor when the door began to open slowly. Before he could react, and Uzumaki with a heavily chakra charged kick had struck him. Instinctively, Naruto grabbed the leg of the attacker, his strong grip preventing what would have been a painful blow. "Oh, wait a minute," Naruto growled, nervously trying to restrain the foot that had nearly broken something. He looked up at the Uzumaki, who had gone from being hostile and seemingly willing to kill, to suddenly welcoming him with a more relaxed demeanor. "Come in, future graduate," the man said, his voice cheerful despite the earlier aggression. "Let's talk. Let's get to know each other." He pulled his leg away from Naruto's grip and motioned for him to enter the office. Naruto followed the man, feeling a mix of confusion and irritation. The Uzumakis, as he was beginning to understand, were an unpredictable bunch. He mentally braced himself for whatever else lay ahead. Chapter 3 The man, who introduced himself as Uzumaki Yin, took a seat directly in front of Naruto. Yin's demeanor was more relaxed now, and he took the piece of paper that Naruto had picked up from the floor, placing it on the desk. With a heavy sigh, Yin began to speak. "My name is Uzumaki Yin, and I'm the headmaster of the academy," he said. "Right now, we need to discuss what you can and can't do. But before that, there are a few things we need to get out of the way. Yin tapped Naruto's forehead with his finger, and a faint silhouette of a seal appeared briefly before vanishing, absorbed by Naruto's skin. This procedure is mandatory, but since you've come this far, it will be quite quick, Yin explained as he moved to a nearby table and retrieved another sheet of paper. Yin sat back down, crossing one leg over the other and looking Naruto straight in the eyes. Let's start with your name and age, he said. Uzumaki Naruto, 21 years old, Naruto answered calmly, glancing around the spacious office. Besides him and Yin, there was a young woman at a nearby desk, quietly reviewing some papers. She seemed completely absorbed in her work, barely acknowledging Naruto's presence. Yin continued with his questions, asking if Naruto harbored any animosity towards the Uzumaki clan or had plans to harm the village. Naruto's answers were straightforward and honest, a resounding no in response to each question. Yin nodded approvingly and touched Naruto's forehead again, evidently removing the temporary seal. Normally, this procedure takes about an hour, but we'll make do with what we have, Yin said. Now, onto the interesting part, the test of skills and knowledge. At Yin's call, the young woman at the desk looked up. Naomi, I need you to help out here, Yin instructed. Naomi glanced briefly at Naruto and then returned to her paperwork, sorting through the numerous documents that had clearly been piling up. Yin turned his attention back to Naruto. Do you want to stretch a bit? He asked with a smile. Naruto's expression remained neutral. I've heard that you were capable of defeating Hiroki. A little sparring, just jujutsu, would be quite interesting to see. Naruto nodded, accepting the challenge. Well, since you ask, he said, his tone a mixture of determination and curiosity. How could I deny it? Naomi, now leaving her desk and approaching, introduced herself with a cheerful voice. Nice to meet you, Naruto-kun. My name is Naomi. As you may have noticed, I'll be your future rival. Naruto smiled back, extending a hand. Pleased to meet you, Naomi, he said. Naomi returned the smile and shook his hand. Let's get started then. I've been looking forward to testing my skills against someone new. With that, Naruto and Naomi prepared for their sparring match. Naruto was eager to see what the academy and its inhabitants had to offer, and the prospect of a friendly challenge was a welcome distraction from the complexities of his new life in Uzushio. Naruto's eyes followed the figures of Yin and Naomi as they led him out of the academy and towards the training grounds. The contrast between this academy and the one he had known in Konoha was striking. Here, the headmaster was deeply respected and adored by students and staff alike. This reverence was evident in the way students straightened up and quickly returned to their classrooms at Yin's command, his presence alone enough to keep them in check. Naruto noted with some surprise how Yin's influence was palpable, a stark contrast to the indifference of his former headmaster. As they reached the training ground, Naruto took in the expansive clearing. It was a well-equipped space designed for serious training. Mannequins and targets stood amidst a multitude of intricate seals drawn on the ground, emitting a faint glow as they were activated. Naomi's explanation about the barrier intrigued Naruto. It was clear this place was designed to ensure that only those permitted could participate in the training. Naomi, stretching and preparing herself, exuded a confident aura. Her prowess in taijutsu was well known, and it was clear that she took her role seriously. Naruto, though focused, couldn't help but feel a twinge of nervousness at the thought of sparring with someone of her caliber. Despite the excitement of the challenge, he wasn't particularly eager to engage in a full-on fight, preferring to conserve his energy for the tests ahead. Ready, Naruto-kun. Naomi's voice cut through his thoughts, her smile a mix of challenge and encouragement. Naruto nodded, adopting a fighting stance. The initial moments of the fight were a blur of swift movements and calculated strikes. Naomi's speed and strength were formidable, and she moved with a grace that belied her power. Naruto's attempts to land a decisive blow were met with skillful dodges and counters. Each punch and kick from Naomi was executed with precision, and her ability to anticipate Naruto's moves kept him on the defensive. Despite his focus and agility, Naruto found himself increasingly impressed by Naomi's skill. Her taijutsu was not only powerful but also incredibly fluid, each movement seamlessly flowing into the next. The speed of the exchange was intense, and Naruto had to rely on his reflexes and experience to keep up. The blows he received were absorbed with practiced ease, and he adjusted his strategy accordingly. As the sparring match continued, Naruto noticed the subtle signs of fatigue in Naomi's movements. Despite her strength, even the best practitioners had their limits. He began to time his counterattacks more carefully, looking for openings in her defenses. With each exchange, he learned more about her fighting style and how to adapt his own techniques. The fight, while challenging, was also exhilarating. Naruto's focus sharpened as he engaged in the combat, and he could feel his own skills improving with every move. He respected Naomi's strength and appreciated the opportunity to test his abilities against such a skilled opponent. The sparring session seemed to stretch on, with neither fighter willing to give an inch. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Naomi called a halt to the match. Breathing heavily, she wiped the sweat from her brow and smiled at Naruto. "You're impressive, Naruto-kun," Naomi said, her tone both friendly and respectful. "Not many can keep up with me like that." Naruto, catching his breath, returned her smile. "You're not too bad yourself, Naomi-chan. I've learned a lot from this fight." Yin, who had been observing from the sidelines, approached them with a nod of approval. "Good work, both of you. Naruto-kun, you've passed the first part of your evaluation. Now, let's move on to the written test and your knowledge of Fuinjutsu." Naruto followed Yin and Naomi back to the academy, feeling a mix of exhaustion and accomplishment. The challenges ahead were clear, but he was ready to face them. His experiences so far in the village had been unexpected, but he was beginning to understand the dynamics and relationships within this new environment. As he prepared for the next phase of his evaluation, Naruto felt a sense of determination. He was ready to prove himself and contribute to the village in any way he could. The future, with its uncertainties and challenges, seemed a little clearer now, and Naruto was eager to embrace the opportunities ahead. The training ground was alive with the intensity of the sparring match. Naruto and Naomi had been engaged in a fierce taijutsu battle, their movements a blur of speed and precision. Naruto had initially struggled to keep up with Naomi's relentless onslaught. Her speed was astounding, just a notch below Lee's level with the 6th gate open, without even using chakra acceleration. This made her an exceptionally formidable opponent. For 30 seconds, Naruto had been on the defensive, trying to find a way to counter Naomi's swift and powerful attacks. Her blows were a series of well-timed rapid strikes, each one more intense than the last. Despite his own agility and skill, Naruto found himself repeatedly forced back, unable to land a decisive hit. Naomi was not using any special tricks or techniques, her speed and strength were her primary weapons. She was clearly studying Naruto's style, searching for gaps and weaknesses. Naruto had been struggling to make any significant progress. His usual tactics were proving ineffective against Naomi's fluid and adaptable style. He had tried to press the advantage by creating openings in her defense, but Naomi's counterattacks were too precise. Every time Naruto attempted a strike, Naomi would dodge effortlessly, her movements a seamless dance of combat skill. The turning point came when Naruto realized that he needed to change his approach. Naomi's relentless pace and her constant adaptation to his moves had begun to wear him down. He decided to break the distance and reassess the situation. As he retreated, he noticed Naomi's gaze following him, her eyes narrowing as she analyzed his fighting style. She was clearly searching for a way to exploit any weaknesses. Naruto, catching his breath, took a moment to reassess his strategy. He knew he needed to do something different to gain the upper hand. With a determined expression, he decided to test a new tactic. As Naomi approached again, Naruto shifted his style, trying to create an opening. Naomi's punches were becoming increasingly difficult to predict, and Naruto struggled to maintain his defenses. Naomi, meanwhile, was clearly enjoying the challenge. Her movements were fluid and precise, and she seemed to revel in the opportunity to test her skills against a competent opponent. Despite her evident enjoyment, there was a hint of frustration in her eyes as Naruto managed to evade her attacks and find moments to counter. The fight continued, with both fighters showing remarkable skill and resilience. Naomi attempted to use her taijutsu expertise to overwhelm Naruto, but he was proving to be a difficult target. He had adapted his own style to counter hers, creating openings and using his agility to dodge her strikes. In a moment of surprise, Naruto created a field of nature's chakra around his hand. Naomi's eyes widened as she realized that Naruto was using a technique she had not anticipated. The field created a powerful shockwave, which Naruto used to send Naomi flying backward. The impact was significant, and Naomi was momentarily thrown off balance. She had not expected Naruto to use such a technique, and it gave him a brief advantage. Despite the surprise, Naomi quickly recovered. She slid to evade another of Naruto's powerful blows and used the opportunity to move to the left, avoiding the shockwave. However, she was still struggling to deal with the nature of Naruto's attack. Naruto's ability to create a field of nature's chakra around his body was a game changer, and Naomi had to adapt quickly. As Naomi attempted to regain her footing, she made a critical mistake. She had noticed the smile on Naruto's face and underestimated his capabilities. In a decisive move, Naruto created a stronger field around his entire body, which proved to be more effective than the previous attacks. Naomi was caught off guard, and with a swift movement, Naruto sent her flying beyond the barrier. The force of the blow was considerable, and Naomi was thrown far from the training area. Naruto, sensing the end of the match, approached Naomi and offered his hand to help her up. Despite the earlier intensity of their fight, Naruto's gesture was one of respect and camaraderie. Naomi accepted the hand, standing up and brushing herself off. She had clearly been surprised by Naruto's technique, but she did not let it affect her demeanor. Her respect for Naruto's abilities was evident, even if the fight had been challenging. Good fight, Naruto-kun, Naomi said, her voice carrying a hint of admiration. You've definitely shown me a different side of Taijutsu. I wasn't expecting you to use that technique. Naruto smiled, a mixture of relief and satisfaction on his face. You were amazing, Naomi-chan. Your skills are impressive and it was a great challenge to fight you. Yin, who had been observing from the sidelines, approached them with a nod. Well done, both of you. Naruto-kun, you've shown considerable skill and adaptability. Now, let's move on to the next part of your evaluation. As they made their way back to the academy, Naruto felt a sense of accomplishment. The sparring match with Naomi had been intense and enlightening. He had gained valuable insights into his own abilities and the dynamics of combat. The path ahead was still uncertain, but Naruto was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with newfound confidence and determination. I hope you liked the video. Also, turn on the notification bell for next videos, and so here's goodbye to everyone.